The steady drip of the IV was the only sound in my sterile prison, a countdown to my final breath. He embezzled my family's property and then left me to die a slow, miserable death in a cold hospital bed, my body wasting away under the thin sheets. It turned out everything he did, every sweet word he whispered, was a lie. He had already stolen my company, my wealth, and even worse, he already had an affair with my own cousin. My entire life had been a cruel joke, and I was the punchline. But then impossibly, I opened my eyes. A familiar voice called my name, and I realized with a jolt that I had gone back in time, to the very moment before marrying that wretched man. This time, I would see through his true colors. Before he could even finish his saccharine, fake confession of love, my hand flew across his face, a resounding slap. He loved me. She scoffed internally, her voice dripping with ice. She would finish that sentence for him. He loved her for her power, for the influence she held in the corporation. He loved that she could grant his every wish, that she was a tool him to manipulate and use for his own revenge. She poked his chest with a finger, her eyes flashing with contempt. But as the shock on his face registered, cold thought pierced through her anger. Now that she's completely blown up her original plan, how on earth should she deal with the aftermath? In her past life, they had rushed their marriage to handle a swarm of reporters. Now, she needed a new fiancé. Her eyes scanned the room, desperately searching for an escape route, and then they landed on him. Li Chengxian, the 12th son of the Li family, a notorious playboy who supposedly did nothing but eat, drink, and have fun. He was the perfect, harmless shield. An idea wild and audacious, sparked in her mind, marry me. She sized him up. He seemed fine, handsome even. With his family's status backing her, her ex wouldn't dare to plot against her. This would work, for now at least. Suddenly, a blur of motion caught her eye. Her ex cried out as Li Chengxian, the man she just deemed harmless, effortlessly grabbed him and flipped him over his shoulder, sending him crashing to the ground with a sickening boom. The ploy stood over the groaning man, his expression coolly chastising. "Didn't you hear, Miss Zheng? She told you not to bother her anymore." She remembered a brief, almost forgotten encounter where she'd complimented his face. He'd looked so pleased, like a puppy getting a treat. But this second chance wasn't just about revenge. As tears welled in her eyes, she saw her mother, alive and well, rushing towards her. She threw herself into her mother's arms, sobbing with a relief so profound it shook her to the core. She could see her precious family again. Her father's voice was a pillar of strength, telling her his daughter must suffer any losses and to go for it. Armed with a new burning purpose, she took her rightful place at the head of the boardroom table, a true CEO defending her career. She laid out the promotional plan for their new electric vehicle, her voice clear and confident. Everything needed to go according to her plan. She would assume full responsibility. Her team looked at her with renewed respect. Okay, Manager Zheng. And perhaps, just perhaps, she could even find something real. A memory of Li Chengxian surfaced, his expression surprisingly earnest. He had told her it wasn't just lust, that he wanted her to fall in love and stay by his side. Why, he had teased, "Don't you tell me you've already fallen for me?" He had asked her to remain by his side, and she had been left speechless. The sterile drip of the IV echoed in her memory, a haunting reminder of her past. She could feel the cold fluid seeping into her veins, her breath catching in her throat as she lay helpless in that hospital bed. Each exhale was a struggle, a tiny surrender. Then came the sound of expensive leather shoes clicking against the linoleum, a sound that would forever be etched into her soul. The man she was supposed to marry, Zhao Yushun, stood over her, his handsome face twisted into a victorious smirk as he called her name. He leaned in, his voice a cruel whisper, informing her that all her property had been transferred to him, that her company was now his. He then produced, the needle glinting menacingly under the fluorescent lights. "Just go peacefully," he murmured, as if doing her a favor. He injected a clear liquid directly into her eye line, a hiss sounding as the poison entered her system. He even had the audacity to thank her, explaining that without her support he never could have reclaimed what was his. Because of their relationship, he was granting her a swift death. He sneered, his eyes void of any warmth. Her own eyes widened in horror, a strangled sound escaping her lips. Jerk! Could she have been so blind? Just then, her cousin Minzhen appeared, draping herself over Yushun's arm like a triumphant viper. She revealed the final, soul-crushing truth. They had been in love long before Wenyan, and he had been faithful to her all this time, waiting for this moment. They embraced, a loving couple celebrating over her dying body. He promised his true love that after Wenyan's funeral was over, they would finally register their marriage and she would get everything she deserved. Minzhen then leaned down, her face right next to Wenyan's, her breath hot with, "Sister Wenyan, I'll be kind, tell you. The death of your parents and your miscarriage, that was all our doing." A torrent of pure, unadulterated rage flooded Wenyan's system, a fire more potent than any poison. Her last sight was of the two scumbags walking away, their silhouettes framed by the doorway, as her heart monitor let out a final, piercing shriek. Even if I turn into a ghost, I'll haunt you forever. Suddenly, she was back in the VIP reception room of the Bureau of Civil Affairs. A cold, murderous resolve settled deep in her bones. I won't let you off. Zhao Yushun was kneeling before her, his face a mask of fake concern, asking if she was okay. He reached for her, but she reacted on pure instinct. The slap was sharp and vicious, echoing in the quiet room. He stared at her, utterly stunned, asking if she had a nightmare and offering to take her to the hospital after they registered their marriage. Don't touch me, she spat, shoving him away. Her eyes darted around, the reality of her situation crashing down on her. The Bureau of Civil Affairs. She fumbled for her phone, her hands trembling as she saw the date. It was the exact day she had shackled herself to this monster in her previous life. Was this real? The horrific end just a nightmare? But the images of his betrayal, of the syringe, of her dead parents, it was all too real. No, she hadn't dreaming. She had been given a second chance. With a newfound fire in her soul, she declared that no matter what, she would never marry this jerk. She turned on her heel and stormed out, leaving him calling her name in confusion. As she walked through the lobby, 2 men watched her. The handsome one in the plaid jacket mused that she was going through a lot of trouble. He offered her a polite smile as she passed. Young lady Zheng, hello. But Wenyan stopped dead in her tracks. A plan, brilliant and reckless, formed in her mind. She turned and grabbed his sleeve. Li Chengxian, she said, her voice firm. He looked at her, utterly bewildered, as she announced that she would go with him. What? Before he could protest, she was dragging him out of the building. His bodyguard could only watch in stunned silence as this powerful woman practically kidnapped his young master. She shoved the flustered playboy into the passenger seat of her hot pink sports car. The silence inside was thick with tension, her heart pounding with a mix of nerves and adrenaline. He finally found his voice, looking at her with wide, confused eyes. Young lady Zheng, what's wrong? We don't have much in common, he stammered. I don't think I've ever offended you, right? She took a deep, calming breath, her expression unreadable. She turned to him. And direct. Li Chengxian. You came to the Bureau of Civil Affairs today, so you must have your ID on you, right? Right. He nodded slowly, and a predatory smile touched her lips. Marry me, Chengxian. The poor man looked like he'd seen a ghost, his face paling in terror. Wait, what did you just say? She didn't waver, leaning in closer, her voice a low, compelling command. Li Chengxian, marry me. Her eyes burned with a fierce determination, pinning him in place. This was not a request. It was the first move in her epic game of revenge. Inside the sleek, expensive car, the air crackled with an unusual tension as Zheng Wenyan laid out her proposal with the precision of a corporate takeover. She looked at the handsome man beside her, her voice smooth and confident, informing him that her new energy car project was releasing soon. Her company, financial strength, education, and reputation were all beyond excellent, and she was especially confident in her appearance. She continued her pitch, stating that her personal property notarization and health report were just updated yesterday. Marrying her would not be a bother. The man Li Chengxian gave a small, charming smile, acknowledging that he was certainly aware of Miss Zheng Wenyan, the future star of Yongdong Corporation. He believed in her strength and morals, but right now just didn't seem like the right time or place. Wenyan's expression didn't falter. On the contrary, she declared it was very suitable, gesturing towards the grand building, just outside their window. They were right in front of the Bureau of Civil Affairs. It was incredibly convenient to get a marriage certificate. She was ruthlessly efficient, pulling up a tablet to show him a contract template that could be easily modified into a marriage agreement. Time was of the essence. Li Chengxian, she wanted to finalize things and get married quickly. He couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. This felt less like a romantic proposal and more like a one-sidedness deal he was being pressured into. He knew his reputation, Li Chengxian, the 12th son of the Li family, a spoiled playboy who rarely graced any office with his presence. He was genuinely shocked she even remembered him, let alone anything related to business. She simply arched a perfect eyebrow, reminding him that she had already told him her strengths. He leaned back, a hand resting on his cheek as he tried to stall, claiming he couldn't think of any conditions right now and didn't have his property documents or a recent physical. But she waved his concerns away with an unnerving calmness. There was no need to worry, she said, her eyes steady on his. She believed him. Besides, she added matter-of-factly, aside from his accidental death in a year, there was nothing else worth mentioning. The words hit him like a physical blow. His mind went blank. She believes me? The world around him dissolved into a memory from a few nights ago. He and his friends were leaving a bar when a mysterious old man with a cane had approached them. The old man's gaze had been fixed solely on him, a strange intensity in his eyes. It's miraculous, the old man had said, his voice raspy. He was obviously destined to die young, but there were people who could change his fate. Chengxian had turned, completely bewildered, asking if the man was talking to him. The stranger had offered a cryptic warning. If a stranger proposed an idea in the near future, he shouldn't rush it down. Had just laughed it off, thinking about all the young men and women who threw themselves at him daily. He and his friends had walked away, their laughter echoing in the night. The old man had simply watched them go, a knowing smile playing on his lips, murmuring about a miraculous life. Snapping back to the present, Chengxian felt a shiver run down his spine. Don't tell me something in this world actually changed. A grin spread across his face. All right then. He would accept this bizarre invitation. As he stepped out of the car, the sun seemed to make him sparkle. He'd never experienced a marriage offer quite this, and he had to admit, Zheng Wenyan's beauty made her rather enjoyable to be around. But as they approached the building, a frantic voice called her name. Wenyan, her ex-fiancé Zhao Yushun, ran towards them, his face a mask of fake concern, asking if she was sick and reaching for her arm. She snatched her hand away as if burned, her voice dripping with ice as she told him not to touch her. He looked wounded, pointing out that she'd covered up the slap marks he'd given her. Was she really that concerned about her image? She fired back a cool retort. He quickly changed tactics, claiming he was just worried about paparazzi, insisting she had rushed to register their marriage to deal with reporters. Her patience snapped. She poked him hard in the chest, her eyes flashing with contempt. She would deal with the paparazzi herself. Turning her back on the pathetic man, she told Cheng Xian they were leaving. Yushun cried out behind them, begging to know what was wrong. He lunged forward, grabbing her arm again, but this time her face was a mask of pure fury. The sharp, resounding crack of a slap echoed as her hand connected with his cheek. I said, "Don't touch me," she seethed, and he stumbled back shaky and stunned. He cradled his face, his eyes wide with disbelief, winding up why she was suddenly treating him this way. She gave him a mocking smirk, suggesting he borrow some more foundation, before walking into the building with Cheng Xian, leaving her trash ex-fiancé behind. Inside, a man in a bucket hat and mask rushed over to Cheng Xian, asking what was going on. Cheng Xian waved it off as business, much to his friend's disbelief, since Cheng Xian never worked. Just then Yushun burst in, still calling Wenyan's name. He pleaded for a chance to talk, but Wenyan's voice was dangerously low. "Don't you understand human language? Get out of my sight." As he continued to beg, Cheng Xian's eyes landed on his masked friend and a brilliantly chaotic idea sparked in his mind. In one dramatic motion, he ripped off the man's disguise, shouting the celebrity's name for all to hear, "Agent Jin Renting." The lobby exploded into chaos as fans swarmed the newly exposed star, screaming for photos and autographs. Amidst the pandemonium, Cheng Xian grabbed Wenyan's hand and pulled her towards the elevators, escaping the scene. Once they were safely inside, the doors sliding shut, Wenyan crossed her arms, a wry look on her face. "It looked like that man was his marriage target," she commented dryly. Cheng Xian dismissed him as a jerk he'd deal with later, then suddenly slammed his hand against the wall beside her head, trapped her in a classic kabiden. "Aren't you afraid I might something to you?" he purred, leaning in close. With his handsome face just inches from hers, he wondered aloud what reason she could possibly have to plot against someone with his status. He studied her face, intrigued. Shouldn't a girl be embarrassed or flustered in this situation? "Why are you so calm?" he pressed. The elevator dinged and she met his gaze without a flicker of emotion. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cool and steady, "but I'm not a naive sweetheart." She brushed past him as the doors opened, leaving him momentarily stunned by her complete lack of reaction. So much for creating a romantic atmosphere. A short while later, they emerged from a VIP room, a red booklet in hand. "It's done," she said, looking at the marriage certificate as if it were a business contract, though she admitted the photo was surprisingly good. Cheng Xian leaned over, a teasing glint in his eye, and asked if she was a year older than him. She confirmed it with a smirk, suggesting he could call her older sister. He leaned in closer, his voice a playful whisper right next to her ear. "My dear old wife." The unexpected intimacy made her freeze. Had she made the wrong decision? A phone call from work shattered the moment, and she was instantly back in business mode, firing off orders to investigate reporters and her scheming relatives. They slipped out the back entrance. He offered to drive, and she accepted, needing a moment to process everything. But their escape was cut short by Yushun, who came running to him yet again, looking utterly pathetic. He dropped to his knees, clutching at her waist and begging her to listen. He tried to remind her of their past promise before turning his desperate gaze on Cheng Xian, accusing him of poisoning her mind against him. Cheng Xian was completely baffled by the accusation. Yushun then tried to pull rank, calling Cheng Xian nephew, but Cheng Xian just laughed it off, playfully reminding him of their messy family tree before turning to Wenyan with a cheesy grin. "Ah, I'm just too great and forgiving, am I right, my dear old wife?" Yushun exploded in rage, calling Cheng Xian a good-for-nothing and warning him not to dare touch his woman. Cheng Xian howled with laughter at the ridiculous display before his entire shifted. "I'm sorry, but let me introduce myself again," he said, his voice now cold and sharp. "I'm Li Cheng Xian, young lady Zheng Wenyan's legal husband." He shoved the marriage certificate right in Yushun's face. The color drained from Yushun's face, his eyes wide with horror. How could this be? Wenyan delivered the final blow. "You don't own me," she stated, her void of any emotion. "I only belong to myself. Pester me anymore." They turned and walked away, leaving him broken on the pavement. With a roar of betrayal, Yushun lunged for her, but Cheng Xian moved like lightning, grabbing him and effortlessly flipping him onto his back with a loud thud. He stood over the fallen man, his foot pressing down on his chest. "Miss Zheng has told you many times not to touch her. Can you not hear?" Wenyan looked on, impressed, telling him he'd done well. He just shrugged, saying it was nothing, just some taekwondo moves. Yushun made one last desperate plea, trying to threaten her with her uncle's influence and declaring his undying love. Wenyan looked back at him one last time, her expression utterly pitiless. "But I don't love you," she said, turning away for good. Goodbye. While Wenyan was securing her future, the man she jilted was stewing in his own failure. Zhao Yushun watched her walk away, his mind a tempest of fury and confusion. He had put in so much painstaking effort, carefully orchestrating every move to make Zheng Wenyan lower her guard and get closer to her. At the most crucial stage, just as her new energy car project was about to launch, he had teamed up with reporters, deliberately creating vile rumors to corner her, to force her to come to the Bureau of Civil Affairs with him. His fist slammed down in a silent explosion of rage, the sound echoing his shattered plans. The key to his revenge against the wretched Li family was to have Zheng Wenyan and use her influence, and he was so damn close. Where did it all go wrong? A dark thought crossed his mind, his eyes narrowing into slits. Did that little snake Minzhen betray him? Meanwhile, miles away from his suffocating anger, Wenyan was in a complete different world, cruising down the road in a flashy pink sports car. Beside her, her new husband, Li Chengxian, hummed a cheerful tune, the picture of carefree leisure. But Wenyan wasn't enjoying the ride. She was trapped in the chilling memories of her past life. The image of Zhao Yushun embracing her stepsister, Minzhen, was seared into her brain. Was this real? Had she truly been reborn? Or was this all just a terrible nightmare fueled by her fear and anxiety of marrying that monster? She took a deep breath, pushing the panic down. She would stop worrying for now. First, she needed to confirm whether Zhao Yushun and her second uncle really had an affair. That would be the proof she needed to know if she was reborn or simply going insane. Her eyes fell to the red marriage certificate in her purse. To get rid of that trash Zhao Yushun, she had married Li Chengxian. But was it too impulsive? She glanced at the man beside her, humming away without a care in the world, but it was probably fine. Li Chengxian was just a known playboy, coasting on the power of the Li family. He held no real authority himself, content to just eat and have fun. That made him simple, predictable, easy to manipulate. She felt a surge of confidence. If he ever caused any trouble, she was certain she could handle the situation just fine. He must have felt her intense gaze, because he turned to her, a devilish smirk playing on his handsome face. Young lady Zheng Wenyan, if you keep looking at me like that, I'll start thinking you've already fallen for me. But Wenyan was unfazed, her expression perfectly composed. She couldn't say if she liked him yet, but she certainly didn't dislike him. Otherwise, she never would have asked for his help. He let out a soft chuckle, clearly amused by her directness. Usually, a girl in this situation would either turn into a blushing tsundere, stammering that she didn't, or she'd shyly say that's nonsense. But Wenyan was different. He smiled to himself. He had told her before she wasn't his usual naive sweetheart. As the pink car sped away, a new chapter of her life was just beginning. When they arrived at her company, he pulled a smooth stop. You keep using the car for now, he offered casually. When I get the chance, I'll have my assistant contact you about getting it back. She gave a simple thanks, ready to leave. But as she stepped out, he leaned across the seat, his eyes sparkling with mischief. By the way, since we're already married, shouldn't we start living together? My place or yours? Her eyes widened just a fraction, caught off guard by his bold proposition. She paused, then leaned gracefully against the vibrant red car, a cool, confident smirk gracing her lips. Mr. Li Chengxian, your flirting skills aren't that unique. It just seems that the girls you usually date just play along with you. He looked genuinely aback for a second, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Really? Am I that bad? He asked, a hint of boyish curiosity in his voice. Wenyan simply turned and walked into her office building like the queen she was, leaving him to ponder her words. Inside, the entire lobby seemed to bow to her presence. Director Zheng. The whispers started immediately. I heard Director Zheng got her marriage certificate today. It must be because of last week's gossip about the illegitimate child of the Li family. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, revealing not an empty lift, but an explosion of color and sound. Pop! Confetti rained down on her as her two assistants cheered, holding party poppers. Congratulations, Director! You finally got married? One of them, and Xianzhen, stepped forward with a bright red envelope. This is a little gift money from Xianzhen and me, she said with a warm smile. Wenyan's stern melted into a genuine smile as she accepted it. And Xianzhen and Nzizhen, her most loyal assistants. You're in charge of cleaning this up, she teased, her good mood infectious. But once inside the pristine, modern office, the celebratory atmosphere vanished. Shizhen, did you make any progress on the matter I asked you to investigate? Shizhen's expression turned serious. The bank provided information about a large sum of money being deposited into reporter Jiang's account a month ago. However, the culprit deposited it in person, so the bank was unable to trace its source. Wenyan's eyes turned to ice. Then investigate reporter Jiang's whereabouts a month ago and any connections with my second uncle. Shizhen gasped. Director, do you suspect it was arranged by Zheng Junren, your second uncle? Wenyan's voice was dangerously calm. I'm not just doubting, I'm almost certain. All she needed now was the concrete evidence to burn them all to the ground. They dared to plot against me, she thought, clutching a gossip magazine featuring their lies, so I'll make sure to play with them. Help me put this away in the cabinet, she instructed, handing the magazine and her new marriage certificate to her assistant. By the way, I sent a copy of my updated personal property notarization and health examination report to Liang Sheng's week. Shizhen paused, utterly confused. Li Chengxian, isn't he the 12th young master of Huaxing Corporation? She carefully placed the documents inside the secure cabinet. Wenyan began tying her long, dark hair into a ponytail, her focus already on her next move. You need to contact him so I can get my car back. Xie froze, the red marriage certificate still in her hand. Her eyes were wide with a dawning horror. That, she began to stammer. Wenyan just gave her a knowing look. Open it. The other assistant, curious about the commotion, peeked over her shoulder. I also want to see. They both stared down at the document, their jaws dropping in unison. What? Direct actually married Lincoln. Shizhen frantically swiped through her phone. I remember I made a list of competent young men for the director. This guy was on it. He's on the last page with the lowest marks. Wenyan finally turned to face her shocked employees. That's right. It seems there was something wrong with Mr. Zhao Yushun. That why you asked me to investigate him? Her gaze was hard as steel. That's right. All you need to know is that Zhao Yushun wants me dead, and I'll never let him go. As for the evidence, you two will find it. That's all. Her assistants nodded, their expressions grim but resolute. They understood. Are you okay, Director Zheng? Should we arrange some relaxing activities? One asked, before the other chimed in, or go straight to making his life miserable. Wenyan took her seat, a picture of calm authority. He's more anxious than I am. The more he moves, the more clues he'll reveal. I've decided to collect evidence, take action, and confront him openly. As for Li Chengxian, it was just an accident. Everything's under control. You guys can proceed with the tasks I gave. With a final yes, director, the two assistants left the room, leaving their boss to her plans. Across town, in a lavishly decorated mansion, Zhao Yushun was being greeted by a very different woman. Yushun, is that you? A blonde woman cried, running to embrace him. You're finally back. But his return was anything but warm. He grabbed her arm, his voice a low snarl. Minzhen, was it you who betrayed me? She recoiled, her face a mask of hurt innocence. Huh? What are you talking about? Why would I ever betray you? You know that I sacrificed the right for us to be together openly, just to support you in achieving your dreams. Which woman would willingly allow the man she loves to be with someone else? But I love you, and I'm willing to endure everything for your sake. How could I ever bring myself to betray you? Tears began to stream down her face, picture of tragic devotion. Now that you've finally married my stepsister and moved closer to your objective, are you really going to slander me and push me aside after all that I've done for you? His anger faltered at the sight of her tears, and he pulled her into a hug. I'm sorry, Minzhen. I shouldn't have said such things. She nestled against his chest, her voice muffled. You can doubt the rest of the world, but you should never doubt my sincerity towards you. Well then, she pouted as punishment. You should give me some kisses and hugs. He leaned in, pulling his mask down just enough to reveal his swollen, bruised face. But the second she saw it, she shoved him away with a cry of revulsion. You're fat. His expression darkened instantly. What's wrong? Are you disgusted by my face? No, of course not. She stammered, quickly recovering. I was just worried about you. Her act was flawless as she gently touched his cheek. Yushun, what happened? Everything was going well, he seethed. But just as we were about to register for marriage, Zheng Wenyan suddenly had a change of heart. She humiliated me several times, he lamented, and refused to give me an explanation or a chance to process the situation. Yushun, take it easy, Minzhen soothed. I'll send someone to investigate. How can I take it easy? He roared, his face contorted with rage. She married someone else in front of me. Minzhen's eyes flew open. What? She's married? With who? It had to be Li Chengxian of all people. A flicker of genuine shock crossed her face. Li Chengxian? Isn't that your uncle? She quickly composed herself, her mind racing. Yushun, even if she marries someone else, it shouldn't matter too much. Once she knows that this is a misunderstanding, she'll come back to you right away. My stepsister doesn't accept theirs easily, but once she does, she treats them wholeheartedly as if they are family. Once she realizes she misunderstood and hurt you, she'll definitely make amends and put in an even greater effort to help you achieve your goals. A cunning glint appeared in her eyes. Yushun, you can even use her relationship with Li Chengxian to gather information on the movements of the executives at Huaxing. Wicked smile spread across his face, her words sank in. Yes, you're absolutely right. Zheng Wenyan's actions have actually worked in my favor. Overcome with relief and renewed purpose, he pulled her into a deep kiss. She gently pushed him back after a moment. Yushun, you should first focus on winning back my cousin's heart. Once you succeed, we'll have plenty of opportunities to be together. He nodded, caressing her cheek. All right, once I wrap everything up with Zheng Wenyan, we'll celebrate properly. Let me know when the informant has any news. I'll plan a romantic surprise for Zheng Wenyan based on her likings to clear up any misunderstandings. As he walked out the door, she called after him with a sweet smile. Good, Yushun, you'll definitely clear everything up. The moment the door clicked shut, her smile vanished, replaced by a look of pure contempt. She grabbed a tissue from the box and began scrubbing furiously at her face and lips. How disgusting. I can't believe he wants to be intimate with me with a swollen face. She towards her bathroom, tearing off her dress as she went. After being touched by such a disgusting face, I'll need to take a shower immediately. She tossed the tainted garment into the trash bin without a second thought. I don't even want to wear this disgusting dress anymore. Freshly showered and wrapped in a silk robe, she was on the phone, her voice cold and commanding. That useless Zhao Yushun better win her back. He better not let down the investment's father and I have placed in him. Investigate the recent activities of Zheng Wenyan, where she's been, who she's seeing. Get back to me as fast as possible. I know what you've reported before, but now I need to investigate more thoroughly. She hung up, a shadow of insecurity crossing her beautiful features. Surely Zheng Wenyan hasn't had a change of heart and moved on from Zhao Yushun. There's absolutely no way. Back in the CEO's office, Wenyan reviewed a new report on her tablet. Boss, the information has been obtained, her assistant confirmed. I understand. Thank you for your hard work. You can finish up for today. As dusk settled over the city, Wenyan gazed out her window, lost in thought. She knew it. It wasn't just a simple nightmare. This time I will absolutely not let Zhao Yushun and Zheng Junren succeed in their plans. But then her thoughts turned to the carefree playboy she had married. However, this does suggest that Li Chengxian's death a year later was an accident. A pensive look crossed her face as she considered her strange new husband. Should I lend him a helping hand when the time comes? That night, around 30 p.m., Wenyan sat in the back of the car, the city lights blurring past her window. She gave the driver her destination, her parents' house. A bittersweet ache filled her chest. At this point in time, in this second chance at life, her parents were still living and healthy. That monster, Zun, hadn't laid a single wretched finger on them yet. She thought of their love story, a romance so epic it could have been a million-word novel. They had weathered so many obstacles and misunderstandings in their youth, managing to build a life together against all odds. They were the perfect protagonists of a grand romance. The sleek black car came to a smooth stop before the gates of the magnificent family estate. Manager Zheng opened the door for her, promising to wait right there. As she walked towards the entrance, she mused on her parents' story. For all their epic love, the reality was that her father had always felt he'd wronged her mother, marrying her just to fill family expectations, not for pure love. Suddenly, the front door swung open, and a warm, gentle voice called out her name, Wenyan. Standing there, bathed in the warm light of the foyer, was her mother, looking as beautiful as ever. Wenyan's heart seized, and tears immediately welled in her eyes, her voice catching in her throat as she whispered, "Mum." Her handbag drowned with a soft thud, completely forgotten as she forward, throwing her arms around her mother in a desperate, clinging embrace. "Mum, I'm so sorry," she sobbed into her shoulder. "I've missed you so much." Her mother's arms wrapped around her, a comforting and familiar warmth, but her voice was laced with concern. "Dear, I've missed you a lot too, but why are you apologizing? Did someone wrong you?" But Wenyan couldn't explain. She couldn't tell her about the past life where she had been a terrible daughter, where she had failed to protect this precious woman. Her mother gently patted her back, shushing her softly. "Darling, there's nothing wrong with missing your mother. There's no need to apologize. Honestly, your dad has been too strict with you. I'll have a talk with him later." She gave a little laugh, explaining she'd rushed out as soon as she heard Wenyan had arrived, not even having time to change her clothes. Wenyan pulled back, her eyes earnest. "There's no need to change, Mum. You're fine just like this." Her mother's eyes widened slightly in surprise. "Aren't you always complaining that I look too messy like this?" But Wenyan shook her head firmly. "You should wear whatever you want and whatever you're doing." A radiant smile bloomed on her mother's face. "Thank you. It's so rare to see you come home," she exclaimed, her expression brightening as she headed for the kitchen. "Wait for me, I'll go make some noodles myself." Watching her mother's retreating back, Wenyan felt a pang of guilt for her past self. In the past, she used to see her mother as a helpless woman, a beautiful pet by her father who couldn't manage anything on her own. But seeing her now, bustling happily in the kitchen, a calm smile on her face as she picked out fresh vegetables, Wenyan understood. Being immersed in a life full of constant pampering and care, that is what makes her happiest. A serene, gentle smile graced Wenyan's lips. "And now, her happiness and good health is all I ask for," she thought. A deep, stern voice suddenly cut through the air. "Wenyan, coming over so late without any prior notice, and even asking your mother to cook for you." She turned to see her tall, intimidatingly handsome father standing behind her, his arms crossed, a disapproving look on his face. But Wenyan didn't flinch. "Father, this is my home as well, right? Plus, what's wrong with a mother cooking for her daughter?" Her father's expression turned possessive, his eyes narrowing. "The food your mother makes can only be for me. I'll have the head chef make another portion for you." He looked genuinely annoyed, a vein pulsing at his temple. Wenyan let out a quiet sigh. Her daddy had a nearly obsessive possessiveness towards her mom. Soon enough, 2 steaming bowls of noodles were brought to the table. But her father, with zero shame, immediately started eating the bowl that was clearly meant for her. Her mother looked exasperated. I made this specifically for my daughter. How did it end up in your mouth? Didn't you have dinner already? Wenyan simply started eating her own bowl, a small, amused smile playing on her lips. To be honest, their strange romantic relationship was something only they could adapt to. Forget it, she thought, as long as you're enjoying it, that's fine. In a sweet gesture of reconciliation, her mother leaned over and planted a soft kiss on her father's cheek. After the meal, her father dabbed his mouth with a napkin, his expression stern once more. It's getting late, your mother should head to bed. Her mother pouted, saying she hadn't talked with their daughter for a long time. Wenyan saw an opening and chirped, "How about I stay here tonight and sleep with you, mother?" Her father's response were brutal. "Scram to your own bedroom." "Dear," her mother scolded, hands on her hips. "You're too strict on Wenyan." As soon as she came back, the powerful man immediately deflated, looking almost guilty as he mumbled a soft sorry. He then instructed the housekeeper to escort his wife to her room to rest. Once she was gone, his gaze fell on Wenyan, now sharp and serious. "You, come to my office." The air in the grand study was thick with tension. Her father didn't waste any time. What happened exactly? Could it be that you couldn't handle the news? Wenyan met his gaze head-on. "Father, do you trust me?" He answered without hesitation. "You're the one I raised with my own hands, my only child. Why wouldn't I trust you?" She took a deep breath. "I don't have enough evidence right now, but Uncle and Zhao Yushun want to kill me." His eyes widened, a storm of fury gathering in them. "What?" A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by his sharp intake of breath. He immediately reached for his phone, his knuckles white. "Don't worry about it anymore, I'll take care of everything." But she stopped him, placing her hand over his. "Oh, father, I want to handle myself." She gently pushed him into his chair, her voice calm and steady. "Dad, I know you think Zhao Yushun deserves more than death. But Uncle is your own brother. Since I'm fine and there's no evidence, you won't be able to make things too difficult for him no matter what. At most, you'll just give him a few verbal hints and a small warning, right?" Her father watched her, his expression unreadable as he commanded her to continue. A cold fire lit up in Wenyan's eyes. "Is too light a penalty for Zhao Yushun? I want to ruin his reputation and make his life a living hell. My uncle, I can only refrain from killing him for Grandpa's sake. He must pay the price for what he's done." A slow, proud smile spread across her father's face. "Very good, as expected of my daughter." The pride radiating from him was palpable. He stood and gave her a slight bow, a gesture of ultimate respect and support. "Wenyan, go ahead and do it. My daughter absolutely cannot be taken advantage of." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a dead whisper as he took her hand. "If the worst to worst, you don't need to take your grandfather into account. Do you understand what I mean?" Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second, shocked by the chilling permission he had just granted her. A wave of warmth flooded her heart. "Yes, I understand. Thank you, father." She realized then that, even though their methods were completely different, her dad loved her just as much as her mom did, and this time she would never, ever let them die an unjust death again. Her resolve absolute. Late that night, back at her own villa, a car pulled up to the gates. Was Yan returning home. As she and manager Zheng approached the entrance, a housekeeper met them, gesturing to a massive bouquet of flowers by the door. "Manager Zheng, there is a bouquet of flowers for you here, and a card as well." Manager Zheng dutifully held the enormous arrangement, while Wenyan plucked the small envelope from within the blooms. She opened it. It was a cloyingly sweet apology from Yushun, practically begging her to contact him. Disregarding his dignity and lowering himself to this level, how considerate. A smirk ghosted her lips as she snapped the card shut. "It's really touching." She turned to her manager, her voice crisp. "Pick me up tomorrow at 10 a.m. For the flowers, you can keep them." She gave him a dazzling smile, but her eyes were cold as ice. Thank you, manager." The oblivious man gushed, beaming with joy. The moment she stepped inside, the sincere card was tossed directly into the trash can. In her previous life, she would have been completely won over by such a pathetic act and forgiven him instantly. She collapsed onto her sofa, finally able to relax. Honestly, being used isn't that big of a deal. Most human relationships are built on exploitation anyway. Everything in society, from housing to transportation to mental facilities, is all supported by the mutual exploitation and connections between people. But that doesn't give him the right to ruin my family's life. A shadow crossed her face as the horrific memories resurfaced. He even killed the child I meant to have with him in my previous life. This monster. The next day at precisely 10 a.m., when Yan was ready, dressed in a chic, powerful colored suit. "I'm going for brunch," she informed her manager. "Take me to Lisdon." "Of course, Manager Zheng," he replied with a bow, opening the car door for her. She settled into the back seat, the picture of cool confidence. The driver discreetly pressed a button, and the vehicle sped away. Seated at a pristine table in the bright, airy restaurant, Wenyan was enjoying her meal when a voice called her name. She looked up to Zhao Yushun approaching, another ridiculously large bouquet in his arms. "What a coincidence," he said, his smile as fake as his flowers. "I was just about to send flowers to you." She took a delicate bite of her food, her expression unbothered. "Oh really, I never knew this restaurant sold flowers too." He made to sit down, but her sharp voice stopped him in his tracks. "Did I allow you to sit with me?" He froze, flustered for a moment, before recovering with a nervous smile. "Forget what I said, you may sit." Wenyan, I know you're still, he began, but she was already rising from her seat. I've finished eating, I will leave now. Enjoy your meal. She turned to leave, her back ramrod straight. Wenyan, he cried out, his voice laced with desperation. Could you not be like that, and just let me speak? She paused, and just as she was about to turn, a smooth, confident voice intervened. Sir, if you have anything you wish to speak with me and my wife about, you can reach out to us to schedule a time. Li Chengxian was suddenly by her side, his arm slipping possessively around her waist. How could you eat well with such a rude fellow disturbing you? Shall I bring you elsewhere to dine? The two of them were a perfect picture, acting completely in sync. It's all right, she replied, playing along seamlessly. I wasn't very hungry anyway. You could just send me back to my office. Zhao Yushun could only stare, his face contorted in a mask of pure fury. Of course, Li Chengxian continued, his tone dripping with condescension. Since we arrived early, we shall take our leave first too. And seeing that you arrived later, you should stay here. He then waved a hand at a nearby waitress. Server, please clear this table to prevent someone from trying to eat the leftover food of my wife. When Zhao Yushun whispered, his voice trembling with rage. Let's go, Li Chengxian said, leading her away. Wenyan, Yushun finally roared, losing all composure. You two barely know each other. And yesterday you were randomly pulled aside by Wenyan to get married. You don't have any feelings for each other. Li Chengxian leaned close, whispering to her. I appreciate your chivalry, but since we're pretending now, we should be careful not to reveal anything. He gave her a reassuring look. I got this, don't worry. Wenyan could only sigh internally. You are being rather forward, aren't you, sir? A nasty, triumphant grin spread across Yushun's face. Ha! I exposed, didn't I? I don't mind if you're mad at me, but you shouldn't yourself to be with someone you don't like. Li Chengxian's smile was sharp as a razor's edge. You're bringing this on yourself. I shall let you know the truth. He turned to Wenyan and to her utter shock, produced a stunning diamond ring from his pocket. Here I was meant to surprise you with this yesterday, but because of the bad weather in Paris, the flight was delayed, so I couldn't get it yesterday. I went to the airport early this morning to retrieve it. He took her hand, his eyes sparkling. Let's enjoy our life as newlyweds, my dear. He slid the glittering ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. And before she or Zhao Yushun could even process what was happening, he leaned down and pressed his lips to hers in a breathtaking kiss, a final, irrefutable act in their charade. The utter devastation on Zhao Yushun's face was a masterpiece. The world seemed to melt away as his lips pressed against hers. Sudden, bold move that left her breathless. Was this his answer? His response to her saying she didn't want to expose her flaws? A strange heat bloomed in her chest. She had to admit, a part of her didn't hate this at all. He pulled back slowly, his hands gently framing her face, his handsome features softened by the warm light of the restaurant. Now do you see, he murmured, a confident smirk playing on his lips. His taunt was aimed at the man standing a few feet away, whose face was contorted in a mask of pure rage. Li Chengxian didn't even spare him a full glance, casually suggesting he shouldn't have to use his beloved as a model again, and that perhaps Zhao Yushun should get his vision checked. The insult hit its mark. Veins bulged Zhao Yushun's hand as he clenched his fist, trembling with fury. Wenyan, he finally exploded, his voice cracking rage. You betrayed me. This is cheating. Li Chengxian remained cool as ice, asking with an infuriating calmness if he had any evidence. Evidence? Zhao Yushun spluttered, his face turning a shade of purple. Do I need any evidence? He jabbed an accusing finger at Wenyan, his voice filled with righteous indignation. You were supposed to marry Emmy, yet you suddenly changed your mind. He was convinced they must have been colluding back for some time. But Wenyan was no wilting flower. She met his accusations with an icy glare of her own. Zhao Yushun, her voice dangerously low, she wouldn't such rash things out of nowhere. Had he perhaps forgotten who it was that cheated first? She stepped forward, poking him squarely, the unspoken accusation hanging heavy between them. He was stunned into silence, stammering with no comeback. Seeing his rival utterly defeated, Li Chengxian sauntered over with the rejected bouquet, suggesting with a condescending smile that he should just throw it out. He was as afraid even his driver wouldn't like it. He then smoothly wrapped an arm around Wenyan's shoulders, declaring that they were good people who liked to help others, before leading her away from the scene. Left alone in his humiliation, a horrifying realization dawned on Zhao Yushun. Could it be that she knew about him and Minzhen? His mind reeled. That woman, Minzhen, must have sold him out, pretending to be on his side while secretly keeping him captive for her own selfish games. Fecking bitch, he roared, throwing the bouquet to the ground and crushing the delicate petals under his heel. Meanwhile, Wenyan and Li Chengxian sped away in a flashy pink sports car. Breaking the comfortable silence, she asked if he wasn't going to question why she suddenly showed up with the ring. He glanced at her, a knowing smile on his face. You really believe it was a coincidence? He asked softly. She tried to play it cool, explaining that since the restaurant was a Li family subsidiary, it was a perfectly normal place for him to be. Besides, for a notorious player like him, carrying a ring around wouldn't be shocking. His expression softened, his gaze turning sincere. But the ring was something I specifically went to pick out for you yesterday, he confessed. He had planned to give it to her after their meal. They drove on, the city lights reflecting in her thoughtful eyes. She wasn't that materialistic, she told him. As long as the intent was there, that's what mattered. Besides, she added with a teasing glint, she was pretty sure she heard her mumbling. A faint blush crept up his neck as he apologized for making her miss a meal, offering to take her to lunch. She politely waved him off, reminding him that his new car was about to be released, and he must be busy. He looked genuinely surprised that she knew about his work. Of course, he purred, a playful light in his eyes. My beloved wife's company. I must always know what's going on. She immediately regretted bringing it up, a wave of embarrassment washing over her. He offered to take her back to the office first. Suddenly, a black car swerved aggressively in front of them, the driver laying on the horn. The man yelled insults, accusing them of not driving properly and having no self-awareness. Li Chengxian's easygoing demeanor. Instantly. What did you just say? He asked, his voice dropping to a dangerously low growl. Wenyan quickly placed a hand on his arm, stopping him. It's fine, she insisted. It's her own problem to solve. He relented, pulling the car over to the side of the road, reminding her that she still owed him a meal for the trouble. Just as he was about to get out, she stopped him. Hold up. He thought she'd changed her mind about lunch, but she shook her head. How hungry do you think I look? She asked, her tone serious. She wanted to talk about what happened before. He looked utterly confused. Before what? His performance at the restaurant, she clarified. She thanked him for his flawless acting, then leaned in with a mischievous sparkle in her eyes. That kiss, did you enjoy it too? A telltale blush crept up his neck, and seeing him so flustered, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. She teased him relentlessly, asking the great playboy prince of the Li family was acting like an innocent little girl. He stammered, trying to defend his reputation, insisting he just goes out and drinks with people, nothing more. She finally took pity on him, cutting him off with a smile. Okay, I know, she said, getting out of the car to answer a call, still promising she owed him that meal. He was left alone in the car, looking dazed and touching his lips, the conversation left unfinished. A deep blush still colored his cheeks as he sank back into the driver's seat. Later that afternoon, back in her office, her driver returned her car key on a small tray, informing her the car had been cleaned and refueled. She thanked him, her expression unreadable as she sat behind her large desk. Just as he was about to leave, stopped him cold. Hold on, there is something I'd like to speak with you about. Hers was sharp, pinning him in place. You've been my designated driver for 2-3 years now, haven't you? She began, her voice even. He confirmed and she asked if he was happy with his job. He quickly assured her he was. That the salary was good, and he was very grateful. I see, she said, her calm demeanor unsettling. I've also asked someone to investigate the details of your job. Then she dropped the hammer. So then why would you betray me? The man's face turned ashen as he frantically denied it, sweat beading on his brow. You think that just because you receive cash it can't be looked to? She mused, her eyes narrowing dangerously. At her command, her assistant entered, holding a folder. It's all in here, she announced, handing the damning evidence directly to the driver. His hands trembled as he opened it, his eyes widening in horror at the contents. How is it, she asked coolly, that just by being my driver you can afford a new house, send your kids abroad, and buy your wife designer brands? He stammered, words failing him. She even offered to help him with an alibi, suggesting he could claim to have won the lottery or received an inheritance. The papers slipped from his grasp, scattering across the floor as he finally broke down. I'm sorry, Miss Zheng, I messed up. He confessed that someone had paid him to arrange a chance encounter with her, swearing he didn't leak any company secrets. Her eyes flashed with a terrifying light. Is that right? She said softly. Before it was a chance encounter. In the future, will there be an accident? The implication was clear, and he paled frantically, assuring her he would never put her in danger. He pleaded, making excuses about needing money for his kids' tuition and a necklace for his wife. It was just a little bit, he whimpered, looking utterly pathetic. She poked his shoulder lightly. You're missing just a little bit of professional ethics, too. Your house, your kids' tuition, your wife's this, she stated coldly. It's all from selling me out. At his wit's end, he fell to his knees, begging her not to harm his child. She looked down at the groveling man. What kind of person do you take me for? I wouldn't harm an innocent person. In fact, she had a proposition. He could keep the house, the necklace, and she would even ensure his child's academic success. He could even keep receiving the money from over there. He stared at her, utterly confused. From now on, she explained, her voice like steel. You can only tell them what I say you can tell them. Do I make myself clear? He nodded frantically, understanding dawning in his terrified eyes. You may leave. She dismissed him. He scrambled out of the office, leaving her assistant to pick up the scattered papers. Her assistant couldn't hide her surprise. You're just gonna let him off like that? Wenyan's lips curved into a chilling smile. It's not the time for that yet. He's still useful. When the time comes, he will regret it. With her trap set, she returned to her work, a queen maneuvering her pawns. Elsewhere, Li Chengxian was having a meal with the famous celebrity Jin Renheng, who was complaining about the trouble he'd been in. He'd been reprimanded by his company, and terrible rumors had started all because of Li Chengxian. What rumors? Li Chengxian asked, feigning innocence. Rumors about him secretly getting married, buying a house, all because he was spotted at the civil affairs office. He was trending for days. Li Chengxian found this hilarious, suggesting it was free publicity his agent should be grateful for. His agent was furious and spent a fortune scrubbing his name from the internet. Jin Renheng retorted, his frustration growing. Li Chengxian sighed dramatically, lamenting the agent's lack of an entrepreneurial mindset. That was the last straw. Negative news damages my character, you know. Jin Renheng snapped, but the words were barely out of his mouth before a suffocating pressure filled the room. He froze, realizing his grave error, and immediately shot up to give a deep, 90-degree bow. Sir, very sorry. Please forgive me, he pleaded. Li Chengxian smiled a cold, empty gesture. I forgive you, he said simply. Jin Renheng was still trembling. Then Li Chengxian's voice dropped, laced with ice. It's not worth wasting anger on you, Jin Renheng. If something is dirty or makes me angry, I just get rid of it and find a new one that's more pleasing to the eye. The unspoken threat hung in the air, and Jin Renheng collapsed to his knees. It's my fault, he sobbed. I couldn't find my place after you supported me so well. Li Chengxian stood, looking down at the groveling man. Of course, it's your fault, he agreed coolly. Please give me another chance, Jin Renheng begged, his forehead pressed to the floor. Chengxian paused. Let's see how you do, he said before turning and walking away without a backward glance. As he was leaving, a blonde woman spotted him, her eyes widening in recognition. Li Chengxian, Zheng Wenyan's fiancé. A bitter jealousy coursed through her. How does that woman get everything? Even if he was a known piece of trash, his looks and background were top tier. Seizing her chance, she glided towards him. What a coincidence, brother-in-law, she purred, her smile dripping with manufactured sweetness. He stopped and turned, his expression a blank slate of polite confusion. And you are? He asked, not a hint of recognition in his handsome eyes. A woman with a practiced, sweet smile approaches the handsome Chengxian, her voice like honey. Don't you remember me, she asks, introducing herself as Zheng Wenyan's cousin. They met a few times at social events, but she waves it off with feigned humility. It's understandable if he doesn't recall, they never really got the chance to talk back then. But behind those doe eyes, a venomous plot was already taking shape. Honestly, she used to think of him as nothing more than a party boy, not worth her attention. But now she realized his status was far above that of Yushun, who was just a wretched illegitimate son. If she could manipulate Chengxian, it would be a devastating blow to Wenyan. Her strategy was simple, a classic move from her playbook. First, she would appear vulnerable to gain his sympathy. She gazes up at him, her eyes wide with feigned hope. So, you'll remember me this time, right? Then she would humbly show kindness to spark his desire to protect her. It was a strategy she'd used on men before, and it never failed, especially with that fool Yushun. But Chengxian merely hums, his expression unreadable. With a polite but distant smile, he says he'll try to remember her and then bids her a swift goodbye. He turns his back without a second thought, his indifference a slap in the face that leaves Minzhen standing there in utter disbelief. Panic sets in. Wait, Chengxian, she cries, desperately grabbing his arm to stop him. He flinches at her touch, turning to face her with an unnervingly calm expression. Did she need something? She quickly plasters on a saccharine smile, reminding him that they're family now. Would he join her for a meal? But Chengxian shatters her hopes with brutal honesty. Didn't you see I was leaving? He asks, during vaguely. I just had lunch. Undeterred, she plays her trump card, her voice turning sly. Just one more drink to keep me company. Besides, can share some fun childhood stories about Wenyan. Her mind races, whether he felt compelled to stay out of politeness or was genuinely curious about Wenyan. As long as he stayed, she would have more chances. She leans in, dropping poison casually. By the way, everyone thought Wenyan and Yushun were a couple. While just waiting for them to get married. She feigns a gasp of surprise, her acting flawless. I never expected that she kept you hidden so well and then suddenly married you. She covers her mouth with a delicate hand. Oh dear, did I say something wrong? But don't worry, she purrs, predatory glint in her eyes. Now that Wenyan is married to you, she won't be involved with Yushun anymore. I'll keep an eye on her. This was it, the perfect chance to drive a wedge between them. Yet again, Chengxian remains completely unmoved. He offers a polite, almost robotic smile. Thank you for your concern and invitation, but I have other matters to attend to. Goodbye. Minzhen is left frozen, her jaw hanging open. What, he's still completely indifferent? As he walks away, she makes one last, desperate move. Chengxian, she yells, launching into a dramatic, fake trip, swooshing right for him. But instead of catching the damsel in distress, he simply takes a half step to the side, letting her fall with an ungraceful thud onto the hard floor. Sprawled on the ground in humiliation, her face contorts with pure rage. You just watched a beautiful woman fall and didn't lift a finger to help? But her expression shifts in an instant to one of pitiful vulnerability. Chengxian, could you please help me up? This was her backup plan, a way to force physical contact to bring them closer. In her fantasy, he would gently lift her into his arms, their faces inches apart, and he'd whisper her name, utterly captivated by the sweet and gentle girl before him. Reality, however, was a cold, hard slap. Chengxian looks down at her pathetic form on the floor and, without a shred of emotion, calls out in a clear voice, "Waitress." Minzen's mind blanks. Huh? A server rushes over, helping the mortified Minzen to her feet as she stammers that she's fine. The waitress awkwardly guides her away, the ghost of Chengxian's retreating back, the final nail in the coffin of her pride. She can't believe it. Isn't he supposed to be a playboy? Why is he acting so cold towards me? Her eyes narrow with hatred. Could it be because of Wenyan? Her fists clench at her sides. Wenyan! Why is everything always about her? Why does she deserve all this? But her despair quickly morphs into a cruel determination. But it's fine. There's plenty of time. If winning him over was too easy, it wouldn't be much of a challenge. A wicked smile plays on her lips. In fact, the more loyal he is to Wenyan now, the more trust he gains from her, the more devastating it will be when he eventually betrays her. It could even crush her completely. Later, Chengxian slides into a waiting car, the city lights blurring past. "Thank you for coming to pick me up," he says his assistant. He flashes a disarming smile. "I really dislike taking taxis. They don't feel safe. I'm not making trouble on purpose, you know." The assistant's deadpan reply cuts through the charm. "It's my duty, sir. Besides, you've made bigger trouble already." Like suddenly marrying Wenyan without telling anyone. Or having the Silver Bay's plaza manager open a jewelry store at midnight just for you to grab a ring. Chengxian just leans back, unconcerned. His parents are busy setting up a factory in Germany. They won't notice me. I'll just assume they're unaware. The assistant tries to protest, but Chengxian cuts him off. I know, you've mentioned it 1,000 times. Honestly, you sound more like my mother." He changes the subject, his tone all business. "By the way, ask the manager of the BDS boy band to prioritize the other members for now. Renheng needs a cool-off period to get his head straight." The assistant can only reply with a resigned understood. That night, Minzen arrives at a luxurious mansion, calling for the housekeeper to help with her things. But the house is silent and empty. A dark voice cuts through the stillness from behind her. "I just let the live-in nanny go." Minzen spins around to see Yushun, his handsome face a mask of cold fury. Her blood runs cold. What are you doing here?" Her mind screams in panic. "Don't tell me he found out I ran into Chengxian today." But the murderous aura coming from him confirms her worst. He knows. He knows she's been scheming behind the scenes to destroy his relationship with Wenyan. He forces a sickly sweet smile. "Minzen, you don't look too good. Is everything all right?" She tries to play it cool, forcing a laugh. "I'm fine, just a bit tired from walking around all day." Her words are cut short by a loud slap as he smacks the shopping bags from her hand, their contents scattering across the floor. Before she can scream, he grabs her chin, his grip like a vice, forcing her face to his. His eyes are blazing with a terrifying light. "Minzen," he snarls, "do you truly love me?" Her heart hammers against her ribs. What is going on? "Did you tell Wenyan about our relationship?" He presses, his voice a low growl. It was a trap. If she admitted it, he would demand she choose him. If she denied it, he would know she was a liar. She makes her choice. Her eyes well up with crocodile tears. "Yushun, do you really not see how much I love you?" He watches her, his gaze sharp and calculating. She places her hand over his, her voice breaking with manufactured emotion. "Why would I tell Wenyan about our relationship and jeopardize our plans? I would never betray you." His eyes widen for a fraction of a second. The word echoes in his mind, followed by a silent, furious scream. "You shy." So she wasn't admitting to loving him, but to their plan. He was done with her. "You're no longer worthy of my love." But his expression shifts, becoming deceptively soft. He pulls her into an embrace. "Minzen, I know you love me. I don't want you to suffer any longer. Why don't we just be together openly?" She's completely bewildered. "Wait. What are you talking about?" "I'm saying," he purrs, his smile turning predatory, "I want to proclaim my love for you to the world and appear hand in hand in front of Wenyan." And with that, he scoops her up and throws her over his shoulder as if she weighs nothing. "Tonight," he glares with a dark chuckle, "will be our first night of complete honesty." She screams and struggles, telling him to listen, that this isn't the right moment, but he throws her onto the bed with a heavy whack. Her inner thoughts are a stark contrast to her plays. "Illegitimate, it sounds like you doesn't deserve me." He looms over her. "Minzen, I'm gonna give you entirely now. We'll have a child soon, binding our fates together forever." She scrambles backward, horrified. "Wait, Yushun, are you really willing to give up on Wenyan?" His face darkens. "That woman repeatedly disrespected my kind gestures, so why should I care about her?" An idea sparks in Minzen's cunning mind. "I've got an idea," she softly. "Why don't you give it one last try?" "You're seriously suggesting I try to mend things with Wenyan?" he asks, intrigued. Of course she replies smoothly. "Otherwise, all your efforts over the years will be in vain." She beckons him closer. "Listen," and whisper her wicked plan into his ear. He pulls back, a slow, appreciative smile spreading across his lips. "Good idea." He cups her face, his gaze intense. "Minzen, you really love me, don't you?" His mind was already one step ahead. "Perfect. That way I can have both Wenyan and you." "Of course, Yushun," she breathes, playing her part perfectly. Conserve your energy and prepare yourself. Her internal voice sneers. Focus on Wenyan instead of me, you fool. The next day, Yushun storms into Wenyan's office like a hurricane. He blows past security, shouting Wenyan's name. Wenyan, did you block me? I couldn't reach you? I absolutely need to see you. Wenyan looks up from her desk, her expression glacial. All right, Yushun, what do you want? I need to talk to you in private, he insists. Her response is swift and sharp. You can say it here or leave. He changes his tune, his posture slumping in mock defeat. All right, I know you made yourself clear last time. Then, in a move stuns everyone in the room, he drops to one knee. My only wish now is to have a proper meal with you and say a formal goodbye. Wenyan is unimpressed. Do I look like a magic lamp to you? But he begs, his voice pleading for them to end things with dignity. With an exhausted sigh, she finally gives in. Fine, communicate the details with Xianzhen, and I'll be there. He rises, a triumphant gleam in his eyes. Thank you. As security leads him out, Wenyan issues a final command. Tell security to remove Yushun's name from the VIP guest list. He's already at the door, but he glances back over his shoulder. See you then, Wenyan, he says with a smirk. His thoughts are a dark promise. I'll make you regret it. Petch! Wenyan's assistant looks worried. Are you really going to meet him? Isn't he trying to harm you? But Wenyan is the picture of calm. Yes, but now that he wants to do openly, I can prepare and counter his moves. 2 days later, Wenyan arrives at a high-end restaurant, looking every bit the powerful CEO. Yushun greets her, and a waiter pulls out her chair. She sits down gracefully. Xianzhen switch the utensils, she commands suddenly. Her assistant complies immediately, swapping the restaurant's cutlery for a set from her bag. Wenyan smiles blandly at Yushun. Sorry, I've suddenly become a bit fixated on cleanliness. He forces a laugh, playing along. He starts to recommend the steak, but she cuts him off without even looking at him. I want local cuisine. He blinks, surprised. Local cuisine? Yes, she says, her eyes still closed, her voice dripping with disdain. I'll have whatever you're having. The air in the private dining room was thick with unspoken tension, a stark contrast to the elegant decor. The handsome Yushun feigned concern, his brow furrowed as he mentioned the beef. But Wenyan was a fortress of calm, her voice, even as she told him to simply stir-fry it or make a soup, either way was fine. A brilliant, saccharine smile spread across his face, the kind designed to charm and disarm. Anything to make her happy, he purred. Her secretary stood by, a silent witness, until Wenyan turned her gaze to Yushun, her voice with a false nostalgia. Could they have a meal alone, just like it used to be? Seizing the opportunity, he immediately dismissed his assistant, telling her to wait outside. This wouldn't long at all. Alone at last, he began his performance, doting on her by pointing out the restaurant's specialties, a local chef's finest creations. Wenyan simply stared, her expression unreadable, offering a simple aha as he placed food on her plate. He moved with practiced grace, pouring her a glass of Penfold's champagne, his voice a low murmur as he reminded her it was the flavor she used to like. They both raised their glasses in a silent, hollow toast. Okay, she said, her voice betraying nothing as she took a sip. With the stage set, he leaned forward, his eyes pleading. Could they just have a calm conversation? He promised this would be the last time, that he would let her go and never trouble her again. But his heart ached for an answer. Could she at least tell him why she'd so suddenly decided to end everything? The performance was masterful, his voice cracked with emotion. Just a few days ago, he thought he was her choice for a lifetime partner, but now he felt like he'd been cast aside without warning, and the pain was unbearable. He downed his wine in one dramatic gulp, and slammed the glass onto the table with a sharp crack. Lately, he confessed, his voice dropping to a tormented whisper, he felt like he was dying. Please, just have some compassion for him. Wenyan watched his theatrics with an icy detachment, taking a slow sip of her wine. Carry on, she said, her voice dripping with amusement. Yushun froze, his carefully constructed facade cracking. What? She told him to continue his performance, adding that if he ever wanted to be an actor, she could even get him a recommendation for an agency. He steadily dumbfounded, demanding to know why she didn't believe him. A cold, beautiful smile touched her lips. He wanted her to believe him? Fine. She'd believe him. Just let her know his death date, and she'd be sure to have her assistant send 2 premium funeral wreaths. That was it. The mask shattered completely. Enough, he roared, his voice echoing in the silent room. His fist crashed down onto the table, the sound like a thunderclap. Wenyan rose from her seat, her expression one of utter disdain. Not playing anymore? She'd seen enough anyway. She knew exactly what he'd done and what his wretched plans were, and as she turned her back him, her voice was steel. She would never give him another chance to her. In a desperate lunge, he grabbed her, his voice pleading. Did someone something bad about him? He clutched her arm, his face a mask of false love, declaring how deeply he loved her. But she ripped her arm from his grasp with a violent shove. Love me? She scoffed, the words sharp as glass. That wasn't quite accurate, was it? She jabbed a finger into his chest, her eyes boring into his. What he really loved was the power she held, the resources she could provide. He loved that she could help with his pathetic revenge and that she was a woman he thought he could easily manipulate. His eyes widened in shock. No way. How did she know? She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. Take a wild guess, scum. But just as her victory settled, a wave of dizziness washed over her. Ah! She wobbled, staggering on her feet, and he was there in an instant, catching her in his arms. A wicked, predatory grin spread across his face. He didn't want to guess, he murmured, his breath hot against her ear. He wanted her to tell him everything later, in bed. Horror flooded her senses. No way. What had he done? He held her tight, inhaling the scent of her hair. He knew her too well, he whispered. He knew all about her elegant dining manners. All he had to do was add something to half of a dish and place that drugged portion closer to her. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Zen. He clamped a hand over her mouth, his voice low and triumphant. Save your breath. He began to drag her away, explaining how he'd sent his secretary to the car on a fool's errand. How could this happen? He'd even hired a hacker to break through the multiple layers of protection on her phone. It had cost him quite a bit, but as he reached the ornate doors, they swung open, revealing a figure that made his blood run cold. There stood the impossibly handsome Chengxian, his eyes wide with fury. What are you doing here? Yushun snarled. Chengxian's gaze was fixed on Wenyan, his voice filled with genuine worry. Are you all right? He swept her out of Yushun's grasp and into a protective embrace, stroking her hair. He was so worried about her overexerting herself. He shot a look that could freeze fire. Thanks for looking after her, his tone deadly polite. I'll take it from here. Yushun lunged forward, yelling for him to hold on. But Chengxian moved like lightning, his leg snapping out in a vicious kick that sent Yushun flying through the air. The wretched man crashed into the furniture with a sickening clatter of breaking plates and splintering wood. Chengxian stood over him, his expression utterly glacial. I tried to let you leave with dignity, but it seems you won't learn without a proper lesson. Just 2 hours ago, the scene had been entirely different. Chengxian was surrounded by friends at a high-end lounge, all of them fawning over him, inviting him to shooting ranges and night golf. He was completely uninterested until a thought struck him. Does anyone here know how to flirt? He asked, his question stunning the room into silence. His friends stared, mouths agape. Are you joking, Chengxian? They asked, telling him a man like him didn't need to flirt. Women would simply line up for his attention, a fact the ladies present were quick to confirm. But his mind was elsewhere, replaying Wenyan's sharp words about him. She wasn't wrong, he realized. He really was just pleasing people for his own ends. Who is she? His friends clamored, their curiosity piqued. He waved them off impatiently. Stop asking, it's not your business. These guys were useless. Maybe he should top idol drama scriptwriter for pointers. A smart idea. Just then, a silky voice cut through the chatter. Brother-in-law. What a coincidence. It was Minzhen, Wenyan's scheming cousin. The entire group erupted in shock. Brother-in-law? Chengxian is married? A secret marriage? Minzhen reveled in the chaos, whispering just loud enough for everyone to hear about a supposed alliance between the Lai and Zheng families. She then approached Chengxian, her face a mask of fake sympathy. Wenyan is so unfair to you, keeping your marriage a secret. His eyes narrowed. He didn't wish to make it public for now, he warned her. And she knew what to do. Her friends quickly promised to keep their mouths shut, swearing hadn't even seen her that day. As they left, Minzhen circled back, a viper ready to strike. It's so sweet of you to respect Wenyan's wishes, she cooed, sliding next to him. But Wenyan is publicly having dinner with another man, leaving you all alone in the dark. She held up her phone, displaying a photo of Wenyan and Yushun. Look, she's still acting all chummy with Yushun. Truly unacceptable. I really feel for you, Chengxian. Minzhen waited for his reaction, but he was silent. What do you mean? She stammered. I'm sorry, he said, his voice deceptively smooth. I've only just recalled who you are. With a flick of his wrist, he accidentally spilled dark red drink all over her pristine, new couture dress. Oops, sorry, he said, not sounding sorry at all. Would she like him to recommend a dry cleaner that specializes in luxury items? You did that on purpose. She shrieked. He raised an eyebrow. Are you accusing me without proof? I might just have to get a lawyer to sue for slander. Then came the checkmate. But if you tell me Wenyan's whereabouts, he offered, I'll let this slide. Her anger vanished instantly, replaced by a greedy smile. Of course I'll tell you. And with that, he was gone, tires screeching as his car peeled out onto the street. He drove with a singular, desperate focus. Arriving at the restaurant, he hesitated. Would she think he didn't trust her? No, he was just worried. Then he heard it, her faint cry of his name. Zhen. He burst through the doors to find his worst fears realized. Yushun holding a drugged and helpless Wenyan. Her eyes, wide with fear, silently pleaded for help. A murderous rage consumed him. Wenyan, I knew that jerk Yushun would bully her. He snatched her hand, pulling her into the safety of his arms. Honey, what's wrong? Don't worry, I'll get you to safety first, and then deal with that jerk. He kicked Yushun away with brutal force, sending the man sprawling. Now, Chengxian held Wenyan close, while her pathetic ex lay in a heap on the floor. Just then, the secretary ran in, crying out for Miss Zheng. Chengxian's voice was calm and commanding. Use my name to get a VIP room at the hotel. I'll be there shortly. Yushun staggered to his feet, enraged. How did you know we were here? You've messed up my plans too many times. Do you really think I'll let you off easily? Chengxian smirked. Minzhen informed me. Yushun's face contorted in disbelief. What? He never finished the sentence. A powerful right hook Chengxian sent him crashing to the ground. He lay there out cold. Chengxian casually wiped his fist. He knelt down beside the unconscious form. "Let me off," he murmured. "I'm not the one in trouble." "You are." He pulled out his phone, his voice cool as ever as he made a call. "Hello? Send 2 people over to assist me." A sliver of light cuts through the darkness as Wenyan's consciousness slowly returns. A voice, familiar and laced with a desperate concern, calls her name. Her eyes flutter open to the sight of the handsome and infuriating Li Chengxian leaning over her, his brow furrowed with worry. He tells her not to worry, that she's safe now, and gently asks how she feels. Her mind is a fog, and the first word she manages to whisper is his name, Chengxian. Her eyes wide and still dazed, taking her surroundings. He confirms it's him, his voice soft as he asks again how she's feeling, offering to take her to the hospital if she's unwell. But Wenyan, ever the sharp businesswoman, immediately sits up, her hand flying to her throbbing head. No, she can't go to the hospital. Those dishonest, vulture-like reporters would distort the facts, and the scandal would completely derail the promotional activities for her crucial electric vehicle launch. Chengxian watches her, his concern palpable as he reaches out and gently brushes a stray strand of hair from her face. She asks if he knows any reliable private doctors, explaining that her own is abroad for a seminar and unavailable. Without a moment's hesitation, he pulls out his phone, ready to solve her problem. He'll contact his private doctor, he says, assuring her that he's trustworthy, but she stops his hand, shaking her head. There's no need to trouble himself. She'll be fine after some rest. That wretched Yushun didn't use a large dose, and she only consumed a small amount. Her expression hardens with cold fury as she explains his twisted plan. That jerk wouldn't knock her out completely. He needed her conscious so he could interrogate her and get the answers he wanted. A chilling realization dawns on her. She really underestimated him. He even managed to bribe the kitchen staff at this restaurant. A darkness settles in her eyes. This place needs new management. Shang, seeing the storm brewing within her, hands her a glass of water and offers a firm reassurance. Rest assured, no one bribed by Yushun will get away. This brings her back to the present, and she asks what happened to that snake. Did he manage to escape? A charming, almost dangerous smile plays on Chengxian's lips. "No way," he says with a lighthearted tone. His friends are making sure he's well attended to. Wenyan frowns, immediately assuming the worst. Did he send someone to beat him up? That's far too easy a punishment for him. Chengxian feigns innocence, his smile widening. He said attending to him, not beating him up. He playfully asks if she sees him as someone so violent. He reaches out, his touch surprisingly gentle as his fingers smooth the worried line between her brows. She looks up at him, her curiosity piqued. What did he do exactly? He gives her a mischievous little smile, promising she'll find out soon, and that she'll be very happy with the result. She tries to push him away emotionally, insisting there's no need for him to trouble himself with her matters. But he leans closer, his expression soft. "Don't be so distant," he murmurs. They are officially married, after all. He then puckers his lips into an adorable pout, declaring that he thinks he deserves a kiss. Wenyan gives him an unimpressed side eye, swiftly changing the subject to the real question nagging at her mind. By the way, how did he happen to appear at just the right moment? Minzhen informed him, he says simply. He turns away as he says it, and Wenyan freezes. Minzhen? The name echoes in her mind, and the pieces of the puzzle click into place with horrifying clarity. Minzhen was supposed to be working with Yushun. Why would she let Chengxian save her? The betrayal stings sharp and cold. It wasn't a rescue plan. It was a trap. Minzhen wanted Chengxian to walk in and misunderstand everything, to see her with Yushun and assume the worst. She must have banked on his pride, believing he wouldn't listen to any explanation, and would just storm off in a jealous rage. But he didn't. Instead, he's calmly walking over to the thermostat, murmuring that lowering the temperature might make her more comfortable. He chose to trust her, to protect her without a single moment of hesitation. But why? She has to ask him. Why does he trust her? They haven't really known each other for long. He turns back, his gaze so sincere it steals her breath. Isn't trusting her something he should naturally do? He tells her that in this world, apart from those who share direct blood ties, she's the closest person to him. The air in the room becomes thick, charged with an unspoken intimacy as they look at each other on the bed. Suddenly, he breaks the tension by flopping onto her shoulder like a giant, clingy teddy bear, whining that there are always scheming women trying to seduce him, and that she has to protect him well. Wenyan is left utterly speechless by his antics. Later, as he rests his head in her lap, she finds herself gazing down at him, her fingers gently stroking his soft hair. Anyway, his features are truly appealing, she thinks, a small smile gracing her lips. His eyes flutter open, hazy and unfocused. Wenyan, he whispers, his voice thick. Why is she looking at him like that? Her heart gives a loud thump against her ribs. She explains, her voice a little shaky, that the drug she was given likely had some aphrodisiac effects as well. He leans up, his face inches from hers, his breath warm on her skin. Since we have such a close relationship, he murmurs, his eyes half-lidded. Why don't we something more intimate? For a split second, she panics, but then her sense kicks in. She gently pushes him back. No, hold on. He's not fully conscious right now, and she can't take advantage of him. Head immediately slumps onto her shoulder, his heart hammering against her chest in a frantic rhythm. He was just teasing. Wenyan can't help it. She bursts into a fit of laughter. He's so cute when he's flustered, she thinks, looking at his blushing, pouting face. He crosses his arms, insisting he's showing respect. But they're married, she teases, and she had already agreed. He gets even more flustered, his face turning a deeper shade of red as he insists that engaging in something like that must be done when both parties are completely aware and free from external influence. It should be taken seriously. And more importantly, he adds, his voice dropping slightly, she doesn't really like him that much, does she? A playful smirk touches her lips. Well, at least she likes his face. He deadpans, asking if that was a compliment before thanking her dryly. His expression turns serious, his gaze earnest and vulnerable. That's just attraction, he says quietly. He wants her to genuinely love him and be with him willingly. He leans closer, his eyes searching hers, the question hanging in the air between them. Why? Has she truly fallen for him? Before she can even begin to form a response, the door bursts open. A young assistant rushes in, holding a bag with an antidote from Mr. Lee. The spell is broken. The assistant is relieved to see Wenyan awake and immediately bows her head, apologizing profusely for not protecting her well. Wenyan comforts the poor girl, patting her shoulder and assuring her it wasn't her fault. Yushun is too cunning, she says, her voice laced with steel, but he won't get another chance. Seeing that she's in good hands, Chengxian prepares to leave, reminding her rest and take her medicine. Wait, she calls out, but he's already dashing out the door. She's left alone with her thoughts. Is he truly this innocent, or is this just a fleeting interest in her? She sighs, oh well, it doesn't matter now, although she's not some overly conservative woman. She thinks as she sips her water, since he declined, she'll just let it be. The assistant urges her to rest, but Wenyan's mind is already on her next move. She feels much better, she says, her eyes sharp. Where's Yushun? The assistant blushes and stammers, a mischievous glint in her eyes. Well, Mr. Lee arranged another room for him. Does she really want to see him? Wenyan is utterly confused. What exactly is happening? The assistant, unable to contain her glee, says she can't possibly describe it and hands over her phone, telling her to see for herself. Wenyan's eyes widen in absolute shock at the image on the screen. It's a bizarre cartoon of 3 frogs tangled together in a very compromising position. So gross, she thinks, her face scrunching in disgust. The assistant explains with a sweet smile that Mr. Lee invited 2 young entertainers to attend to Yushun, giving him a taste of his own disgusting medicine. A slow, wicked smile spreads across Wen's face. What a brilliant idea. The assistant adds that Mr. Lee has uploaded the video to the cloud, and it's up to her how she uses it. Wenyan sits up, a dangerous glint in her eyes. She'll follow Chengxian's plan, but she has a little surprise of her own for Yushun as well. At that very moment, a popular influencer named Jiang starts his live stream. He promises his viewers a juicy scoop, a look into the filthy, chaotic private lives of the rich. He announces that today's target is the person on last week's magazine cover, Perpetual. He throws the door open with a flourish, only to be met with a scene straight out of a bizarre comedy. 3 men, barely draped in towels, are scattered around the room. The influencer's brain short-circuits. Wait, the tip he got was about Wenyan from Perpetual Group having an affair. How to turn it into her sponsor getting busy with 2 men. One of the men panics, yelling not to film and for Yushun to hide, just as Yushun groggily wakes up, complaining about his aching back and butt. His eyes finally focus on the phone broadcasting his predicament to the world, and his face freezes in pure horror. The influencer, ever the professional, recovers instantly and gives a sleazy smile to his audience. Mr. Zhao just had some good time, huh? Yushun is completely speechless, his reputation shattering live on screen. Get out. He finally roars in humiliation. Elsewhere, Chengxian watches the chaos unfold from his car. His friend, disguised in a hat and sunglasses, shows him the live stream. A fight has broken out between Yushun and the influencer, and the live chat is exploding. Chengxian smirks, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Interesting. Did he send Jiang as well? His friend confirms it, explaining he acted as soon as he got the news. Chengxian puts the pieces together. The journalist mentioned Perpetual, so he must have been tricked into thinking Wenyan was in that room. Regardless, the 2 young men his friend hired performed beautifully, loudly shouting Yushun's name for all to hear. Good, Chengxian says with a satisfied smile. He won't treat them badly. His friend beams, promising to accomplish any task Chengxian gives him, but then he just sits there, not getting out of the car. His friend takes off his disguise, revealing a bruised and pathetic face. He clasps his hands and begs for forgiveness, whining about how tough his life has been. He looks at it pitiful. Chengxian lets out a sigh, flashing a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. Alright, he's a kind and understanding gentleman, so his friend can stop worrying. Later that night, under a crescent moon, the friend drops 2 men off at a mansion. One of them, the traitor, Minzhen. As they walk towards the door, a figure emerges from the shadows. Minzhen, a voice calls out. A bruised and battered man steps into the light, looking like a ghost fresh from the grave. Minzhen screams in terror. It's Yushun, and he grabs her arm with a furious grip. She feigns surprise, asking what he's doing here when he was supposed to be with Wenyan. The bead of sweat rolling down her temple gives away her lie. He seizes her chin, a low snarl. What is she doing? He growls, ignoring her cries of pain. He forces the door open, his eyes blazing with hatred. Since she wants to destroy him, she can't blame him for being heartless. He drags her inside and shoves her to the ground with brutal force. She scrambles away, asking what's gotten into him. He looms over her, his face a mask of pure rage. Doesn't she still have feelings for him? Why the attitude? She tells him he's hurting her and orders him to get out, but he lunges, his hand closing around her throat. She claws at his hand, screaming for him to let go, asking if he's out of his mind. His eyes are wild with fury. Out of his mind? Of course he is. Minzhen, you betrayed me, he screams. You'll pay for this. Just as the darkness threatens to consume her, the front door clicks open. A man's expensive shoe steps onto the marble floor, and a cold, authoritative voice cuts through the chaos. Yushun, let go. Minzhen's eyes, wide with terror, flood with a desperate hope as she sees her savior. Father! She chokes out, save me. The air in the grand hall crackled with tension as a new figure, flanked by imposing bodyguards, made his entrance, his gaze instantly locking onto the scene of chaos on the floor, where a disheveled Yushun had Minzhen pinned down. The man, a flamboyant figure in a ridiculously patterned shirt and dark sunglasses, didn't even flinch, his voice a cold command cutting through the air. Separate them. Without a moment's hesitation, one of his men moved with brutal efficiency, delivering a vicious kick that sent Yushun flying across the polished marble floor. In the same breath, another man, Chengxian, swept in, lifting Minzhen into his arms with the grace of a storybook prince, chiding her gently for being so careless. The damsel in distress act began immediately as Minzhen, now safely posited on a plush sofa, clutched a pillow to her chest like a shield. Her voice, trembling with faux terror, rang out as she pointed an accusing finger at Yushun, who was now restrained by the bodyguards. Call the police, she cried. Arrest this man who tried to hurt me. Her father, however, seemed more annoyed than concerned, silencing her with a sharp word about his headache. Yushun, his face flushed with a mixture of rage and betrayal, spat back that she was the one who had driven him to madness. He threw his hands up in exasperation, declaring her accusations to be utter nonsense as she cowered dramatically on the couch. That was the final straw for her father, who stalked forward and seized Yushun's arm in a vice-like grip, his voice dripping with menace as he questioned what Yushun thought he was doing on his watch. Mr. Zheng, he warned, you have gone too far. Then, just as quickly, his demeanor shifted, becoming the calm mediator as he raised his hands, suggesting a simple misunderstanding that could be discussed peacefully. He turned to his daughter, prompting her to explain, and Minzhen launched into her performance, claiming complete ignorance as to why Yushun would suddenly attack her, accusing her of betrayal. She hugged the pillow tighter, her eyes wide with fabricated innocence, a picture of a wronged victim. Yushun's patience shattered. His voice was a low growl as he demanded she stop playing dumb, accusing her directly of leaking his plan to Chengxian. She stammered a denial, but it was useless. Chengxian himself had told him everything. Caught in her lie, Minzhen's composure cracked, and the truth spilled out in a pathetic confession. She did it all to drive a wedge between Chengxian and Wenyan, pathetically hoping he would finally notice her once he started to hate the other woman. Yushun could only stare in disgusted disbelief. Dislike? Hate. He scoffed at her delusional fantasy, informing her that her little scheme had backfired spectacularly. They were perfectly fine. In fact, Chengxian had retaliated, using every possible method to humiliate him and get his revenge, all thanks to her meddling. Minzhen's fear was momentarily replaced by a flicker of morbid curiosity. He retaliated. What did he do? Yushun turned away, disgusted, simply asking what was really going on with her. Her father chose that moment to intervene again, a crork playing on his lips as he pulled out his phone. Casually, Yushun was just having some fun with young men and showing Minzhen the screen. Her face twisted in revulsion at the picture of Yushun, shirtless in bed with another man. Yuck, she recoiled, disgusted by his supposed lapse in sanity. Humiliation burning in his gut, Yushun snatched the phone away, furious at this public shaming. But her father was unbothered, flippantly remarking that since Yushun came to strangle his precious daughter, it was only fair to play a video to soothe her. Defeated, Yushun's shoulders slumped, his anger replaced by a mumbled apology for his impulsiveness. Minzhen's mind, however, was already calculating the damage had everyone in their circle seen this. What about Yushun's reputation? He was so disgusting, nothing like the perfect Chengxian. Her father waved off concerns with a chilling smile, assuring her the internet would forget in 3 days. He patted Yushun's shoulder in a condescending gesture of forgiveness, dismissing the entire affair as just having some fun, leaving Yushun with no choice but to thank him for his kindness. The humiliation wasn't over. Her father then advised him to get a full checkup at the private hospital. After all, having fun is fine. But for people of their class, safety and health were top priorities, a final, cutting reminder of Yushun's place. Yushun's face remained passive, but eyes burned with a silent, murderous vow. He was part of that class, and he would be again, just to see this wretched man fall. Minzhen, ever the peacemaker when it suited her, tried to smooth things over, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. She linked arms with her father, transforming into the doting daughter, asking about his business trip and his health. He patted her head, explaining he'd hurried back for her, but his tone hardened as he turned back to Yushun, dressing him down for his complete failure to handle Wenyan, which had resulted in them losing resources and allies. For some reason, Wenyan had become aware of their entire plan and cut them off completely. As her father spoke, Yushun's tense gaze fell upon Minzhen, making her skin crawl. Why was he staring at her like that? How annoying, she thought. What would it possibly take to make him trust her? Her father clapped his hands, calling them to order. It was time for a new plan. They would unite and seize Wenyan's electric vehicle business, since Yushun had proven himself incapable of handling a single woman. With a wicked glint in his eye, he produced a small voice recorder, taunting Yushun that even if Wenyan were dead, he wouldn't be worthy of attending her funeral. Minzhen leaned in, her eyes sparkling with malicious excitement. Was it compromising photos? A scandal. Her father grinned. This, he declared, was an arrow that would strike Achilles' heel. He pressed the device into Yushun's hand with a final chilling warning. If he failed again, he would be reassessed and discarded. Yushun took it, his voice low as he promised not to fail. Minzhen chimed in with a sweet, supportive smile, telling her father she trusted Yushun completely, while her inner thoughts dripped with poison. Filthy fool, born to do my family's dirty work. Yushun, in turn, offered a placid apology, his mind screaming a vow. Once I succeed, you will be the first woman I torture and humiliate. 3 days before the launch, the atmosphere at Wenyan's company was electric. She sat at the head of the conference table, a beacon of calm professionalism, delegating final tasks for the event. The peaceful meeting was shattered when her assistant rushed in, her face pale with worry. She held out her phone, showing Wenyan a slew of articles that had suddenly appeared online, all questioning the safety of their new vehicle's battery. What should they do now? Wenyan's expression remained unreadable, but a dangerous glint appeared in her eyes. Start the meeting, she commanded. She would handle it later. So, Uncle Hen returned and already prepared a welcome gift her, had he. 2 hours later, as the meeting concluded, a team member voiced their concern about the negative press. Wenyan stood, her posture radiating absolute confidence. No, she declared they would ignore it and stick to the plan. She would take full responsibility for everything. Her unwavering resolve inspired her team, who voiced their support without hesitation. Meanwhile, at the Zheng family mansion, a cheerful voice called out. It was Enhui, Minzhen's elder half-sister, who had just returned home with their father. While servants unpacked, Enhui directed them to wrap a gift. Just as Minzhen came running down the stairs to embrace her, Minzhen clung to her, gushing about how much she'd missed her. Enhui playfully chided her for not calling, but Minzhen had a ready excuse about not wanting to interrupt her work, adding that she'd been liking all her posts and had smiled, promising a gift was waiting for her somewhere in the luggage. But Minzhen's cheerful facade suddenly crumbled into a worried sigh. Enhui's sharp eyes the shift immediately. What was wrong? Minzhen launched into a tirade about how hard Enhui and their father worked to build the family business, even risking their lives in conflict zones, and how she'd been sick with worry. Enhui laughed it off, reminding her their bodyguards were the best in the business. That was Minzhen's cue. While they were breaking their backs, she lamented others were chasing fame and dragging the family's reputation through the mud. Enhui's playful mood vanished. Who? Minzhen paused for dramatic effect. It's Wenyan, she revealed, explaining the new project and the sudden reports of major battery safety flaws. Enhui was outraged. Car safety was a matter of life and death. This was unacceptable. Minzhen fanned the flames, reminding her that Wenyan's project was tied to their own transport plans, putting their entire car business at stake. Minzhen put on a helpless act, claiming Wenyan wouldn't even speak to her. That was all Enhui needed to hear. Declaring that this was enough, she announced she would talk to Wenyan herself, with Minzhen urging her on, calling her their only hope. Ignoring Minzhen's half-hearted plea to not rush in angrily, Enhui stormed out of the house, determined to get answers. The door clicked shut. Minzhen was left alone, a triumphant, cunning smile spreading across her face. Now, see how Wenyan handles my hot-headed sister. She turned to a servant, pointing at a designer bag in an open suitcase. That one, she commanded. I'll take it. Back at the office, Enhui burst in without warning. Wenyan greeted her with a warm smile, asking when she'd returned and offering her a drink. But Enhui was in no mood for pleasantries. Getting straight to the point, what was the real issue with the batteries? Wenyan's gentle expression didn't waver. Enhui, what are you implying? Enhui laid out the stakes, the family's reputation, the transport plan, all of it was on the line. She swore she would pull Wenyan's vehicles from the plan if there was even a hint of a safety issue, no matter who tried to stop her. Wenyan placed a calming hand on her shoulder, reminding Enhui of her 5 years of experience and personal oversight of the project. Don't you trust me? But Enhui was unconvinced, pointing to the well-reasoned and evidence-backed reports she had read. She demanded Wenyan stop sweeping the problem under the rug and address address it openly. Inui's voice rose with passion, threatening to take over the project herself, delay the launch, and fix the mess if Wenyan couldn't. Wenyan simply smiled, a picture of tranquility. "Relax, I understand." She gently tucked a strand of hair behind Inui's ear. "Tell you what," her eyes sparkling with a challenge, "let's make a bet." Wenyan confidently laid out her terms. 2,000 orders in a month and 0 safety incidents in 3 months. If she succeeded, Inhui would have to fully back her plan to electrify the family's logistics fleet. "Do we have a deal?" Hui was skeptical. "And if you don't?" Wenyan gave a cheerful thumbs up, her smile unwavering. "The corner office is yours." "And what?" A flicker of resolve hardened her gaze, a silent promise to herself that things would be different this time. As her scheming cousin Minzhen walked away, she cast one last look over her shoulder, her eyes narrowed with a promise of retribution. She would be watching, she declared with a sneer. The tension finally left the room, and Wenyan felt like she could breathe again. That was close, but had bought them some precious time. Her loyal assistant looked bewildered, asking why Miss Zheng, who she always got along with, would suddenly come at her so aggressively. Wenyan let out a quiet sigh, leaning back in her CEO chair with a heavy heart. She knew she could never truly compete with Minzhen, even if they were only half-sisters. Her cousin had just landed last night with her father, and should have been recovering from jet lag, which meant only one thing. Her eyes sharpened with suspicion. Minzhen wouldn't have just shown up like that unless someone had put her up to it. Her assistant thought Minzhen was perhaps just naive, but Wenyan knew better, scoffing at the idea. Inhui was anything but naive. She had helped Uncle Junren build their family's entire global logistics network, and her business sense might even match her own. Wenyan analyzed her rival's strengths and weaknesses. She was sharp, fearless, and always put the family first, but that was her fatal flaw. She trusted her family far too much, making her an easy mark for Uncle Junren and Minzhen. She knew Inhui would never stoop to stealing her work for personal gain, which confirmed her suspicions. Glancing at a news article on her phone, she realized they must have swayed Inhui under the guise of protecting family interests. When her assistant asked if she had a plan, Wenyan simply took a calm sip of her tea, a confident smile playing on her lips. Everything would become clear on the day of the press conference. As night fell over the city, casting long shadows between the glittering skyscrapers, Wenyan walked out of her office building, only to find the handsome Chengxian waiting for her, leaning casually against a ridiculously flashy pink sports car. She stopped in her tracks, surprised to see him there. "It's not safe for you to be walking home alone this late," he said with a charming smile. "Come on, I'll take you home." He gallantly opened the passenger door for her, a perfect gentleman. Safely inside, Wenyan rolled her eyes internally. That line was so corny and overused, straight out of a B-list drama. Chengxian looked utterly offended, his dropping slightly. "What? That's a classic rom-com line. Since when is that corny?" She shot him a cool glance, informing him she had long outgrown cheesy dramas, so he'd spare her the act, to which he'd only mutter a defeated fine. He grinned playfully, musing that perhaps he should consult a scriptwriter for some better lines next time. The pink sports car zipped through the city streets, a blur of color against the night. He asked if she wanted to get some late-night food, but she just wanted to go home, telling him she'd put the address in his GPS. He looked over at her, his expression softening with genuine concern. She looked exhausted, and after what happened last night, she should be resting. But Wenyan shook her head, closing her eyes with a faint smile. Time won't wait, and work won't do itself. Besides, she was fine now. He wondered why she was closing her eyes, asking if she wasn't in the mood to talk. She opened one eye, a mischievous glint within it, and asked him just how old he was. He was momentarily stunned, reminding her she saw his age when they got their marriage license, leading to an adorable chibi realization from Wenyan. Oh, right, he was younger than her. That explains it, she thought, reaching over and patting his head like a doting older sister, causing him to blush furiously and yelp at her not to pat his head while he's driving. He pouted, telling her to stop treating him like a kid because he was her husband. They were legally married, for crying out loud. Wenyan let out a soft sigh. He was far from fine. But a hopeful thought bloomed in Chengxian's chest. This meant she trusted him and felt comfortable with him, right? As they finally pulled up to her magnificent mansion, he stopped her from getting out, telling her to just sit still. He gracefully exited the car and leaned across her, the space between them suddenly feeling incredibly small. He reached over her, his arm brushing against her, and unbuckled her seatbelt with a soft click. His heart was pounding. This was so awkward. He should have unbuckled it first. But he couldn't be blamed. He'd never done this before. But lurking in the shadows, a man watched them with pure, unadulterated rage. That wretched woman, getting cozy with another man on her own doorstep. His fury intensified as Chengxian effortlessly lifted Wenyan into a princess carry and walked toward the house. What a trashy couple! He had for Wenyan for ages, and she just lets this nobody walk right past her gate. What a joke! As the lights flickered on inside, his twisted mind jumped to the worst conclusions, gripping the iron gate until his knuckles turned white. They couldn't even wait for the bedroom, doing it right there in the living room. Inside, however, the scene was far from scandalous. Chengxian was simply pouring her a glass of water, asking if she wanted some. He handed her the glass, wondering if she was hungry and why she didn't have a live-in housekeeper. She explained that she didn't like strangers in her home, then surprise him by asking if he could cook. He admitted he could throw a salad together enough to not starve, at least. As she sipped her water, a small smile touched her lips. Now he seemed more like a real person. His gaze fixed on her, and she raised an eyebrow, asking if he was planning to stay. He immediately became a flustered mess, stammering that this whole ride wasn't some ploy to get her address. He insisted he was just worried because it wasn't safe for her to come home alone. A sly, knowing smile spread across her face as she revealed her secret. Her assistant and driver had been on standby the entire time. They had followed his car all the way here. Chengxian was floored. He'd never had a real job, let alone a driver or assistants. Wenyan couldn't help but laugh. He was so funny. Her expression softened and she looked at him gently, telling him to just stay here for the night. The next morning, Wenyan slept soundly in her bed, while Chengxian was so asleep, sprawled out all alone in a massive guest room. This, he thought glumly, was the first time having too many rooms was a problem. He recalled her invitation from last night, how his heart had leaped, only for her to assure him the guest rooms were always kept clean. She had then adorably pushed him toward the room, wished him sweet dreams, and clicked the door shut, leaving him standing there like a lost puppy. He sighed dramatically, stretching out on the bed. Maybe he was reading too much into this, but then an idea sparked in his mind. He could make her a special breakfast. His brilliant plan came to a screeching halt when he opened her fridge to find it almost completely empty. Seriously, he couldn't even toss a salad with this pathetic offering. Just as he was about to give up, a faint cry echoed from upstairs. Was that her? He didn't hesitate for a second, bolting from the kitchen and dashing to her room. Bursting in, he found her sitting up in bed, rubbing her eyes and dismissing it as just a bad dream. She announced she was going to take a quick shower before they grabbed breakfast, leaving him completely stunned. She bounced back that fast? He didn't even get a chance to play the comforting hero. She noticed him standing there and asked what was up. He quickly composed himself, muttering that it was nothing and he'd wait in the living room, feeling utterly dejected that his wife so independent he never got to be her knight in shining armor. But once alone in the bathroom, Wenyan's cheerful facade crumbled. She stared at her haunted reflection, the nightmare clinging to her. In her past life, she trusted the wrong people, and she wouldn't make that mistake again. If Chengxian hadn't shown up last night, she would have been utterly humiliated. A memory of his strong arms around her surfaced, and she wondered how she could ever thank him properly. A new resolve filled her beautiful eyes. In the car, she suggested they go for brunch at a fancy restaurant, a place she frequented. He readily agreed, but as they waited at a red light, he surprised her by handing her a box of food, insisting she at least eat something before work. She eyed him suspiciously, asking if this was another one of his moves, but he just grinned, claiming he was just looking out for his sweet wife. Here we go again, she thought with an amused roll of her eyes. Changing the subject, she told him that since he now had access to her home, he should bring his stuff over soon. He blinked, completely bewildered. She grabbed his arm, teasing him about wearing the same clothes again or having to suffer her terrible guest pajamas. He snapped into a cute salute, chirping yes ma'am, once again realizing he'd been overthinking everything. When they arrived at the lavish restaurant, they were greeted by the sight of Minzhen sitting with her friends. Wenyan calmly asked if his family owned the restaurant, and upon his confirmation, she made a simple request: reassign the chef. This place, she said with a cool glance towards her cousin, now gives her bad vibes. Chengxian dramatically clutched his chest, declaring that wasn't nearly enough punishment. He'd have the chef transferred to her office cafeteria just for her. He beamed with pride, reveling in the chance to spoil her. She laughed, telling him to stop being so extra, but he insisted that a man should spoil his wife. No debate allowed. As they walked past her table, the picture of a happy couple. Minzhen's face twisted into a mask of pure rage. Wenyan had escaped her trap and was now flaunting her new man right in her face. This had to be intentional. Her so-called besties tried to placate her, fawning over her and asking to be closer. Besties. Minzhen scoffed internally. They wish. A cruel, calculating smile formed on her lips as she turned to her sycophants. If they did this one little favor for her, maybe, just maybe, she'd play along with their pathetic act. The atmosphere in the restaurant had gone sour and Chengxian's handsome face was tight with annoyance. This place had killed his mood. He leaned in, suggesting they go somewhere else, perhaps his usual spot, where they kept a VIP room just for him. But before Wenyan could reply, their private moment was shattered by overly familiar voices calling his name. Fancy meeting you here, Chengxian. He turned, his expression a perfect mask of polite confusion. And you are? The question was cold, dismissive, and utterly humiliating. The women giggled undeterred, trying to jog his memory. They drank together at the bar just last week. Surely he remembered. With so many girls around him, one of them cooed. It was no surprise she had slipped his mind. Wenyan's eyes widened slightly at the mention of a bar and so many girls. Chengxian immediately went on the defensive, his hands flying up as if to ward off the accusation. That wasn't true at all. He barely knew them, and there were more guys there anyway. His flustered denial was cut short when one of the women's eyes lit up with recognition, not for him but for Wenyan. "Hey, you're Minzen's cousin, right?" They greeted Wenyan with bright, fake smiles, the tension in the air so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then the carefully orchestrated attack began. The two started whispering, just loud enough to be heard, wondering aloud if Chengxian was still with the Aon family's heiress. "Oh no, wait," the other chimed in. "I totally saw him getting cozy with some overseas CEO's daughter." Chengxian was practically steaming, insisting he didn't know any of those people, but Wenyan wasn't looking at him. A thoughtful, calculating glint appeared in her eyes as she watched the performance unfold. Finally, she spoke, her voice as smooth as silk but with an undercurrent of steel. They were Minzen's friends, she presumed, but who exactly were they? A wave of pure terror washed over the two women's faces. They remembered Minzen's warning, that Wenyan would skin them alive if they gave names, that they were supposed to drop these gossip bombs and then bolt for their lives. Wenyan's lips curved into a beautiful, chilling smile. She remarked how close they sounded to Chengxian. Funny how he didn't seem to recall them. How rude of him. Her gaze shifted to Chengxian, her expression imperious. "Chengxian, aren't you going to apologize?" Playing along perfectly, a dazzling, yet utterly threatening smile spread across Xian's face. He offered his sincerest apologies for the oversight and then asked for their names and their family ventures. He promised he would make sure to remember them well. The women began to sweat, waving their hands frantically. "Never mind, it's nothing." They were just nobodies, not worth his time at all. They practically fled from the scene, unable to bear the suffocating pressure for another second. Wenyan sighed theatrically, a playful pout on her lips. What a shame they left so soon. She could have gotten more juicy stories about him. Chengxian chuckled, telling her that if she was curious, their worthless gossip wasn't necessary. She could just ask him directly. Just then, Minzen herself appeared, calling out their names with a bright smile. She sidled up to them, teasing Wenyan for being so scary. They were just trying to be friendly, but Wenyan scared them off with her Ice Queen act. As Minzen continued her goading, Chengxian smoothly wrapped an arm around Wenyan's waist, pulling her flush against his side. He smiled, a warm and doting expression on his face, and said he actually liked her sharp edges. This way, nobody dared to mess with her. He leaned down, planting a soft kiss on her forehead before whispering, "Let's go, darling." They walked away, leaving a stunned and fuming Minzen in their wake. Humph. There was no way they were actually this lovey-dovey of a stunt she just pulled. But her anger quickly melted into a sinister smirk. Once that little seed of doubt she'd planted started to grow, it would wreck everything, and that would be her opening. The moment they were out of sight, the warmth vanished from Chengxian's face. "All right, drop the act," he said, his voice flat. He gave her a dismissive little pat on the head, swearing he didn't know any of those women they mentioned, urging her to believe him. Wenyan simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. "Whatever," she said with a shrug. She really didn't care. Then she leaned in, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered something that made his eyes widen and a dark blush creep up his neck. They arrived at an opulent restaurant, the Moonlight Sonata, its entrance gleaming under the evening lights. Inside, they were greeted respectfully as Mr. Li. He told Wenyan their chef was decent and she should give it a shot, but she excused herself, saying she needed to hit the restroom first. The instant she was gone, Chengxian's playful demeanor vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating mask. He pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen as he messaged his assistant. He wanted the security footage from the previous restaurant and full profiles on those two women. The reply was immediate. On it. Later, he was the perfect gentleman, holding open the door to her flashing sports car. But just as she was getting in, a frantic voice screamed her name. It was her wretched ex-Jun, running towards them looking disheveled and desperate. Chengxian smirked, greeting his dear nephew with mock surprise, wondering if they'd finally put up security at the building. Yushun ignored him, his desperate eyes fixed on Wenyan. "The press conference starts soon," he urged. Surely she didn't want to make a public spectacle. "What's your point?" Chengxian growled. Wenyan crossed her arms, her voice dripping with ice. What could they possibly have left to say? Yushun's face hardened into a sneer. "It concerned her job," he hissed. "Refuse me and you'll live to regret it." Wenyan didn't even blink. They would talk in her meeting room, with cameras on and security standing by. She specified video-only surveillance and security posted right outside the door. As she walked off with Yushun, Chengxian's face was etched with worry. "Wenyan," he murmured, watching her go. She glanced over her shoulder, giving him a small, confident smile. "Don't worry," she mouthed, "see you tonight." He could only watch as she disappeared into the lion's den. Inside the cold, sterile meeting room, the tension was palpable. Wenyan sat across from him, her patience clearly wearing thin. Out with it. Yushun stared at her, his expression a pathetic mix of arrogance and desperation. "Wenyan, come back to me now, and I'll forget it all. This is your last chance." A sharp, disbelieving laugh burst from her lips. "Ha ha, come back to him." How dare he even say that to her? He pressed on, completely delusional. He didn't mind what happened between her and Chengxian. If she just came back and supported his ambitions, he would take her back. A smirk played on Wenyan's lips. Take her back? Where'd he get this confidence from? She began to systematically tear him down. He was nothing but an unacknowledged, illegitimate child of the Li family. By skill, he was mediocre. As for talent, he had none. She gestured dismissively with 2 fingers, and his looks, to those who didn't know better, he might seem passable, but once they learned the ugly truth beneath, they'd just be disgusted. Yushun stood there, utterly gobsmacked. Unbelievable, he finally choked out what gave her the audacity to say such things to him. Because he loved her. He loved her enough to look past everything. Wenyan's face was a mask of pure contempt. Don't kid yourself, she shot back. He only loved what she could do for him. He only loved himself. So what? He yelled, his composure cracking. Love always begins with noticing someone's virtue. Attraction blooms when it serves your interests first. He turned away, his voice dripping with cynicism. Wenyan, when do people like us believe in something as naive as love? It's all about mutual gain, he said, a twisted smirk spreading across his face. It always has been. Mutual gain. Her voice was ice. But the only thing he offered was betrayal wrapped in exploitation. Her own voice rose in fury, listing his sins. He was the one who plotted against her, who hired paparazzi to trap her into marriage, who drugged her to force answers out of her. He was desperate. The thought of losing her drove him mad. When he saw her with Zheng Wenyan, he snapped. Yes, he crossed lines, he admitted. But it was only because he just couldn't bear to lose her. What could that loser possibly offer? He was just a washed-up family reject with no ambition. No influence, nothing. Wenyan smiled, a devastating smile. Who cares about power? No ambition means he won't scheme and stab her in the back. And let's face it, she added, her voice dropping to a purr. He's way hotter than you. The final blow landed. Yushun's eyes widened, a bead of sweat ran on his temple. How could you? He threw his hands up, his expression shifting to a malicious grin. Enough. He had something that could bury her career for good, something he'd risked his neck to get from her scheming uncle. He declared was proof of his love. The blackmail hung in the air between them. Come back to me, he whispered, and I'll burn it right in front of you. He lunged forward, grabbing her arm, trying to guilt her with their sweet memories. She looked at him, disgusted. He was acting like he was the one at fault and was graciously forgiving her. Let's forget the past, he pleaded, his eyes wide and sincere. Let's just focus on staying together, okay? Outside, Zheng Wenyan saw their shadows through the frosted glass, Yushun leaning in close, his hand on her. A storm brewed in his eyes as he watched the intimate-looking scene unfold. Smack! A loud crack echoed through the hall as Wenyan's hand connected squarely with Yushun's face. Don't touch me, she seethed, pulling away from him. Wenyan! He roared, clutching his reddening cheek. Security! She yelled. The guards did. Get him out of here and ban him from building permanently, or he'll be arrested for trespassing. Her eyes blazed with fury as the guards surrounded Yushun, telling him it was time to leave. As they dragged him away, he screamed that she would regret this. My only regret, she called after him, her arms crossed defiantly, is wasting my time listening to your nonsense again. She watched with a huff as they hauled him away. Sinking into a chair, she let out a long breath. In her previous life, she'd fallen for that gentle god and lost everything. Never again. Her hand clenched into a tight fist. Yushun was her sworn enemy. He'd just admitted he had career-ending information from her uncle. In her past life, he'd used that very information not to trap her, but to control her, playing the hero who fixed her problems while secretly pulling her strings. But now she knew his game. A look of fierce determination hardened her features. Yushun, don't overplay your hand unless you're ready to crash and burn. 1 week later, the press launch for the Perpetual Group's new electric vehicle was in full swing, the event hall packed with reporters. The new model was the talk of the town, but so were the lingering rumors about the safety of its battery. On stage, Wenyan was the picture of poise and professionalism as she presented the new Morning Star series. Suddenly, a man's voice boomed from the crowd. Hold on. Your car batteries have major safety issues. Miss Zheng, will you just ignore this? It was Yushun, standing there with a smug look on his face. The room erupted. Cameras flashed, reporters scrambled, and phones immediately went live. Who was he? Was this a rival's dirty trick? Yushun held his phone aloft, a triumphant sneer on his face. Miss Zheng, I've got the battery quality test results right here. His voice dripped with malice as he delivered the final blow. Would you project it on the big screen for everyone to see now? The air in the conference hall was thick with tension as Wenyan stood on stage, her expression an unreadable mask of cool composure. But the silence was shattered by an arrogant voice from the crowd, a man holding his phone like a weapon, demanding to know if Miss Zheng had the guts to address the battery issues he'd uncovered. Panic rippled through her staff sitting at the side table. They whispered frantically about getting security, about cutting the live feed before this spiraled into a PR nightmare. But Wenyan raised a hand, silencing them. She turned her gaze to the disruptor, her voice calm and steady. We appreciate your concern about our products, sir, she began, her tone disarmingly polite. But let me remind you, she continued, a sharp edge entering her voice, that if that report is fake, it's defamation, and we will take legal action. Furthermore, if you obtained that report illegally from us, that's corporate theft. A brilliant, cutting smile played her lips as she leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking onto his. Are you really ready to face those charges? The man, this wretched Yushun, refused to back down, his face twisted with self-righteous fury. Save your threats. The public deserves the truth, he roared, playing the hero for the cameras, declaring he would risk everything to expose the company's deadly secrets. Instead of anger, Wenyan responded with a slow, deliberate clap that echoed through the stunned room. How admirable, she mused, though courage without wisdom is merely recklessness. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she made a decision that sent a shockwave through the audience. Very well. Display the report as our guest requested. Murmurs erupted from the press. He was seriously pushing this even after her warning. Whispers spread like wildfire. Whether this was staged or not, this guy had certainly made himself famous. The image of a document flashed onto the giant screen behind her, and a gasp went through the crowd. They were really displaying it. The Perpetual Group was playing hardball, and everyone watching the live stream was to their screens, desperate to see how this would unfold. Wenyan gestured to the data projected behind her. This one? Sure. Yushun's chest puffed out with victory. Absolutely. That document features your company's seal, along with the battery batch and serial numbers. Surely you're not suggesting this report is forged? A serene smile graced Wenyan's lips as she gave a simple, devastating nod. It's legit, she confirmed, and the room fell into a confused silence. Wait, she admitted it? The reporters exchanged bewildered glances. Check Wenyan's face, someone whispered. I bet there's more to this. Wenyan let the tension build before posing a simple, logical question. This document does bear our company seal. But why would we keep producing batteries if we knew they failed quality checks? That makes no sense. Because your technology can't meet the standards. Yushun shrieked, pointing an accusing finger. You're just rushing the launch to grab market share. Your company chose profits over safety. That's irresponsible. Wenyan's expression hardened, her voice ringing with conviction. A company that ignores profitability betrays its employees first. Every Perpetual Group employee joins us to fight for their own future. Her hand came to rest over her heart as her eyes swept across the room, filled with a fiery passion. I answer for my company, my team, and every single customer. With a dramatic flourish, she signaled towards the entrance. A pristine, white prototype vehicle was driven onto the stage, flanked by technicians in uniform. She announced is a prototype from our upcoming flagship series. We're going to tear it open right here, right now. She explained how they had achieved consistent tech breakthroughs and perfected production. Every shipped vehicle now carries new, safety-certified batteries, and the defective batched in that old report were safely scrapped, with all the documents to prove it. But she wasn't finished. Now, I'd like to make an important announcement. We are not just going to open source our batteries, but we will share every cutting-edge technology we've developed. This is our commitment to advancing the entire automotive industry worldwide. Her eyes sparkled under the stage lights, her voice resonating with power. True leadership isn't about hoarding minor breakthroughs. It's about boldly sharing knowledge, driving progress, and leading confidently from the front. Thank you for believing in our electric vehicles. Join me as we usher in a new era of automotive innovation, led by the Perpetual Group. She bowed deeply, a figure of pure grace and power, a beat of stunned silence, and then the room exploded into a deafening cheer. The audience leaped to their feet, the sound of their clapping like thunder. That's impressive. The auto industry is about to explode. This is why the Perpetual Group leads. Yushun stood frozen, his face a mask of disbelief. Wait, what? You're taking her word at face value? They're batteried. The inspection report proves it. But the crowd had already turned on him. Stop the slander! That expired report shows nothing but your ill intent? Who are you, anyway? At least their CEO faced head-on. Cornered and exposed, Yushun tried to make a run for it, but the press swarmed him like vultures. Hold up! I've got some questions for you. Look, every maker is slinking away. Just as he was about to break free, two imposing men in black suits blocked his path. Mr. Zhao said flatly. He spun around, his face pale with panic. What do you think you're doing? Are you trying to kidnap me? This is harassment. I'm calling the police. A figure emerged from the shadows, his presence radiating an intimidating authority. It was Wenyan's father, Mr. Zheng. Zhao Yushun, right? He asked, his voice dripping with ice. Yushun's blood ran cold. Mr. Zheng, he stammered. A cruel smirk touched Mr. Zheng's lips. Don't bother calling. We're going to the police station. Let's have a nice long chat about how you stole my company's confidential files. Yushun desperately tried to bluff, claiming Mr. Zheng's own brother gave him the document. Did he really want the Perpetual Group's dirty laundry aired publicly? Mr. Zheng just laughed. Your word means now. Or do you really think my brother would admit to framing his own niece? Yushun's eyes widened in horror. Wait, Minzhen. Minzhen. Mustang looked at him with utter contempt. Pathetic. You reek of failure and stupidity. He gave a curt nod to his men. Take him away. Yushun was dragged off, screaming and struggling. Listen, you can't do this to me, Wenyan and I. Mr. Zheng's gaze didn't even flicker. Shut him up. A hand was clamped over Yushun's mouth, his protests reduced to mulled whimpers as he was hauled away like trash. A moment later, Mr. Zheng was on his phone, his voice softening. Yes, it's handled. Don't worry. His excited voice came through the line. She'd been on the edge of her seat watching the live stream, gushing that their girl was absolutely killing it. She suggested bringing Wenyan home for dinner, promising to make her favorite dishes. He glanced at the chaotic scene, a small smile on his face. We'll see. She'll be swamped after the conference. He ended the call, a comical pout forming on his handsome face. She only ever thinks about our daughter, he grumbled to himself. When do I get my share of compliments? Backstage, confetti rained down as Wenyan's team celebrated their monumental victory. That was a huge success. Wenyan, looking serene amidst the chaos, simply instructed them to make sure the place was spotless after. Later, relaxing on a plush sofa, she received the good news. The business department just reported over 2,000 orders on the spot. You're halfway to winning that bet with your cousin, her assistant cheered. We can easily 10,000 units this month. Wenyan took a slow sip of her drink. I should actually thank Yushun for giving me this perfect opportunity to shine. His pathetic attempt to sabotage me only created advantages. Her team nodded, adding that Mr. Zheng had already handed him over to the police, hoping he'd be locked up for good. Wenyan shook her head. Won't happen, though. The Li family will bail him out. She stretched languidly. Although he's just an illegitimate child excluded from the family tree, they still won't completely abandon one of their own. Besides, she added, a wicked glint in her eye, an easy downfall would be too good for him anyway. Just wants fame? Let's make him infamous. Meanwhile, across the city, Li Ziyan stared in disgust at the extravagant bouquet of lilies in his hands. His assistant had just informed him of his father's orders. Bail out Yushun. Bail him out. He snarled. That piece of trash just pulled that stunt to corner Wenyan on a live broadcast. I was ready to break his nose, but Wenyan's father had the cops drag him away first. I simply missed the chance to punch him. He slammed his fist on the car door. Let his real family deal with him. It's not my concern. Assistant flinched. Please don't make things difficult for your father. Li Ziyan let out a bitter laugh. Of course. The esteemed Li family is too proud to show up, so they shift the pressure onto my father. And he dumps it on me, the family failure. A shadow of deep pain crossed his face. No one in the Li family gives a damn about me. He sighed, his anger deflating into weary resignation. Drive me to Wenyan's hotel first. I need to congratulate her on nailing the launch. As they drove, a sly smile touched his lips. My father only asked me to bail him out, he mused. He didn't specify the timeline. They pulled up to the hotel just as Wenyan was walking out. He stepped out, presenting the flowers with a flourish. Congratulations! You crushed it today. Now it's time to relax. Wenyan's smile faded slightly as she looked at the lilies. I used to love these flowers, but now they just remind me of Yushun's cheap gestures. Li Ziyan's expression softened. He's not worth changing your preferences over. But if they're tainted for you now, I'll choose other flowers next time. As he turned, put them back in the car, she suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm. Wait. That trash doesn't get it to change me. She took the bouquet, burying her face in the fragrant petals and inhaling deeply. A genuine, breathtaking smile lit up her face. Thank you. He looked at her, completely captivated. She then looked up confused. Wait, what are you doing out here? It's so late. Her driver, standing by his car, looked nervous, wondering if she was planning on working overtime. She shook her head, explaining she couldn't sleep well at the hotel and was heading home. Without a second's hesitation, Li Ziyan offered, I'll drive you. Wenyan dismissed her driver, telling him to just take a cab and submit the receipt. As Li Ziyan's car sped away into the night, the driver watched them go, a guilty look on his face. And buzzed. A call from Minzhen. He answered, his voice low. She's heading home. He hung up, his shoulders slumping in despair. I'm sorry. I never wanted this. I had no choice. In a dark, lavish room, Minzhen was finishing a violent VR shooting game, screaming Wenyan's name with every virtual shot. Die! The call came through just as the game ended. She took off her headset, a rifle prop clattering to the floor. As expected, Wenyan rarely stays in hotels. A vicious, predatory smile spread across her face. But guess what? I've got a surprise waiting her doorstep. I sent some men to make her night unforgettable. She let out a chilling laugh. She'll be grateful later. Outside Wenyan's home, a van of thugs lay in wait. As Li Ziyan's car pulled up, they emerged from the shadows, baseball bats in hand, their eyes filled with lecherous greed. Well, the leader sneered, even hotter in person than on the phone. Damn, those streams didn't do your body justice. Who are you guys? Wenyan asked, her voice steady despite the danger. We're here to have some fun with Miss Zheng, the man cackled. Maybe she could even gift us a few cars as a bonus, huh? Before they could take another step, Li Ziyan moved in front of her, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his handsome face. You mean like bad lonely? Perfect timing. I haven't played in ages. Let's do this together. The night air crackled with sudden danger as Cheng Xian Wenyan back towards the car, hiss a low, urgent command for her get in now. A group of thugs emerged from the shadows. their intentions clearly on their sneering faces as their leader yelled for them to get her. The fight exploded in a flurry of motion, the thud of fists against flesh echoing in the dark as Chengxian moved like a phantom, disabling one man with a brutal kick that sent him sprawling to the ground. Another goon swung a heavy baseball bat, the weapon whistling through the air, but Chengxian was faster, more ruthless, dodging the blow meant for Wenyan's head. The blonde thug swung again, a vicious arc aimed to shatter bone, but Chengxian's hand shot out, grabbing the bat mid-swing with a grip of solid steel. With a fluid, powerful twist, he wrenched the weapon from the man's hand, the thug crying out as his wrist was brutally torqued. Now armed, Chengxian didn't hesitate, bringing the down with a sickening whack against another attacker's side. He was a whirlwind of controlled violence, a blur of motion that left the thugs broken and scattered on the pavement. The remaining goons could only stare in disbelief, their bravado evaporating into sheer terror as the handsome man mistaken for a simple driver stood over their fallen comrade, his aura utterly murderous. He casually rested the bat on his shoulder, a smirk playing on his lips as he offered them a chilling choice: scram, or become his personal batting practice. His gaze was lethal, promising a world of pain. The thugs didn't need to be told twice, scrambling to their feet and fleeing into the night like the wretched cowards they were. With the threat gone, Chengxian turned, his intense aura softening instantly as Wenyan rushed to his side, her voice laced with worry. "Are you alright?" she asked, her eyes scanning him for any injury. "Are you hurt? Is anything broken?" Her hand rested gently on his arm, a soft touch that sent a jolt through him. He tried to play it cool, assuring her he was fine, but complained that his clothes were now trash after those thugs touched them. She immediately promised to get him a new set, her concern genuine and heartwarming. She was more worried about the security breach, insisting she'd report it to the homeowners association because his safety mattered too. Her words hit him with unexpected force. She was worried about him. A faint blush crept up his neck as he stammered his agreement, his heart fluttering at the thought that she truly wanted him to live here with her. She noted that he was pretty tough, having had her back against Shinshin twice now, but he just brushed it off as messing around. As they entered the grand mansion, Wenyan stared at the empty foyer. She had assumed he'd arranged for his things to be delivered, but he admitted with a sheepish sweat drop that he hadn't gotten it yet. He'd honestly thought she was just polite and didn't really mean for him to move in. Wenyan just laughed, stretching dramatically and telling him he was stuck with one-size pajamas for the night, wishing him a good night as she headed upstairs. He waved back, a dazed smile on his face, her words echoing in his mind. "Make yourself at home." Elsewhere, the mastermind of the failed attack was far from at peace. Miss Zheng, lounging with cucumbers on her eyes, answered her phone with annoyance, berating her hired goon for calling so soon. She was met with a tirade of accusations. They screamed that she set them up, that the driver was way stronger than expected and beat all of them single-handedly. Miss Zheng sat bolt upright, ripping the cucumbers from her eyes in shock. "What?" she shrieked. "A driver? That must have been Chengxian." A wave of pure fury washed over her, the veins in her forehead throbbing as she cursed him for always being there to save Wenyan, calling her own driver a total moron for not warning her. Meanwhile, that very same driver was just ending his long shift. He parked his city bike, his shoulders slumped with the weight of his betrayal. He could only hope Miss Zheng stayed safe, knowing he was trapped between a rock and a hard place. He arrived home to a dark, empty house, sighing that he works tirelessly and no one even bothers to leave a light on for him. He found his wife already asleep, grumbling about her going to bed without waiting for him. He flipped on the light, demanding she wake up and help him get ready for a bath. She stirred, annoyed, telling him to keep it down and just take a quick shower. He exploded, questioning what kind of wife she was if she couldn't even draw a bath for her hardworking husband. She shot back, telling him to go to a spa if he wants a full bath and to stop bossing her around at home. As they argued, his eyes caught the glint of gold around her neck, a necklace he'd never seen before. She nonchalantly told him she just bought it today, warning him to be careful not to break it. He was aghast, reminding her they were supposed to be saving all this money for their daughter's education abroad, that this was from the money he just brought home yesterday. What was she even thinking? His voice rose to a yell. That was his cut from the deal, and she just blew it all. The accusation hung in the air, and she snapped back, asking what was wrong with that, or if that money was meant for some other woman. The accusation was the final straw. His hand flew up, the sharp crack of a slap echoing in the room as he accused her of seeing someone else. Their daughter appeared in the doorway, her face a mask of pure disgust at the ugly scene. She told them to shut up, that she was going abroad soon and didn't want to be bothered by constant fighting, calling her father gross and telling him to get out if he couldn't stop causing trouble. The next morning, the fight continued, escalating into pure chaos. Their daughter was livid, asking who cares about him being the owner when the deed will be in her name when he's dead anyway. Enraged, he struck his own daughter across the face. His wife flew at him, screaming that he was a psycho and pushing him to the ground. He fell with a heavy thud. His daughter looked down at him, her hand on her stinging cheek, her eyes filled with nothing but contempt as she called him disgusting. His wife collapsed back onto the bed, groaning that he almost killed her and calling him a heartless bastard. The driver could only curl up on the floor, the weight of his actions crashing down on him. He had this coming. This was his punishment for betraying Miss Zheng. But his true judgment was yet to come. He was summoned to Wenyan's office, his head bowed as he asked what he could do for her. She acknowledged his hard work lately. He replied that he was just doing his job. Her voice turned to ice as she asked if that job included selling out her schedule to her master last night. The color drained from his face. He stammered that he didn't, that he had no choice, but that Mr. Li had escorted her home. Wenyan leaned forward, a chilling smile on her face, asking if she was supposed to be grateful for that. Suddenly, he dropped to his knees with a thud, begging for forgiveness and swearing it would never happen again. He groveled on the floor, but Wenyan simply stared down at him from her chair, utterly unmoved. "Oh, it definitely won't," she said coldly. She slid a document across her desk, a resignation letter HR had prepared just for him. He clutched the paper, his face a mess of panic and sweat, pleading with her not to do this, that he couldn't lose this job. But Wenyan was merciless. Without this job, he'd be useless to Minzhen, unable to gain any more benefits from her family. He promised he'd do whatever she wanted, even provide information on them as she'd instructed. He swore he'd do it perfectly. Wenyan stood, her shadow falling over him as she revealed the cold, hard truth. That was just an excuse to keep him in line. Did he really believe she would trust a backstabber? She gave him one last chance to sign it gracefully. Or she would sue him for privacy violation, a record that would ruin his career forever. Defeated, his eyes wide with terror, he whispered that he understood he'd sign it. He staggered out of her office, his world collapsing around him. Just as he thought it couldn't get any worse, his phone buzzed. It was his daughter, her voice frantic and hysterical. "Father," she screamed, "my study abroad admission got revoked." His blood ran cold. His daughter was sobbing, demanding to know what happened to her plans, her entire future, shrieking that she couldn't face anyone now before slamming her phone down and ending the call, her last word to him being useless. The phone slipped from his numb fingers, clattering to the floor. He tried to storm back into Wenyan's office, but security blocked his path, while Wenyan's assistant stopped him with a final cryptic warning. Did he really think Miss Zheng would let him enjoy the money he got from betraying her? He stared, uncomprehending. The assistant leaned in, her voice low and sharp, telling him to take a good look at his wife's new necklace when he got home. The necklace? What about that necklace? He stammered, completely lost. The pieces of the puzzle began to click into place with horrifying clarity. He burst through the door of his home, his face pale and grim. His wife, lounging on the sofa, simply told him she wasn't cooking and they could eat out. He exploded in a rage, screaming that food was all she ever cared about. He stormed towards her, his face contorted in fury, and ripped the necklace from her throat with a violent tug. She shrieked, asking if he was insane. Ignoring her cries, he rushed to the kitchen counter. He began scraping the gold chain against the hard surface. The thin gold plating flaked away, revealing the cheap, dull metal beneath. His wife screamed that he was crazy, that he broke her expensive necklace. He turned, his voice a low growl, holding up the ruined chain. A gold necklace that cost a fortune? His hands shot out, wrapping around her throat as he slammed her against the counter, his mind finally snapping. They were both heartless bastards, he seethed, calling her a psycho as she choked and struggled for air, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. The violence comes to a sudden, brutal end as the man is kicked squarely in the gut, his muffled groan echoing in the tense silence. He lets out a sharp cry of pain, doubling over before collapsing. With a heavy thud, he hits the tiled floor, while the woman flops down beside him, both of them defeated and broken. She groans in pain, slowly pushing herself up from the cold ground. Just then, a figure appears, her voice cutting through the heavy air with jarring nonchalance. She wonders if they're done fighting yet, because she's hungry and wants some fried chicken. Her mother stares up in disbelief, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. "Can't you see I almost died?" she cries, her voice trembling with hurt, calling her own daughter a heartless brat. The girl's expression remains utterly cold, her eyes devoid of any sympathy. "Well, you're still alive, aren't you?" she retorts dismissively. "Fine, if you're not coming, I'll just go by myself." Her mother, now kneeling on the floor in desperation, points a shaking finger at the man. "All you ever think about is food," she seethes, begging her daughter to lock the door and call the police because her father has lost his mind and tried to kill her. But the man on the floor weakly protests, pleading with her not to call the police. The daughter scoffs, waving her hand as if swatting away a fly. "You heard him," she says. "Father said no police. Besides, a police report could completely mess up her plans to study abroad, and there's no way she's letting that happen." She announces she's starving and will grab food first, then figure out her plans later, leaving her parents helpless on the floor. The father clutches his head, the weight of his failure crashing down on him. "Bastards," he whispers, his voice thick with venom. "Both of you are bastards." The scene shifts to the cold, unforgiving light of a jail cell, where Yushun sits huddled on the floor, surrounded his hired thugs. His mind is racing, filled with a growing sense of panic. Why isn't Minzhen here yet, he wonders, his heart pounding in his chest. Does she not know what happened? A cold dread creeps in. What if Wenyan's father told the Li family everything? Surely they wouldn't abandon him now, would they? He begs for someone to get him out of there. Suddenly, a sharp voice cuts through his frantic thoughts. "Shut up," the thug leader snarls, kicking him hard. Stop yapping like a damn dog. If it weren't for their boss's orders, he'd have Yushun's face swimming in a toilet bowl by now. Damn it all. Instead of making some easy money, they got beat up and thrown in jail for 2 whole weeks. His lackeys murmur in agreement, complaining that they're the real victims here. Why didn't they arrest that driver instead? One of them points out that the driver's outfit was clearly expensive, far too nice for a mere chauffeur. He was definitely no lowlife. The leader's face contorts with rage, and he slams his fist down with a loud crack. Ouch, he hips, shaking his hand in pain. His men rush to his side, telling him not to blow his top and to avoid the guy if they see him again. Get lost, he bellows, kicking his own subordinate away in frustration. His eyes narrow with a greedy, vengeful glint. Once he's out, he's making Miss Zheng pay them extra. She's gonna cover all their losses. Yushun's ears perk up at the name. Zheng, he asks cautiously, which Miss Zheng, you know someone from the Zheng family. The leader whirls on him, his expression menacing. Shut your mouth, he commands. Stop asking questions and stay put. But Yushun sees an opportunity and presses on, a smug smile spreading across his face. Get someone to call Zheng Minzhen to bail me out, he boasts, and I'll her bail you out too. Minzhen always does what I say. The leader's eyes widen slightly, really. Then what's her number? Yushun's confidence falters. He stammers that he doesn't have it memorized. It's saved on his phone. If he could just get his phone, he could call her. The leader's patience snaps. Bullshit, he roars, smacking Yushun with his slipper. If they allowed phones in this hellhole, you think I'd need to deal with you? Tisk. Just as Yushun recoils, a figure appears outside their cell bars. A familiar, handsome face smirks down at them. Well, my dear nephew, what's this I see? Chengxian drawls, his voicing with amusement. Playing dodgeball with your new cellmates. Yushun shields his stunned. Cheng, he gasps. A flicker of hope ignites within him. Did the Li family send you to get me out? He asks eagerly. I knew they wouldn't abandon me. Chengxian just smiles, a slow, predatory smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Indeed, he says smoothly, the Li family prefers not to be stained by fools and troublemakers like you. Yushun's face falls, and he tries to regain control. Does Wenyan know you came for me personally? He threatens. Of course you wouldn't dare tell her, because she hates betrayal the most. Chengxian's smile widens. Don't worry, he purrs, his voice a silken threat. Just stay on my good side, and your secret stays safe with me. Suddenly, Chengxian clutches his head, his face paling dramatically. Ugh, I suddenly feel awful, he moans, leaning on his assistant. I need a full 3-day checkup at our family hospital. His assistant looks baffled, but Chengxian cuts him off. No buts, he insists. I can't wait another second. The Li family values health of all, they'll understand. He turns back to Yushun, his expression one of mock sympathy. Sorry, you'll have to wait a few more days. Yushun grips the bars, his knuckles white with fury. You're doing this on purpose, he screams. Stop messing with me. Get me out. Chengxian recoils dramatically, pinching his nose. Your breath reeks, he exclaims with disgust. You smell like garbage. What? He turns to his assistant, looking faint. I feel even worse. This is bad. I need to get to the hospital right away. Yushun is apoplectic, his face turning purple with rage. Let that sickness finish you off, he shrieks. I hope your tests show cancer in every damn part of your body. No, just drop dead in the street, you bastard. But Chengxian and his assistant, already walking away down the hall. Chengxian, get your ass back here, Yushun screams, but they don't look back. Wait, you actually came back, he says, seeing them return. Now get me out. But Chengxian ignores him completely, addressing the thugs instead. The thug leader scrambles to his feet, bowing obsequiously. Ha ha ha, so you're the Li family's young heir, he says, his voice dripping with false sincerity. My apologies, that earlier incident was all a misunderstanding. Chengxian looks pleased, a satisfied glint in his eye. Wenyan acted fast, he thinks to himself. She already got these thugs locked up. He turns his charming smile on the leader. Do things my way and we can pretend it was a misunderstanding, he offers. You'll treat my nephew properly, understood. The leader looks utterly confused. What exactly do you mean by properly? Yushun's eyes widen in horror. Chengxian, don't you dare. Chengxian cuts him off with a look of pure disdain. Are you blind? My nephew's clothes are filthy, he says, his voice turning icy. How could anyone from the Li family be seen in such disgraceful attire? This is unacceptable. He locks eyes with the thugs, a devilish smirk playing on his lips as he gives a single, chilling command. Strip him. What the hell are you talking about? Yushun sputters, his face a mask of terror. Keep yapping, Chengxian warns, his voice dangerously low, and I'll have them teach you a real lesson. You piece of... Yushun's insult is cut short as Chengxian turns to leave. Let's go. The thugs all stand and bow respectfully. Take care, Mr. Li. Mr. Li. Don't worry, we'll handle it. Yushun turns to them. Been betrayed. You aren't actually siding with him, are you? Did you hear what he called me? I'm a Li too. The leader's face twists into a malicious grin. Oh, we heard him call you a fool and a troublemaker. He sneers. So why should we treat a fool with any respect? Mr. Li did suggest we teach him a lesson. The other thugs join in, cracking their knuckles with menacing smiles. Let's do it. A dark shadow falls over Yushun's face as they close in. No, he whispers, his voice trembling. Good. Outside, Cheng Xian and his assistant walk towards their car. All right, that's acting, the assistant says dryly. You're overdoing it. Cheng Xian admits he knows. But to make everything look real, they can't skip the 3-day hospital checkup. He tells his assistant to arrange it. The assistant gives him a curious look. You didn't seem to harbor this much animosity towards Yufor. What's changed? Cheng Xian gets into the car, his expression turning serious. Yushun is a bastard craving the Li family's approval, he says, and we never really interacted. He ignored me, so I did the same. But then his gaze softens, his thoughts drifting to Wenyan. But you didn't see Wenyan's face that day, he murmurs. She's a Zheng family heiress. Her talents go beyond just work. Her emotional intelligence is part of it too. But when she faced Yushun, she showed that kind of expression. How badly did that scumbag hurt her to make her lose her composure? His assistant looks skeptical, wondering if he's overthinking it. I wasn't sure at first, Cheng Xian continues, but then I dug into his past and saw his true colors with my own eyes. His face hardens with disgust. He's a complete scumbag, fits in perfectly with the Li family. His assistant points out that includes Cheng Xian too. I'm the exception, Cheng Xian replies with a cheeky grin. The assistant starts to bring up the past, but Cheng Xian cuts him off. Ugh. Quit nagging, he whines, playfully covering his assistant's mouth. The assistant sighs, a knowing look on his face. So you do care about Wenyan, he states simply. Cheng Xian looks away, a faint his cheeks. While she's stunning, he admits it's hard not to pay attention to someone like her. He rests his chin on his hand, lost in thought. His assistant sighs again. I didn't realize you were such a romantic. But his thoughts are interrupted by a nagging worry. Yushun was right about one thing. Wenyan hates it the most. Cheng Xian lets out a heavy sigh, a troubled look in his eyes. I need to think about how to communicate with her over the next 3 days. Meanwhile, Wenyan is in her private gym, stretching gracefully on a yoga mat. Her movements are fluid and controlled, her expression serene. But behind her calm facade, a storm of traumatic memories rages. The image of her parents lying under a white sheet, splattered with blood. Her body collapsing as the pain of her past trauma resurfaces. The devastating cry of losing her child. She pushes the darkness away, her eyes opening with renewed focus. The memory of her ex-husband with another woman flashes in her mind, and she closes her eyes, her hands coming together in a prayer position, trying to find her center. Her assistant approaches, concerned by the sweat beading on her forehead. Are you okay? She asks. Wenyan waves it off. Who doesn't sweat when working out? Fine, just need a shower, she says, wiping her face with a towel. She then asks if those thugs have been dealt with. The assistant nods, yes, but oddly, they're staying with Yushun in the same cell. She pauses, a hint of confusion in her eyes. It seemed Mr. Li visited Yushun this morning. Wenyan's eyes narrow slightly. It seemed like he was planning to bail Yushun out. Her assistant continues, but for some reason, he didn't go through with it. And instead, he told those thugs to abuse Yushun. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touches Wenyan's lips. That's definitely his style. The assistant looks at her with concern, asking what's worrying her. I just don't want you to be upset. Wenyan shakes her head, her expression calm and resolute. No, I'm not. I've told you already. The Li family will definitely protect Yushun. Cheng Xian is part of that family. He has his own loyalties. I understand. Delaying things for a couple of days and making Yushun suffer might be the only option for him. She clenches the towel in her hand, her knuckles turning white. What I want is for everyone that the Li family, my scheming uncle Junren, and my rival Minzhen to utterly despise Yushun. Her voice drops, becoming as cold and sharp as ice. I want to ensure he loses any chance of climbing back up and is completely out of my life. He'll rot away in a dark corner, wishing he were dead, and for that to happen, he needs to be released. The evening sky painted the city in hues of soft pink and gold as Wenyan strode out of the building, an aura of cool confidence surrounding her. Her assistant Zizhen trotted dutifully behind, asking where Miss Zheng would like to go next. Perhaps a meal or the office, or should she take her home? But Wenyan's thoughts were elsewhere. She held up a hand. A silent command awaited as she answered a sudden call. Her expression hardened, her eyes closing for a moment as she listened intently. Got it, she murmured, the words barely a whisper but laced with steel. The call ended and a new, unyielding resolve settled over her. She turned to her assistant, her voice leaving no room for argument. Take me to the Zheng residence. The night deepened, the full moon a silent witness as their van sped through winding, forested roads, leaving the city far behind. Soon, an imposing, brilliantly lit gate loomed before them, the entrance to the lion's den. A line of guards in sharp black suits bowed in perfect, unnerving synchrony as the vehicle swept past them, a silent acknowledgement of the power contained within these walls. The van continued its journey up the long, private road, a solitary vessel approaching the grand, illuminated mansion that was the heart of the Zheng family's empire. It was a place of immense power and suffocating pressure. As they pulled up to the magnificent entrance, the head butler, Mr. Han, was already waiting, his posture impeccable. "Good evening, Miss Zheng," he greeted, his voice a smooth, practiced murmur. Wenyan stepped out of the van, a vision of grace and elegance, offering a polite smile. "Mr. Han, it's been a while," she replied, her tone betraying none of the tension coiling in her stomach. The old butler informed her that the master, Mr. Zheng, was expecting her, gesturing grandly toward the open doors. With a deep breath, Wenyan walked into the opulent foyer, the maids bowing low as she passed, her heels clicking softly on the polished marble. Mr. Han led her through the silent, cavernous halls, every step echoing with the weight of her family's history. They stopped before a set of massive double doors, a sleek screen mounted beside them flickering to life. Her own face stared back at her from the display, a cold, digital welcome. A disembodied voice, old and gravelly, echoed from within, telling Wenyan to come in. Mr. Han bowed slightly, prompting her to please go ahead. She pushed the heavy doors open and stepped to a vast, glass-enclosed conservatory, a world of lush greenery under the starry sky. There, in a throne-like armchair, was the patriarch himself, an old man with eyes that missed nothing. He beckoned her closer, his voice a low rumble. "Wenyan, have a seat here." This was Zheng Lung, the head of the Zheng family, and the formidable chairman of the Perpetual Group, a man whose placid appearance was betrayed by the intricate tattoos peeking from his collar and sleeve. "Grandfather," she said, her voice steady as she approached the chessboard set between them. He invited her to sit, remarking that it had been too long since they played. Of all his grandchildren, he declared she was the one whose potential he valued most. His words were a test, a reminder of the expectations she carried. "Yes, grandfather," she replied, her heart pounding a steady, nervous rhythm. Her hand trembled almost imperceptibly as she reached for a white chess piece. His gaze sharpened, colder than the winter snow. "Do you know," he asked, his voice dropping, "what holds the utmost importance for the Zheng family?" Wenyan paused, her fingers tightening around the kuloi, the weight of his question hanging heavy in the air. He didn't wait for her answer. "The Perpetual Group," he continued, "exemplifies our family's efforts, but unity is critical." His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, bored into hers. "Do you understand, Wenyan?" So this was the real reason she was summoned. He was asking if she would allow her Uncle Junren's scheming to go unchecked, to fracture their unity. He chastised her for being too careless, for giving her enemies an opportunity to strike. He closed his eyes for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable on his face, before conceding that she had, in the end, handled it quite well. He assured her he had already warned them. Her position in the automotive division was secure, a prize she had earned and that no one could take from her. A bitter storm raged within Wenyan as she clenched the chess piece in her palm. So this was his game. He would tolerate the vipers in his own family, allowing them to scheme, as long as they maintained a fragile, superficial peace. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too, a classic case of wanting it both ways. She met his gaze, seeing not a doting grandfather, but a ruthless king protecting his board. "It ends here," he declared, his voice final as he made his move, sliding a piece across the board with chilling finality. "Okay," she whispered, the single word of surrender she didn't feel. Inwardly, she seethed. Her power was still too limited, her influence too small. As long as her grandfather held all the cards, she couldn't resist his will, not yet. He offered her a reward if she played this game of his will. A small carrot to ensure her compliance. All right, she agreed, her mind already calculating her next move in a much larger game. She had to be smarter, faster. Using the knowledge from her past life, seize every chance, earn his trust, and build her own strength until she was the one in control. The next morning, as she finally left the mansion, she let out a long, shaky breath. Mr. Han noted that playing chess all night must have been tiring, but Wenyan shook her head, a small, triumphant smile on her lips. "Not at all," she said, "because it was worth it." Her grandfather had finally agreed to her request. Just then, a sleek black car screeched to a halt, and out stepped the very snake she'd been discussing. Her Uncle Junren. He feigned a warm, jovial surprise at seeing her, his laughter grating on her nerves as he asked if she'd been visiting the old man. Wenyan's expression instantly transformed into one of sweet, innocent delight. "Welcome back, Uncle Junren," she chirped, informing him that grandfather was throwing a celebration for her in a few days. She tilted her head, asking with wide, hopeful eyes if he would be coming. His face split into a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Absolutely," he boomed, promising to cheer for his excellent niece and even prepare a special gift. "Thank you in advance," she replied, her voice dripping with false gratitude. As the butler called him inside, Junren's cheerful mask slipped for a second, his gaze turning serious as he looked toward the house. He waved a final, cheerful goodbye, and she mirrored the gesture, the picture of a doting niece. But the moment she was inside her own car, the sweet facade crumbled, replaced by a gaze as cold and sharp as ice. She crossed her arms, a silent declaration of war. "Let's see what new tricks you have up your sleeve, Uncle. I'll be waiting." Later, the car ride to the hospital was quiet, and Wenyan dozed lightly against the window. "Miss Zheng, we're here," Shizen's soft voice gently woke her. They walked through a sun-drenched hospital garden, a peaceful oasis that felt worlds away from the Zheng family's cold opulence. Wenyan checked her phone, telling Zizhen that Chengxian had arrived. And there he was, sitting by a koi pond in striped hospital pajamas, headphones on, blissfully humming a nursery rhyme as he fed the fish. Wenyan couldn't resist. She snuck up and tapped his shoulder, startling him. "Wait," she teased, "were you listening to nursery rhymes with those headphones?" He jumped so violently that the entire container of fish food flew from his hands and splashed into the pond, causing a frenzy among the koi. He sputtered, completely flustered, a comical chibi version of his usual self. She laughed, asking if she scared him that much. He was so quick to recover, wiping his face and offering them some notoriously bland hospital food. Wenyan recoiled instantly. "No thanks," she said, a flash of old pain in her eyes. "I'm sick of hospital meals." Chengxian's playful mood vanished, replaced by a flicker of worry. "Are you in the hospital often?" he asked, his voice soft. She covered her slip, fabricating a story about a recent physical exam. "Ah, I see," he replied, though a shadow remained in his eyes. She quickly sent Zizhen to find them some real food, needing a moment alone. As they walked, the memories flooded back. The truth was, in her past lives, that wretched Yushun had destroyed her health, leaving her a frequent, unwilling guest in places just like this. Meanwhile, Chengxian was trapped in his own internal debate. He needed to tell her about bailing out Yushun, but how? Hiding it felt wrong, but telling her might make her furious. He glanced at her profile, his heart aching with the secrets he kept, the biggest one being his impossible journey through time. They both stopped at the same time, an unspoken tension between them. "You go first," they said in unison, the awkwardness thick enough to cut with a knife. Wenyan decided to break the silence with a random question, asking about his single earbud. He shrugged, explaining it was a habit born of carelessness. He buys them in bulk because he's always losing them. A textbook spoiled rich kid, she thought with a fond internal eye roll. He then turned the question back on her, but before she could answer, he quickly changed the subject himself, asking if she had any time off coming up. She shook her head with a weary sigh. Between the new launch and another major project, she was completely swamped. He looked crestfallen. A textbook career powerhouse, he thought, a hint of disappointment in his eyes. He led her to his private room, telling her to wait while he took a quick shower. She simply nodded, telling him to go ahead. As the water ran, he worried that she might find the situation awkward, him showering right next door. But when he emerged, a towel draped over his wet hair. He found her completely absorbed in her work, already taking a business call on her tablet. She was in her element, confidently directing her team for an afternoon meeting, the picture of a focused executive. He felt a pang of foolishness. He'd been overthinking things completely. He sat beside her, gently reminding her she didn't need to come all this way for a simple checkup. But Wenyan wasn't for small talk. She cut straight to the point, her voice low and direct. "Are you planning to bail Yushun out after your checkup?" He froze, a glass of water halfway to his lips. "How did you know?" he stammered. She continued relentlessly, revealing she knew he'd seen Yushun yesterday. Was he deliberately leaving him in jail to suffer a little longer? He sighed, the fight going out of him. He confessed that while he didn't want to help the jerk, Yushun still carried the Li family name, and his prolonged stay in jail would become a scandal. He looked at her with wide, pleading eyes, rambling that he wasn't hiding it, he just didn't know how to tell her, promising to do anything if she was mad at him. She looked at him, this sweet, flustered man, and her expression softened into something incredibly gentle. "Wenyan," he asked, his barely a whisper. "Relax," she said, her voice like a balm on his frayed nerves. "I'm not mad at you." She gave him a small, reassuring smile. "Let's go together tomorrow and bail him out, okay?" The next day, the air felt heavy as Wenyan and Chengxian arrived at the police station, a stoic guard leading the way. They walked down a sterile, echoing corridor, the atmosphere chilling as Wenyan dismissed the guard, telling him he could leave now. They stopped before a grim holding cell, where a few other detainees loitered. And there, in a separate, filthier cell, was Zhao Yushun, curled up on the cold floor, his body covered in bruises and clad only in his underwear. A blonde man with a snake-like smile sauntered up to the bars, his voice dripping with false pleasantry. "Ah, Mr. Li, Miss Zheng," he cooed, "we meet again." He gestured grandly towards the pathetic sight of Yushun on the floor. He'd been taking great care of him these days. He purred, hoping that they'd inspect his handiwork and find it their standards, even bragging about making lots of water to ensure his skin was glowing. Chengxian's handsome face tightened with impatience. Why wasn't he moving? He was on a tight schedule and couldn't waste time waiting. He snapped at the punk to get up, announcing that Mr. Li was taking him out. The blonde man's pleasant facade cracked. Was he playing hard to get? He sneered, telling him to have some shame. With a vicious kick, he roared at him to quit playing dead. The guards hauled him to his feet, a broken, bruised figure standing before the bars in nothing but his shorts, his shame on full display. Chengxian protectively pulled Wenyan closer, his voice a low murmur. Darling, he told her she wouldn't want to see this. The man was disgusting. Wenyan couldn't agree more, covering her nose as she added that he absolutely reeked. A wave of pure humiliation washed over Yushun, his head hanging low as their cutting words pierced him deeper than any physical blow. The blonde man and his crony sidled up to them, looking for their reward. So, he asked with a hopeful grin, did I do a good job? Could they be let go now? Chengxian's lips curved into a wicked smile. Oh, did they still want that fancy party in those cars? Wenyan joined in, her expression equally devilish, wondering if they still wanted to play baseball and wrestle. The men's faces went pale with terror, waving their hands frantically. No, definitely not. They wouldn't dare anymore. Wenyan waved a dismissive hand. Whatever, her assistant would handle the paperwork. Overjoyed, the men bowed deeply, thanking Mr. Li and Miss Zheng with all their hearts as the power couple turned to leave. Outside the station, Yushun stood alone in his shabby clothes, a picture of misery. Wenyan cast a cold glance in his direction. Suddenly, the screech of tires filled the air as a large, beat-up truck pulled up right in front of him. Chengxian casually explained that since no decent car would take someone like Yushun, he had to get a truck. He hoped he didn't mind. Don't worry, he added with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. It's ventilated. He wouldn't suffocate. Yushun's gaze darted to Wenyan, his eyes filled with a desperate plea. Wenyan, he choked out the words, his voice thick with emotion. He regretted everything he did to her. He wouldn't ask for her forgiveness. He just wanted to know that from now on he would stay out of her life. He would just keep the good memories, he whispered, as if that was some noble sacrifice. But Wenyan's face was a mask of pure ice. He didn't regret hurting her, her voice cutting through his pathetic act. He regretted failing. Good memories? She scoffed. Did he mean the memories of him lying, using her, and playing her for a complete fool? She was sure those were lovely memories. For him, that wasn't true. He pleaded, his face a mask of desperation. Please, believe me. He just loved her too much, Wenyan. That was his only crime. Chengxian had heard enough. He gently pulled Wenyan back, his voice firm. Wenyan, step back. You'll catch his filth. The word filth seemed to snap something inside Yushun. His expression twisted into a snarl of pure rage. He thought he was dirty, huh? Fine. Then he would make Chengxian dirty too. He lunged forward, fist flying, but Chengxian, with effortless grace, blocked the pathetic attack with the sole of his shoe. The guards immediately restrained the flailing Yushun as he screamed Chengxian's name. Chengxian looked down at his shoe, a look of utter disgust on his face. Well, this shoe was dirty now. What a shame he liked it. With no further ceremony, Yushun was unceremoniously shoved into the back of the dark truck. Chengxian turned to Wenyan, his charming smile returning instantly. Let's go buy some new ones, he suggested. Whatever you say, darling, slide softly. The heavy doors of the truck slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging Yushun into darkness. The truck rumbled to life, and he was thrown against the cold metal wall, alone and defeated. After a jarring ride, the truck stopped, and the doors creaked open. He was roughly pulled out, only to find himself standing before the grand gates of the Li residence. Panic seized him. The Li family? He couldn't be here. They couldn't see him like this. Disheveled and pathetic. They would despise him for the rest of his life. As if on cue, the truck's engine roared and it began to pull away. Wait, he screamed, his voice cracking with desperation. Don't leave me here. Stop the truck. He ran after it, his cheap slippers slapping against the pavement in a desperate rhythm. But it was no use. The truck disappeared, and he collapsed onto his knees in the middle of the road, just as a sleek red sports car screeched to a halt inches from him. He flinched, shielding his eyes from the glare. The window rolled down to reveal a stylish woman in dark sunglasses. Her lips curved slightly as she recognized the pathetic figure on the ground. Yushun? He stared back, bewildered. Did he know who was she? She lowered her glasses, revealing sharp, intelligent eyes and a predatory smile. She had been looking for him, she said smoothly. Hop in. They needed to talk. The scene shifts to a lavishly decorated room, bathed in a soft glow. Yushun sat hunched on a sofa, looking utterly out of place, while the mysterious woman stood over him. A small coiled whip stood ominously on the coffee table between them. With a soft clack, she opened a can and held it out to him. Here, she said, this will wake you up. He took it numbly, and she sat down across from him, crossing her long legs. Wasn't he going to say thank you? Thank you, he mumbled. Her voice was sharp. Who are you thanking, huh? Her foot, clad in sheer black stockings, tapped impatiently. He finally looked up, recognition dawning. Thanks. A satisfied smile spread across her face. Good boy, she purred, promising to take him out for clothes before dropping him home. This woman was Zhao Zhen, his aunt. As the illegitimate son of the Li family, Yushun had taken his mother's last name. His eyes clouded over, his voice barely a whisper. I don't have a home, his aunt scoffed. His sister put that house in her name, didn't she? He hadn't gotten a single damn cent from that inheritance. She'd sold that place ages ago, calling it tiny and falling apart. Yushun protested. It was 800 square feet with 2 bedrooms. He wouldn't have minded. Why didn't she just give it to him? He trailed off, knowing it was useless to argue. So, where had he been staying? She pressed. Did he have any cash left? He had to admit he was renting a luxury apartment, but he was also out of cash. She let out an exasperated sigh. Did he really think he could squeeze into high society like that? He'd blown through the little cash he had just trying to keep up appearances. She'd heard he was hooking up with Zheng Wenyan, the Zheng heiress. Everyone said they were practically engaged, but now that had all fallen apart. What a shame. He glared at her, his bitterness spilling over. Wasn't she trying to climb into the Li family herself? Her smirk was condescending. Yeah, but with this body, just being alive was her biggest asset. But what did he have? She changed the subject, asking how much he got from that rundown apartment she sold. Was any of that money left? He just grunted in response, turning away. She reached out, her long nails digging into his chin, forcing him to look at her. Did he know what was really sad? No one even remembered his name. He didn't blow up, not even infamously. All the public's attention was on Zheng Wenyan's new car launch, on her and the Perpetual Group's future. But as for him, after that short burst of gossip, people had moved on. He was nothing. He'd really stirred the pot, huh? But he just stirred himself into a stray dog. His hand tightened around the can, his knuckles turning white. The metal crumpled with a sharp crunch. His aunt laughed, a tinkling, cruel sound. All right, she'd stop roasting him. After all, he was her only nephew. There was no way she'd let him a stray dog. He'd just be a pampered house pet. Internally, Yushun was seething. This was all Wenyan's fault. He just wanted to use her money and connections, but that damn bitch was so stingy. She never lifted a finger to help him. Instead, she was always plotting against him, humiliating him nonstop. She grew up rich, a rightful daughter of the Zheng family. She had no idea how miserable it was to grow up as an illegitimate son like him. His aunt cut through his bitter thoughts. Stop complaining, she said. Just focus on what to do next. He could stay here for now, rent-free. She would go get him some. The tablet screen glowed with infuriating words, and Minzhen's world tilted on its axis. What? Employee housing at the logistics hub? Her perfectly manicured fingers tightened on the device, her expression a storm of disbelief and rage. She had made her desires crystal clear. She wanted the glamorous resort project. How did she end up getting saddled with this wretched, pathetic dump? Her sister sat across from her, a picture of unnerving calm in her elegant black turtleneck. It doesn't matter what you want, she stated coolly, her voice devoid of sympathy. This was the project Grant gave Dad, and now it's been passed on to you. Minzhen's denial was instantaneous and visceral. No way! A furious shriek tore from her throat as she lifted the tablet high above her head, ready to smash the insulting device into a million pieces. But Inhui's voice cut through her rage like ice. Wait. That tablet might not be worth all that much, but transferring the data and documents is still a pain. If you want to break something, break your own things. Minzhen slammed her foot on the floor, her voice a venomous hiss of pure, unadulterated snobbery. I want to build for the privileged, the wealthy, for people who know how to live. Who in their right mind wants to build housing for broke, sweaty nobodies? She reminded her sister that Dad had already mentioned a new resort project. The site was already being scouted. She placed the tablet down on the polished wood, her tone shifting from rage to a desperate, cloying plea. I'm begging you, Inhui, please, just let me work on the resort. But Inhui was a fortress, completely unmoved. Begging me won't get you anywhere, she said flatly. You should talk to Grandpa instead. The mere mention of their grandfather made Minzhen recoil as if struck. I'm afraid to. A dark thought flashed through her mind. You idiot. You're the one who should go ask him for me. Fine, changing tactics. Then who did get the resort project? A sly, calculating glint appeared in her eyes. It didn't matter, she'd just use a few tricks up her sleeve to steal it back anyway. Did it say? And Hui replied, standing up, clearly done with the conversation. If you're that curious, go ask him yourself. All right, if that's all, I'm out. As her sister walked away, Minzhen yelled after her, voice dripping with defiance. What about the logistics hub? I won't do that project. I'm not building a dumb and pixie. She spun around to storm out, but the door swung open, revealing the one person she didn't want to see. Her father stood there, his expression grim, his voice a cold slap of reality. You don't have a choice. Minzhen froze, her fury momentarily replaced by shock. Why not? She demanded. He gestured dismissively toward Inhui. Look how respectful your sister is. His voice was laced with disappointment. I'm always out working. She's off on a different vacation every week. She never disciplined you properly. Minzhen was aghast, silently swearing she would bow to his photograph every single day if he would just give her the resort project. So this isn't my idea, he continued, his tone final. It was your grandpa, who specifically asked you to lead this project. He held the tablet up to her face, forcing her to look. You have to do it, and when you do, make sure it is truly outstanding. The words slammed into her, and her widened in horror. Her inner child was throwing a tantrum, screaming in a storm of shibage. Ugh. I wanted the resort. Why should I build housing for a bunch of bodies? Gross. She looked at her father, her voice small and pleading. So who's doing the resort project then? The resort project, he said, his words sealing her fate. Your grandpa gave that. Wenyan. The name was a curse. Minzhen's eyes flew wide with a mixture of shock and incandescent fury. What? Why is it always that she ate? She shrieked, her composure shattering completely as Inhui watched, startled. Her father was baffled by her outburst. What's wrong with having Wenyan do it? I questioned her about the fake news with the electric vehicles, and she handled it like a pro. The first batch of our exclusive trucks is already on the production line because of her. The praise was a dagger to Minzhen's heart. With a crack, the tablet slipped from her numb fingers, the screen spider webbing as it hit the floor. Art. She screamed, spinning on her heel and fleeing the room, ignoring her falling her name in bewilderment. Manhua let out a heavy sigh, her shoulders slumping. Did they fight again? She knelt to pick up the broken device, her mind already analyzing the situation. From a business standpoint, employee housing is a huge deal. It affects things. Her father placed a hand on her shoulder. Keep an eye on this project, he said softly. Minzhen's still young, so she'll definitely need your help. Manhua nodded, her loyalty unwavering. Don't worry, Dad. But Minzhen was far from accepting help, her mind consumed by a black tide of jealousy. So all the glamorous, high-impact projects go to the main branch? She seethed. Bias, Dad. She burst back into her papa room where two masseuses waited patiently. Shall we continue with your massage, Miss Zheng? One of them asked gently. Minzhen's rage, looking for a target, finally found one. You think I still have time for a massage? The word was punctuated by a vicious slap that echoed through the room. The poor woman cried out, stumbling back as Minzhen glared, her eyes burning with pure hatred. It's always Wenyan. Why does she always get the good stuff? And Li Chengxian too. That whole electric vehicle mess was a huge deal, directly tied to Dad's logistics business. She paced back and forth in her dippered print slippers, a predator stalking her cage. I had to play nice then. But a resort, that's different. A slow, wicked smile spread across her face, transforming her features into something ugly and cruel. This is chance to totally ruin that batch. But how? The spy she planted was reassigned. The resort's location was a secret. How could she find out? Just then, a shrill ringing cut through her thoughts. She glanced down at her phone. Yushun. Ugh, that useless fool again, she thought with a sneer. But then an idea began to form. Yushun? She answered the call, her voice instantly melting into liquid honey. Oh, Yushun! You're okay now. Thank goodness. Let's meet up. The city glittered below the chic rooftop bar as Minzhen, now draped in an elegant white dress, sipped her wine, the perfect bait in a carefully laid trap. A voice called her name. She turned slowly, her back to the skyline. For a fleeting moment, a mask of sheer annoyance crossed her face, but it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by a dazzling smile. Oh, you're here. Great. He stood there, a complete eyesore in a cheap t-shirt and shorts, looking utterly out of place. He beamed, oblivious, looking even more gorgeous than before. She forced a tight smile. Yeah, thanks. Scrolling. What the hell is he wearing? Why am I even talking to him? He shuffled his feet awkwardly, scratching his head. So, could you help me cover the cab fare? Minzhen's smile froze on her face. What cab fare? Yeah, there are no buses out here, he explained, completely shameless. The car Wenyan gave me? She took it back. The audacity was breathtaking. You took cab and couldn't even pay the fare. She squeezed her eyes shut, fighting for control. All right, I understand. I'll take care of it. Her inner voice was a venomous shriek. I can't take this anymore. Just die already, you broke loser. Seated at a pristine white table, she watched in disgust as Yushun devoured his meal, chomping and feasting like an animal. Aren't you eating anything, Minzhen? He asked, his mouth full. She waved a delicate hand. No, I'm good. I'm currently on a diet. He just laughed. All right then. More for me. As he gulped down his water, she felt a wave of nausea. Without Wenyan's care, he's become a disgusting pig. He let out a loud, satisfied burp. That really hit the spot. This was her opening. Her smile was saccharine sweet. I'm glad. Well, actually, Yushun, I need you to do me a favor. His interest was piqued. She leaned forward, her expression crumbling into one of profound sadness. Wenyan, she snatched a major project right out of my hands. Just as she predicted, he flew into a protective rage. What? Doesn't that bitch have enough already? Why is she stealing from you? That's messed up. Minzhen pressed her advantage, her voice trembling. Yeah, so what should we do? I'm totally cut off from her now, but maybe you could be my insider to get that project back. Her gleamed. You still have her personal information, right? Like her ID number? He nodded, confused. Yeah, from when I used to run errands for her. But what good is that? You want to hire trolls to harass her? No, we can't stoop that low. She scoffed internally. As if that would even work. She has an assistant. No, she explained patiently, as if to a child. I want you to use her info to check for upcoming flights, then track her credit card charges at the destination. Her plan began to unfold. Maybe that way we can find out where this major project is. A resort, perhaps. Her fist clenched on the table. Even if I'm not working on it, I just want tabs. She looked at him, her eyes wide and pleading. You don't think that's inappropriate, do you? He grabbed her hand, his expression full of misguided chivalry. Of course not. You've always been so kind-hearted, Minzhen. Don't worry, I'll definitely help you. Hook, line, and sinker. She flinched at his touch, but quickly masked it. Thanks, Yushun. She looked at him with what she hoped was adoration. But he began hesitantly, I'll need some money to get started, and right now I'm a bit. She waved it off immediately. Don't worry. I'll wire you some money soon. You're just going through a rough patch. She thought. Her mind was already spinning a web of deceit. Once Wenyan sees what a player Changxian is, she'll come running back to you. A worthless loser like you belongs by her side. Suddenly, Yushun stood up, his face serious. No. After everything, Minzhen, I've finally figured it out. She looked up at him confused. Figured what out? He leaned down, his hand gently cupping her chin, forcing her to meet his intense gaze. You're the only one for me. I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's make it official. His face was reflected in her wide, horrified eyes. Huh? She physically recoiled, but her recovery was swift, her acting skills kicking into high gear. Yushun, in my heart, you're a strong, capable person who never gives up. I can wait. I'll wait as long as it takes. So don't give up or something so small. She jumped to her feet, desperate for an escape. Well, it's getting late. I need to go now. My dad doesn't like it if I stay out too late. He smiled, completely besotted. Okay, don't forget to wire me the money, Minzhen. She didn't bother replying. She practically fled, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm on the polished floor. The moment she was alone, her beautiful face twisted into a mask of pure disgust. He touched me. E-W-E-W. Gross. She burst into the lavish bathroom, scrubbing her hands raw under the faucet. He's so greasy and disgusting. Doesn't he own a mirror? How dare he touch me? She scrubbed at her chin where his fingers had been. Wait a minute. This was another spot I touched earlier. Broke loser trying to tie me down? Should have just ghosted him. I hope he gets hit by a car. Glaring at her reflection, water dripping from her face, her hatred found its true target. It's all your fault, Wenyan, that I have to endure this humiliation. I'm gonna make you pay. Miles away, in the quiet of her office, Wenyan let out an unexpected sneeze. Her assistant looked up concerned. Should I adjust the temperature, Miss Zhang? You seem cold. Wenyan smiled faintly, dabbing her nose. No, I think it's probably just someone talking about me behind my back. That would probably be Zhao Yushun. Xiamen placed a meal on her desk. It's time to eat. I'll eat in a bit. Wenyan said, all business. Any news on the guy from the quality report? Just as you predicted, Xiamen confirmed. The police found the mole and proof of corporate espionage. Our legal team is on it. They know the mole sold the data, but the buyer vanished without a trace. Wenyan wasn't surprised. That's to be expected. Uncle Junren is good at this. No wonder he's held onto logistics for so long. She leaned back, a calculating look in her eyes. Graham brushed off the conflict, saying no harm was done. Now, I'll have to use the foresight from my rebirth to build my influence step by step. Hyman's curiosity shifted. Are you really going on a honeymoon with Mr. Li? Wenyan stretched languidly, a rare moment of relaxation. Yeah, the automotive business is stable. The managers can handle it. It's time to dive into some new ventures. Xiamen beamed. Oh, I understand. A honeymoon to recharge before jumping back into work. I'm glad you're finally taking a break. Wenyan gazed out at the sprawling city. I'm already taking a break, Xian, sleeping and resting just like everyone else. Xiamen's face was a picture of confusion. But didn't you just say you're going on a honeymoon? A serene, unshakable confidence settled on Wenyan's features as she turned back. It might seem odd to some, but I don't see why a honeymoon and work can't go hand in hand. The morning sun streamed into the room as Wenyan faced her grandfather across a chessboard, a silent battle of wits between them. He let out a soft chuckle, his eyes filled with a mixture of pride and amusement. Her chess skills had leveled up so quickly he could barely keep up. Dabbing her brow with a handkerchief, Wenyan feigned exhaustion, pointing out that she'd already used 2 handkerchiefs and had truly given it her all. The old man's doting expression sharpened to that of a cunning patriarch, cutting straight to the chase. So, what is it that you want? Without a moment's hesitation, Wenyan's eyes gleamed with determination. She wanted the new resort project. A shadow crossed her grandfather's face, his gaze turning icy as he sized her up. Reaching for real estate after just a few small waves in the automobile business was pretty ambitious, wasn't it? But Wenyan's smile was unwavering, filled with a confidence that bordered on audacious. Isn't that exactly why you like me? She countered, her voice smooth as silk. She was confident that she could nail this. Her grandfather leaned back, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. He had to admit, she definitely had the ambition and the skills. Her dad had raised her well. Still, he offered a safer path, a more modest start. Her uncle Junren's logistics hub needed employee housing, a small project to cut her teeth on. Jumping into his turf might make him upset, he warned, and the resulting tension would be bad for the company's development. With a shrewdness that belied her years, Wenyan met his gaze, explaining that she was thinking about the company's future too. Her grandfather's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of suspicion creeping in. The resort's location hadn't even been decided yet, kept under wraps to avoid leaks or competition. How did she even know about it? Wenyan's heart skipped a beat, her mind raced, a cold sweat forming on her back. Obviously, she couldn't just tell him she'd been reborn. She needed an excuse and fast. With a masterful pivot, she played it off as a brilliant guess, claiming she was just thinking that a project like that was needed, and she wanted to convince him to start one so she could handle it. The old man stared at her, utterly dumbfounded by her sheer audacity. For a moment, there was a shocked silence. Then a hearty laugh erupted from him, echoing in the sunlit room. "Okay, you win," he declared, rising from his chair. He would give her the files. But as he passed her, his voice dropped, carrying the full weight of his expectations. "Don't disappoint me, Wenyan." She stood firm, her voice steady and sure. She wouldn't, Grandpa. Later, in the quiet hum of an airport lounge, Wenyan rested with a neck pillow, the weight of her plans settling on her. Assistant, Miss Zhang gently woke her. The news was troubling. Airline staff had mentioned that Jiang's people were using connections to dig up details on her itinerary with Mr. Li. The name made Wenyan's head spin. Jiang. She'd almost forgotten about that wretched pest. Why on earth was he tracking her? Miss Zhang provided the missing piece. Xianzhen had been in touch with Zhao Yushun recently. A cold, predatory smile touched Wenyan's lips. She had been planning to deal with Yushun later, but it seemed he was bouncing back faster than she expected. Her orders were swift and precise. Keep him occupied for now, distract him. Miss Zhang nodded, and Wenyan then asked about Chengxian. He had just stepped out to take a call. Elsewhere, Chengxian stood by a window, his handsomes marred by a frown as he listened to his phone. Was our trail. "He's how annoying," he muttered. The man was just like a cockroach, jumping around. His voice became chillingly calm as he gave his orders. "How about sending him on a wild goose chase overseas? Get some friends to handle it, legally of course, and send a few invitations he won't forget." He was sure Jiang would like that. If he had just stayed hidden in his little corner, Chengxian wouldn't even have cared. But planning to mess with him and Wenyan on their honeymoon, he was just asking for it. A dangerous, almost cruel smile played on his lips. Just then, a voice called his name, breaking his dark thoughts. He turned to see a woman with blonde hair waving enthusiastically. It was an old classmate, exclaiming about what a long time it had been and asking if he was heading to LA too. "What a coincidence," she chirped, her eyes sparkling a little too brightly. Chengxian's expression remained neutral as he gave a curt reply before trying to walk away. But she stopped him, asking if he had a minute to chat since it had been a while. She lamented that they hadn't been in touch at all since graduation. He forced a polite smile, quickly shutting her down. He'd been good, but he had to go now. Bye. The woman was left standing there, her smile frozen on her face. Chengxian rejoined Wenyan just as boarding was announced. She glanced up, asking if his call was anything urgent. He immediately softened, his entire demeanor changing as he looked at her. Right now, his main priority was traveling with her as her bodyguard, translator, and ATM. Wenyan smirked, crossing her arms playfully. She'd admit he wasn't bad at fighting, but as a translator or ATM, he still needed to prove himself. He leaned in, his voice a low murmur meant only for her. "You really should just keep mooching off me." As they walked down the jet bridge, she wondered aloud why they didn't just fly private. Getting approvals for private jets takes forever, he explained with a sigh, so for now they had to settle for first class. Once they were seated in the luxurious cabin, the blonde woman from the lounge suddenly appeared. She looked around, her eyes landing on Chengxian. A moment later, she let out a theatrical gasp and stumbled forward. She fell with a soft oof, landing directly in Chengxian's lap. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she cried out, her face buried against his chest as she panicked. She claimed she slipped and would get up right away. Chengxian, with an expression of pure annoyance, helped her back to her feet. She apologized profusely for all the trouble she'd caused. He replied with a strained smile, telling her not to worry and that she should just ditch those shoes and get a better brand next time. She eagerly promised she would. He immediately turned to Wenyan, a worried look on his face, clearly expecting some kind of reaction. "Wenyan's not mad, is she?" he thought, feeling a pang of anxiety. "I didn't do anything wrong there." But Wenyan hadn't even noticed, her attention completely absorbed by her phone and the laptop in front of her. Miss Zheng pointed out the emails that needed her attention, and Wenyan simply nodded. Chengxian's face fell into a comical pout. "She didn't even spare me a glance. What a complete workaholic." Suddenly, the blonde woman peeked over the seat, her voice chirpy. "What a coincidence. We bumped into each other at the lounge, and now we're on the same flight." Wenyan finally looked up, her gaze sweeping over the woman with glacial indifference. Undeterred, the woman Shenjuer beamed at Chengxian, asking if they were heading to LA for vacation and offering to be their tour guide. Then how about add my contact info," she pressed. "That way I can help you right away if you need anything." She pouted, reminding him that he never showed up to class reunions and cut everyone off after graduation. She even asked where they were staying so they could grab dinner. Chengxian held up a hand, his patience clearly gone. "Wait, what are you?" he began before composing himself. "Thanks, Shenjuer, but I'm goody," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He then flagged down a flight attendant, loudly asking for an eye mask and a blanket as an excuse to end the conversation. Defeated, Juer could only say, "Oh, okay. Well, have a good nap." Miss Zheng leaned over to Wenyan, whispering to ask if she knew what was going on. Wenyan didn't even look up from her work, her voice low and dismissive. "It doesn't matter," she said, "just ignore it and focus on work." The plane soared through the sky, a silver speck against the vast blue. After they landed, Shenjuer rushed after them, calling out for Chengxian to wait up. The man's glasses couldn't hide the shock in his eyes. Honeymoon? The word hung in the air, unbelievable. She was married? It was so sudden, how could he have possibly missed something so monumental? His gaze flickered to the handsome man standing beside her, an arm draped possessively around her waist. A bitter thought surfaced, wasn't she previously with, but he quickly pushed it down. No, now was not the time to make things awkward. Wenyan offered a gentle, apologetic smile, the city lights sparkling behind her. She explained that some things had happened, complications arose, and it all turned out this way, rather suddenly. She gracefully made the introduction, gesturing to the stunned man. This was her good friend, Junchu. Then, her hand rested on beside her, her voice soft but firm, and this was her husband, Chengxian. Junchu forced a polite smile, extending a hand. It was nice to meet him. The two men clasped hands, a current of unspoken rivalry passing between them as Chengxian coolly replied, likewise. A spark of recognition flashed in Junchu's eyes. Oh, now he remembered. He was the infamous 12th heir of the Li family's Starshine Group, right? He'd heard plenty about him, but never imagined they would meet under these circumstances. Chengxian's smile was smooth as silk. He hoped it wasn't all bad press Junchu had heard. A bit too quickly. Of course not. He'd heard Chengxian had truly mastered of enjoying life, a subtle jab suggesting that business might be a bit too easy for him. Chengxian simply thanked him for the compliment, his eyes glinting. But from what Wenyan said earlier, wasn't Junchu supposed to run the marriage by her first? The question was a velvet-covered dagger. Junchu stumbled over his words. Oh no, not at all. As the Zheng family's doctor and a close friend, he thought he might at least get a wedding invitation. Wenyan stepped in, explaining that they didn't have a ceremony. They just signed the papers. He was just being too low-key, Junchu lamented. Chengxian leaned into her, a silent claim of ownership. Wenyan admitted she just didn't have the energy for all that right now. An awkward silence stretched between the three of them under the night sky. Trying to break the tension, Wenyan turned to Junchu. Speaking of which, what was he doing here? Wasn't he supposed to be in Boston for training? He explained he was here with colleagues for a conference and decided to unwind for the evening, never expecting to run into her. Wenyan asked how it was going. It must be exhausting. As she followed him, Chengxian trailed closely behind her, his gaze never leaving Junchu. His eyes narrowed, a silent storm brewing beneath his calm exterior as he listened to their conversation. Junchu's face lit up. It was tough, he admitted, but completely worth it. He was so grateful her family had given him this chance. Wenyan shook her head, her voice full of genuine respect. He earned it with his talent, she insisted. Her family didn't sponsor him out of kindness, and he, of all people, should know that. He smiled warmly, mentioning that with the Zheng family's next generation on the way, his new pediatric knowledge would be essential. As a waiter offered them wine, Junchu accepted a glass. He knew he was being invested in, and he would dedicate himself completely to the Zheng family. He raised his glass, his expression resolute. He was completely okay with that. Wenyan mirrored the gesture. Gaining something always comes at the cost of giving something up, she said thoughtfully. Not everyone understands that trade-off. She thanked him, and they clinked glasses. She took a delicate sip, the red liquid staining her lips. Junchu's gaze on her was intense, filled with a desperate longing. Wenyan, I want to protect you, the words screamed in his mind. As she turned away, he watched her go, his heart aching with unspoken feelings. He finally gathered his courage. Wenyan, actually. She turned back, a questioning on her lips, but his nerve failed him. It's been a long day, he said instead. Maybe they should get some rest. Chengxian was suddenly there, holding a glass, a triumphant glint in his eyes. Wenyan let out an adorable little yawn, agreeing that he was right. Junchu told her to go on, he'd be in town for a few more days. Chengxian wrapped a protective arm around her, and she told Junchu they'd keep in touch. As Chengxian led her away, Junchu was left standing alone, watching them disappear, his world crumbling. Why did she get married so suddenly? The question tormented him. It had to be a marriage of convenience, with no real feelings involved, right? His hand tightened around his wine glass until his knuckles were white. Otherwise, why would she choose some rich playboy over him, when he had been working so hard just to be worthy of standing by her side? His mournful thoughts were shattered by his colleagues, who slapped him on the back, asking if his friend had left and pulling him in for a drink. The world moved on, but he was stuck in the moment she walked away. Back in the penthouse suite, the air was thick with tension. Wenyan sighed. All right, they were in the room now. He could stop trying to stake his claim. Chengxian looked genuinely baffled. What was she talking about? She told him Junchu was a close, trustworthy friend. There was no need to put on a show for him. His expression hardened, the playfulness gone. A show? Did she really think he'd been pretending this whole time? She was completely unfazed. Yeah, just like when he pretended to be a loving husband in front of Minzhen and Yushun. She patted his shoulder dismissively. Relax, it's not necessary. Junchu isn't that kind of person. His hand shot out, grabbing her shoulder, his voice low and dangerous. Oh, really? Then what kind of person is he? She met his intense gaze without flinching. She already told him someone she completely trusts. Did he not catch that? His voice was strained. He heard her, loud and clear. With that, turned on his heel, his back rigid. I'm gonna bed. The bedroom door slammed shut with a deafening bam, leaving Wenyan standing alone in the living room. What on earth was that about? Was he just stressed from the trip? He was supposed to be a carefree playboy, not this moody child. She sighed, shaking her head. She guessed it was true. Boys never really grow up. What a typical spoiled rich boy. But behind the door, Chengxian leaned against the cold wood, his heart aching. What about me, Wenyan? What exactly am I to you? Just someone helping you fake it? A business partner with a signed contract. His eyes flew open in sudden, horrified realization. Oh wait, he never even signed that. The memories flooded back their first meeting, her offering him a job, his hesitation, and then her simple words. Hi. That was all it took. He had agreed to everything, rushing out to help her deal with Yushun's harassment without a second thought for the paperwork. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through his messages. He still hadn't the contract. He guessed she had probably forgotten about it too. A bitter laugh escaped him. Who would have thought the meticulous Wenyan would make such a slip-up? He stood in the darkness, a heavy sigh escaping his lips. Either she didn't think much of him at all, or the ghost of Yushun still loomed too large in her mind. He collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling utterly adrift. That was the situation back then. But surely after all this time, things had changed. At that very moment, Wenyan was on the phone, musing to herself. Does he still exist in her world? An assistant's voice on the line brought her back to reality, asking about the marriage contract with Chengxian. Yes, that was the one. Her assistant explained that while sorting files, she'd found the unfinalized contract Wenyan herself had drafted. Wenyan's eyes widened slightly in remembrance. Oh, she must have completely overlooked it. She had been so busy trying to convince him and deal with Yushun's threats that once he agreed, she'd simply set it aside and forgotten. A light bulb went off in her head. Her assistant's voice faded into the background as she pieced it together. That must be it. Chengxian hadn't seemed serious about cooperating because he felt awkward asking about the contract. That's why he threw a tantrum earlier. He's been holding a grudge this whole time. A wave of understanding, mixed with a little amusement, washed over her. She immediately instructed her assistant to send the contract over right away. The next day, the sun streamed into the suite. Wenyan emerged, greeting awaiting Chengxian. Good afternoon. Did you sleep well? He nodded, asking about her plans for the day. Internally, he breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed she'd forgiven him for his childish tantrum. She was so sweet. He handed her a fresh cup of coffee. She accepted it, thinking to herself that he seemed to have calmed down, letting her mistake slide once again. What a thoughtful guy. With the tension broken, she playfully challenged him to a match, guessing his golf skills must be incredible. He laughed, readily agreeing. On the lush green course, they looked like a perfect couple, ready for a day of friendly competition. Later, Chengxian graciously admitted defeat. Her skills were no joke, he'd lost square. She gently wiped the sweat from his back with a towel, teasing that he wasn't too bad himself. He'd made her work for the win. He beamed, feeling the warmth of her attention. As they relaxed by the golf cart, he admitted this was his first time at this exclusive place. Just then, a cheerful voice called out her name. It was Mr. Kasparis, the owner, who greeted her with a warm, friendly hug. He was delighted to see them enjoying his turf, and Wenyan gave him a glowing review. She made the introductions, and the two men shook hands. Mr. Kasparis joked that her marriage was a surprise, as been planning to set her up with his swimmer nephew. Chengxian's face contorted into a comical pout. What was wrong with his physique? Everyone laughed at his jealousy, and Mr. Kasparis clapped him on the back, admitting he was just kidding. He then insisted on giving them a personal tour of the grounds. Wenyan was happy to tag along wherever he wanted to go. The tour quickly turned into a business discussion, Mr. Kasparis pointing out various features. Wenyan was deeply engrossed, analyzing the potential. Even Chengxian had to admit her business acumen was impressive. That evening, back in their suite, Wenyan was still buzzing with ideas, pacing as she talked through the potential collaboration with Mr. Kasparis. He was a sincere and enthusiastic partner. It would be a solid choice. She sat down, already deep in planning mode, rattling off details about naming rights, revenue shares, and tournament opportunities. She absent-mindedly called out his name, lost in her thoughts. Wenyan. When he didn't answer, so she called again, a little louder. Wenyan? He appeared beside her, holding out a glass of water. His voice was soft but heavy with a familiar disappointment. They were on their honeymoon, right? So why was she so focused on work again? Before she could answer, a sharp knock echoed from the door. It was her assistant. She stood there, tablet in hand, ready to discuss her preliminary research report on the hotel. Chengxian's hopeful expression crumbled. The golf tour, the hotel research. He looked at her, the woman he's trying so hard to understand, and a painful realization dawned him. His hand, which had been reaching for hers, fell to his side. So, this isn't really a honeymoon, is it? The assistant's words hung in the air, a polite dismissal suggesting Wenyan head back to her room, promising she would find her in a bit. Chengxian simply agreed, a quiet okay, sure, sealing the moment. But once they were alone, the atmosphere shifted, becoming heavy with unspoken truths. He finally confessed, his voice low, that he should have explained this to her beforehand. This trip wasn't just their honeymoon. It was a cover for him to do research on an upcoming real estate project. The words struck Wenyan like a physical blow, and the last of her hope shattered, so there was no honeymoon at all. She was just a tool, a convenient excuse for him to travel abroad for work, her heart sinking with the bitter realization. She reached for his hand, her voice trembling as she tried to explain herself, to take back the coldness in her heart, but the words wouldn't come out. Just what, he asked, his own voice laced with a gentle confusion, urging her to speak. She couldn't tell him the truth, that a wall of ice had formed around her heart, that there was no one she could trust, especially not a man she barely knew. His hand gently covered hers, a silent offer of comfort and warmth that she felt she didn't deserve. His gaze was devastatingly sincere as he looked down at her, promising whatever she said, he would listen and believe her without a single doubt. Her name left his lips like a prayer, a soft whisper that echoed in the quiet room. Her eyes widened, stunned by the raw vulnerability in his promise. "Trust me," he pleaded, his voice a balm and a poison all at once. "I'll always have your back." The word trust was a trigger, a gunshot in the silence of her mind, and she recoiled as if burned, a panicked no tearing from her throat. He lurched forward, his face a mask of shock and concern, asking what was wrong, if she was okay. She clutched her chest, her body trembling as she fabricated an excuse, claiming she was just tired and needed to rest. Though his worry was palpable, he relented, urging her to get some rest as she practically fled the room, leaving him standing there utterly bewildered. Walking down the sterile hotel corridor, her mind was a battlefield. A desperate voice screamed that he was great, that he would never hurt her. But a darker, more cynical whisper hissed back, warning her not to trust him, that he was just pretending, that he would become another Yushun, another man who would betray her. The elevator dinged, its sound sharp and intrusive. The doors slid open to reveal Junchu, who looked surprised to see her standing there, so pale and lost. She managed a weak greeting, but the last of her strength gave out. She collapsed forward, falling right into his arms as he cried out her name in alarm. From the end of the hall, Chengxian watched, his heart freezing in his chest as he saw the woman he'd just vowed to protect crumble in the arms of another man. The image was seared into his mind. Junchu holding her, guiding her into the elevator as the doors began to close, shutting him out. He was left alone, the silence of the hallway suffocating as he leaned against the wall, a wave of desolation washing over him. Junchu and the assistant rushed into the room, calling out Miss Zheng's name in a panic, gently helping her lie down on the bed. Wenyan was drenched in a cold sweat, her face pale as she lay against the pillows. The assistant hovered over her, anxiously asking if she was okay. Wenyan forced a weak laugh, brushing it off as exhaustion from playing golf, insisting she would be fine after some rest. Yunchu appeared at her bedside with a glass of water, his expression deeply concerned. She accepted it with a quiet thanks, the cool glass a small comfort in her trembling hands. She then asked what he was even doing there. The assistant quickly explained she had run into him at the elevator right after Wenyan had sent her away. Yunchu added that his sister had noticed the tense vibe between Wenyan and Chengxian and had grown worried, so he came to check on her. Though Wenyan quickly told them not to jump to conclusions, she tried to dismiss them, insisting she was fine and they should get back to work. But Junchu's gaze was piercing as he quietly asked if Chengxian was the cause of this. She immediately denied it, her voice firm, claiming it was her own problem and begging him not to mention this to anyone else. Junchu stood, his concern still etched on his face, clarifying he was just worried about her. She waved a dismissive hand, repeating that she just needed rest. After a moment's hesitation, who finally left the room, walking out into the hallway, only to come face to face with Chengxian. The air crackled with tension as Junchu's voice cut through the silence, cold and sharp. "Even if you can't make Wenyan happy," he said, "you at least shouldn't hurt her." His glare was accusatory, his posture rigid with indignation. Chengxian's lips twisted into a cynical smirk. "Oh, is that what she told you?" he drawled, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Junchu shot back that she didn't have to say a thing. Her distress was obvious to anyone with eyes. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low growl, telling Chengxian that if he couldn't even show her basic respect, he should at least try to act like a man. Otherwise, Junchu warned, his eyes like chips of ice, he'd start to seriously question his family's upbringing. Chengxian let out a short, humorless laugh, so now he was going after his whole family. How amusing. He didn't realize, he quipped, that a wild imagination was a prerequisite for becoming a doctor, asking if Junchu just pulled his baseless accusations out of thin air. Chengxian's eyes narrowed, the mockery falling away to reveal a dangerous glint. "What's your deal?" he snarled. "You don't know a damn thing." The murderous aura between them was so thick you could cut it with a knife. He declared with chilling finality that Wenyan was his legally married wife, that their relationship was great, and that Junchu would never stand a chance, not even as a backup. A passing couple, cooing sweet nothings to each other, froze in their tracks, sensing the palpable animosity. They whispered about how scary the two men looked for scurrying away. Junchu merely scoffed, turning his back on Chengxian to press the elevator button. And the confrontation. He cast one last, lingering look at his rival before the doors slid shut. Alone again, Chengxian's bravado crumbled, leaving him looking lost and troubled. He found himself outside her door, his hand raised, but he couldn't bring himself to knock. Inside, the assistant was tending to Wenyan when a soft knock echoed through the room. think Yunshu had returned. She opened the door only to find Chengxian standing there, his expression gentle and searching. He asked if he could see Wenyan, but the assistant put a finger to her lips, whispering that she had just fallen asleep. He waved off her offer to pass on a message, telling her to just let Wenyan rest, that he would reach out later. With a polite farewell, the assistant closed the door, leaving him once more alone in the empty hall. The heavy door shut with a soft click. But inside, Wenyan wasn't asleep at all. Her eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, lost in the storm of her own thoughts. Later that night, Chengxian sat alone at a bar, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, trying to pinpoint the exact moment everything had gone so wrong. Why had she changed so suddenly? The memory of her pained expression, her stammered words, and his own earnest promise to believe her played over and over in his mind. Was it when he said, "Trust me"? He tormented himself with the question. Did she not need his support? Was that it? Then, a sudden blinding realization struck him. No, that wasn't it. She was just too afraid to trust him, too broken to let him help her. A surge of white-hot fury coursed through him, his hand clenching into a fist. It was all Yushun's fault, that bastard. It was the fault of those wretched people from the Zheng family. They were the ones who had poisoned the very word trust for her, giving her a visceral, painful reaction to it. And he, like an idiot, had never even realized it. As he stewed in his anger and regret, a figure stumbled into him with a startled cry. A blonde woman in a provocative black dress feigned an apology, her eyes widening in mock surprise. Oh, what a coincidence, Chengxian. She clung to his arm, her voice sickly sweet as she remarked on how small the city was. A flash of memory hit him. This was the same woman who had tried to extort him before. He ripped his arm away from her grasp, his disgust evident. His voice was ice as he informed her that his lawyer would be sending her an official letter. The woman stared, utterly dumbfounded. Was he serious? Was this handsome man completely blind to her charms? Or perhaps, she mused, he was the type who disliked aggressive women and her forwardness had backfired. She walked away, approaching a shadowy figure in a hoodie. "Did you get the shot?" she asked, her voice low and conspiratorial. The figure nodded, replying that the photos were a little blurry, but that just left more room for imagination. They showed her the cameras display two perfect staged photos of her clinging intimately to a stone-faced Chengxian, looking for all the world like a couple. A triumphant smile spread across her face. Perfect. She could use these to finally get her family off her back about finding a husband. She was killing two birds with one stone, advancing her career and her personal life in one fell swoop. But her primary target was still out of reach. She still needed to make Chengxian notice her for real. A wicked idea began to form in her mind, a sly, dangerous glint in her eyes. With these photos, she could definitely set something up. Elsewhere, the other blonde woman from the matchmaking event, Minzhen, was in the middle of a yoga session. When her phone buzzed insistently, it was her friend, her voyantic on the other end. "You have to see this. One of the girls in our circle posted a picture and then deleted it. You have to check your DMs. Minzhen sighed, utterly uninterested in petty gossip. But her friend was persistent, exclaiming that everyone was already talking about it. With an annoyed tap, she opened her phone, her eyes scanning the screen before widening in absolute shock. It was a picture of Chengxian with the scheming blonde from the bar. Couldn't be possible. A surge of jealous rage flooded her. Chengxian gone blind. How could he ignore a catch like her, only to fancy some obvious trash like that? A furious voice cuts through the air, dripping with venom. Where the hell did that photo, and who was that wretched woman in it? A sinister glint appears in her eyes as she decides she has to get rid of this rival who dares to steal the guy she's into. She paces the floor, a cruel plan forming in her mind. No, wait. Just taking her out would be far too easy, far too merciful. A wicked smirk curls her lips as she holds her phone, a much more delicious plan taking root. There was someone else she needed to tell. How could she possibly miss the chance to let his wife know her husband was a filthy cheater? A chilling laugh escapes her lips as she imagines the chaos to come. Meanwhile, far away from the scheming, our protagonist Wenyan is peacefully cleaning the floor when the sharp ding of her phone shatters the quiet. She reaches for the device, her brow furrowed in curiosity. But as her eyes land on the screen, they wind in pure shock, a cold dread washing over her. On the other end of the line, her assistant Zheng, sitting in a pristine bathroom, asks what in the world is going on with that photo she just sent. Wenyan's hand trembles, her mind racing. She stammers into the phone, her voice barely a whisper, insisting she doesn't know, that this isn't what it looks like. Suddenly, a calm, collected voice takes over the call. It's her boss, Miss Zheng. Go ahead, she says, her tone unnervingly serene. Tell me what's going on. Zheng looks on with deep concern as Miss Zheng calmly examines the incriminating photo on her own phone. The image is damning. Wenyan's husband, Chengxian, with a blonde woman clinging to his arm. But Miss Zheng merely raises her eyebrow, a small, dismissive smile on her lips. What was the big deal? Why was everyone so worked up? She had been around long enough, she mused, to be used to all the drama that goes on in this world. Zheng stands beside her, trying to placate Wenyan over the phone. Her voice is filled with worry as she tells Wenyan not to get upset. Maybe it was all just a misunderstanding. Miss Zheng simply tells her to forget it. Honestly, she didn't even care if it was a misunderstanding. Marrying him was a total accident, a desperate move to escape a trap family had set. There were no deep feelings, and certainly no betrayal. She admits she was also at fault for not following through with their marriage contract, and besides, things between them had been getting kind of weird lately. Enough about that, she declared, brushing it all aside. It was time to get back to business. She wanted to go over the research Zheng had done. She gestures for her assistant to join her. They sit down together, ready to work. But as Zheng opens her laptop, her expression is filled with disbelief. Was Miss Zheng truly so unaffected by this? Could the infidelity of her husband truly not bother her at all? The scene shifts to a montage of their seemingly perfect life together, a life of quiet domesticity and shared moments. A simple good morning exchanged in their sunlit home. Their faces are relaxed, comfortable in each other's presence. She offers him a cup of coffee. He declines with a smile, needing to hop in the shower before heading out. They're seen bowling, his form perfect as he sends the ball flying down the lane. They collaborate at work, discussing designs, her sharp eyes pointing out that a concept isn't suitable and needs to be revised. They're carefree and happy, driving in a convertible with friends, shouting with joy. Back in the present, Wenyan works late into the night, her face illuminated by the glow of her laptop. A soft knock on her door breaks her concentration. "Come in," she calls out. Chengxian enters, holding a large envelope, observing that it looked like she'd had a busy day. She agrees her day was pretty good and mentions she has something to discuss, but tells him to go first. He hands her the envelope, explaining he got her the reference materials and contacts for her new project. She takes it, her eyes wide with surprise. Inside is a treasure trove. Contacts for top-tier designers, an intro letter from a luxury furniture maker, even the address of a vintage liquor collector. What was all this? She asks, absent by the gesture. He smiles gently, explaining that his contacts extend far beyond the entertainment industry. Whether she was looking to build a golf course or a grand hotel, he could help and he'd be happy to. He wasn't trying to pressure her. They had plenty of time to get to know each other. Could take it slow. His gaze is warm and sincere, completely disarming her. Her heart skips a beat. His emotional intelligence was off the charts. After his slip-up yesterday, he was knowing his sincerity not with words but with actions. He was right. Trust and emotions take time to build, no matter the relationship. She clutches the envelope, the words she had planned to say dying on her lips. He asks what she wanted to talk to him about. She hesitates, her mind flashing to the marriage contract still open on her laptop. Was this really the right time to bring it up? To try straighten things out? Would even want that right now. She quickly changes the subject, suggesting they go sailing and deep-sea diving in a couple of days. His face lights up with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever. Of course. Time went for. He was always down. She stands, explaining she'll just drop the file with Zheng. As she walks out of the room, he watches her go, a thoughtful look on his handsome face. He stands alone for a moment in the quiet room. Then, with purpose, he walks towards the bed where she left her laptop. He reaches down for it. His expression is unreadable as he picks up the device. He sits on the edge of the bed, his hand hovering over the open screen. With a soft click, he shuts it. A tiny, frustrated version of him appears. Skull, I'm stupid. If he messed things up with her again, it would be a complete disaster. He places the closed laptop gently back on the bedspread and walks out. He closes the door softly behind him. But he wasn't alone. A picture on a phone screen captures the entire moment, him sitting on her bed. Wenyan looks at the photo, a small, knowing smile gracing her lips. Maybe she should trust him just a little more. She lowers her phone, a sense of peace settling over her. The next day, at a lavish restaurant, a group of so-called friends are gossiping. A fiery redhead asks Shen Juer, the blonde from the photo, if she's really dating Cheng Xian, the son of the prestigious Li family. Juer plays the innocent victim, explaining they were just old college classmates who happened to run into each other at a bar. She sighs dramatically, feigning disbelief that photos of them would be leaked. The redhead scoffs with blatant jealousy. Cheng Xian could have anyone he wanted. Why would he ever go for Juer? It was probably just a fling, and she shouldn't delude herself into thinking she was about to marry into wealth. Her internal thoughts are even more vicious, dripping with envy. A man at the table chimes in, telling them to cut the nonsense. Even if it was just a fling, the breakup money alone would set her up for life. Another man leans in eagerly, asking when her next meetup with the tycoon is so he can tag along and befriend him. He's quickly shut down, but he persists, claiming that as her big brother, it's his right to meet her boyfriend. The two men look like vultures circling their prey. The women exchange looks of pure disgust, shameless. The redhead seethes internally, annoyed by her friend's sudden change in attitude. She's fuming, wishing she had been the girl in that photo. Meanwhile, Shen Juer smirks to herself, popping a piece of food into her mouth. If this scandal blew up even more, she'd have clients lining up to cozy up to her. This was a golden opportunity. Suddenly, their meal is interrupted by a formidable-looking woman flanked by her friends. "Are you Shen Jewer?" she demands, her voice low and threatening. When Jewer responds with a confused, "Huh," the woman's eyes flash with fury. "Are you hard of hearing or simply deaf?" With a violent tug, she rips the tablecloth from under their plates, sending everything crashing to the floor with a deafening clang. She lunges forward, grabbing a fistful of Jewer's blonde hair and yanking her head back. She hates it when people respond with "huh." The restaurant erupts into chaos as onlookers gasp. The woman douses Jewer with a bucket of water, throwing her to the ground like a rag doll. She stands over drenched, whimpering form, her arms crossed in triumph. "Make sure you're even worthy before going after what isn't yours," she sneers. Her lackeys join in, mocking Jewer to look at her pathetic reflection in the puddle on the floor. They turn on their heels and strut away, leaving Jewer in a heap of humiliation. Her friends finally rush to her side, one of the men asking if she can stand. She forces a pained smile, insisting she's fine and apologizing for the scene. The redhead's eyes go wide. It was real. Someone came and warned her, which meant she really was dating Li Chengxian. The men's attitudes shift in an instant. They shove the other girls aside, crowding around Jewer. The same man who wanted to leech off her connection is now her biggest supporter, promising to help her and telling her not to give up. He places a hand on her shoulder and she flinches internally. Gross. As the attackers leave, one of them asks their leader, Minzhen, if she went too hard. Minzhen scoffs. After all the perks, she private jets, presidential suites, endless shopping, they should be grateful. If they don't like it, they can get lost. Her friend immediately backpedals, gushing about how much she loves hanging out with her. She was just worried this might cause trouble. Minzhen smirks, unconcerned. How could it possibly go wrong? It was just some silly girl drama. And if anyone asks, she'll just say her sister Wenyan was behind it all. Any fallout will be on her. Her friends shower her with praise, calling her the smartest. Oh, thanks. Of course I am. As evening falls, the scene shifts to a serene beach under a crescent moon. Chengxian sits alone, nursing a beer and looking utterly bored. Their sailing trip was ruined because Wenyan got distracted by a yacht salesman, and now he was stuck here all alone and frustrated. But then his eyes land on something down the beach, and his expression changes to one of respect. Wenyan is surrounded by 4 shirtless hooligans, trying to pull her into their group. She tells them to keep their hands off her. She warns them her husband is coming, but they just laugh, grabbing her arm. A voice, cold as the ocean night, slices through their laughter. "I'm in a bad mood," Chengxian says, his eyes glinting dangerously. "You'd all better scram." He steps forward, a menacing smile playing on his lips. "Or I'll send you to the hospital for a vacation." Under the vast, star-dusted sky, 2 men stood shirtless on the shore, the gentle waves lapping at their feet. But the tranquil night was shattered by the jeers of a group of thugs who swaggered onto the beach, their laughter echoing malice. "What a total weakling," one of them sneered, pointing a mock finger. The group erupted in laughter, finding the entire situation hilarious. Was that the most embarrassing thing they'd ever heard? Do you think he was some main character? Standing beside the beautiful woman, Li Chengxian wore a smirk, completely unbothered. "Really? Great," he drawled, a glint in his eye. After all, making people happy is just basic gentleman stuff. With a swift motion, he clenched his fist, a powerful aura radiating from him as he prepared to strike. The sound of his fist connecting echoed like thunder, and in a flash the bowling pins scattered in a perfect strike. The once cocky bullies were now a pathetic, bruised mess, cowering in fear as Chengxian casually dusted off his hands. Well, now he was feeling happy too, he announced with a cheerful smile. It was a win-win situation, wasn't it? As he clapped his hands in satisfaction, the woman's gaze fell upon a scrape on his knuckles. "You're hurt," he said, her voice laced with genuine concern as she reached for his hand. He brushed it off with a casual wave, assuring her it was nothing and that it would heal in no time. He was more worried about her. Was she okay? He offered to walk her home, his expression gentle under the moonlight. She gave him a reassuring smile, saying she was fine. But as he looked at her, a strange fluttery stirred in his chest, a familiar, protective urge he couldn't quite place. His mind instantly went into a panic. Knew he couldn't betray Wenyan. Just as he was wrestling with his thoughts, she thanked him, calling him a kind young man. But the tender moment was violently interrupted by a roar from behind them. "Hey, you! Let go of her!" A figure emerged from the darkness, radiating a murderous aura that could freeze the ocean itself. It was Sayehan, holding 2 ice cream cones like weapons, his eyes blazing with fury. "Don't you dare touch my woman," he growled, the threat hanging heavy in the air. Without another word, he lunged forward, grabbing the stunned Chengxian and effortlessly flipping him upside down, slamming him onto this brutal force. Wenyan screamed, rushing forward in disbelief. "That young man saved me, and instead of thanking him, you attacked him." She was livid. "You're completely out of line," she scolded, demanding he apologize immediately. Why did he always jump to such quick and impulsive conclusions? "You absolutely can't hold hands with other guys," he fumed. She corrected him, exasperated, explaining that she was just checking his injuries since he got hurt protecting her. Could he just chill with his annoying possessiveness for 1 second? In a chibi fantasy, Yehan stubbornly crossed his arms, declaring that he couldn't stand it and he wasn't going to change. Wenyan sighed, conceding that she understood but he still needed to apologize. The great Sai Yehan looked on with a scowl as Chengxian, now on his feet, performed a perfect, respectful bow. Chengxian said calmly. Yehan simply grunted. Good. The ice cream cone slipped from Wenyan's hand, splattering onto the sand. Her world stopped. Her eyes were wide with utter shock. Dad? Dad? Her mind exploded with a million terrifying possibilities. You actually have an illegitimate child. Who is the mother? Was it his long-lost love? Or his sick childhood sweetheart? Or maybe the sister of a comrade who tried to end her life for him? Tears streamed down her face as a dark paranoia took hold. This had to be a setup. Those thugs earlier were part of his scheme, weren't they? A twisted game to gain her trust only to stab her in the back. He was trying to reclaim everything he lost, all because she had fallen for someone else. Why would he treat her this way? She sobbed, completely lost in her dramatic spiral, ignoring Yehan's desperate attempts to explain. Watching the whole soap opera unfold, Chengxian couldn't help but think they were following some old-school idol drama script. A stunningly beautiful woman appeared beside him, commenting that at least they'd made progress. The woman had learned to sweet-talk, and the guy was actually explain himself instead of just vanishing or faking his death, which was an improvement. The woman was elegant and composed, her presence calming. She looked at Chengxian with knowing eyes, remarking that it seemed like he'd been through a lot. He just shrugged, replying that it was okay, he was used to it. Just then, Wenyan spotted them and her breakdown reignited. "Sweetie, your dad, she wailed, running towards them. Yehan trailed behind her, frantically trying to explain that she had misunderstood everything, but Wenyan was already hugging Chengxian protectively, declaring that from now on, she would take care of and be strong. The scene was pure, unadulterated chaos. Later, the four of them sat in a brightly lit living room, the storm having finally passed. Wenyan, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, formally apologized for her misunderstanding and for causing so much trouble. The beautiful woman, who was none other than Wenyan's mother and Chengxi's fiancé, explained with a warm smile that she never expected Yehan to be her son-in-law, but she approved of him. Tough man who could protect her daughter. That was why Chengxian had called him Dad. Yehan shot Wenyan a pointed look. She was the one who wouldn't listen to his explanation earlier. Wenyan shot back that he was the one with such a dark past, making it easy to jump to conclusions, but she quickly took it back, admitting it was all her fault. Chengxian broke out in a nervous sweat, thinking he really should have cleared things up sooner. His mother explained that they never got to know each other because he always avoided social gatherings. At that moment, Yehan's possessiveness flared up again. Grabbed Wenyan's cheeks, his voice a low growl. "That smile should only be for me." Mortified, Wenyan pushed him away, telling him not to such things in front of people, and promptly dragged him out of the room, deciding it was not to be the third wheel any longer. Back on the quiet beach, Wenyan's mother walked beside Chengxian, her feet dipping into the cool water. The sea breeze was gentle as they walked along the shore. He finally understood the strange sense of closeness he'd felt earlier. It was because she was Wenyan's mother and she looked so young. A wave of relief washed over him. So he wasn't cheating. He was a good guy after all. What a strange coincidence to run into her under these circumstances. She noticed him lost in thought, and was on his mind. He quickly apologized for flaking on her earlier and leaving her alone. She smiled, telling him not to worry. She always found ways to keep herself busy. He stopped walking, and she turned to face him. Chengxian, she said, questioning his sudden halt. He looked at her intently, his voice serious. "You said where you wanted to help me. Was that for real?" Of course, she answered without hesitation. Then he asked, would she consider officially joining his team and working with him on his project? Her expression became guarded, and she hesitated. He could feel her apprehension. Was she worried about the elders in the Zheng or Li families not approving? Or perhaps that he might treat her unfairly? Of course not, she stammered, looking away. He offered a kind, reassuring smile, but his mind was already drifting elsewhere. The calm night was suddenly replaced by a terrifying memory, a flash of twisted metal and shattered glass. The driver's dead, a voice echoed in his head. The scene of the horrific car crash played out, police and paramedics swarming the area. He saw himself as a small boy, wrapped in a blanket, his face bruised and his eyes wide with unspeakable trauma, trembling uncontrollably. The memories shifted to another dark day. "It wasn't me," his younger self cried out, but his family wouldn't listen. They were so biased, so unfair. His own grandparents called him vicious, accusing him of using dirty tricks out of jealousy. He had no heart, they screamed. His aunt and uncle chimed in, blaming him for not handing over his patent. He was a kid, he'd respect his elders. Why was he so selfish after all they'd done for him? "Get out of the Li family," they had shouted. "You're banned from this house forever." He remembered standing there, abandoned, as his family turned their backs on him. The family matriarch, his only ally, had stayed behind. Did I do something wrong? He had asked, his voice small. Should I have given them my invention? She had gently stroked his head, her voice firm but kind. No, young master, you did nothing wrong. They're the greedy, incompetent, and downright awful ones. But they used to treat him so well he'd whimpered he didn't want them kicked out. She explained the harsh truth. They only cared because he was a prodigy, and now that they couldn't control his talent, they were lashing out. People changed, she told him, and all he could do was focus on being himself. A devastating realization had dawned on his young face. If he weren't so talented, if he was just normal, then maybe they wouldn't have changed. Back in the present, the weight of his past was heavy on his face. What's going on? Wenyan's mother asked, sensing the shift in his mood. She saw the fear in his eyes and wondered what was on his mind, deciding it was best to change the subject. Chengxian, she said gently, after thought. I've realized I prefer a laid-back life. She explained that she had only thought of asking him to join her team after Shizhen and contacting some of the people he had provided. The idea of working under him felt strange, like biting the hand that feeds you. She quickly apologized, saying she was being abrupt and out of line. Chengxian's mind raced. Did she think he was useless? He had to find a way to some points and prove his worth to her. Wenyan's mother watched him, a thoughtful face. Was his carefree, partying lifestyle just a cover? What exactly had this young man been through? She started to speak, but just as she did, the sky erupted in a brilliant explosion of color. Boom! Fireworks lit up the night, their magnificent display reflecting over the calm ocean waters. They both stood, mesmerized, watching the dazzling spectacle unfold. No matter how many times she saw them, she mused, they never failed to amaze. The vibrant light danced in her eyes as she spoke of how they burned bright with everything they had, holding nothing back. Chengxian's reply was tinged with melancholy. But after that dazzling moment, it's all gone, just ashes and bones. He thought that maybe living in a warehouse wasn't so bad after all. She turned to him, intrigued. She heard people praise their brilliance or pity their short life, but never a thought quite like that. He felt he was killing the vibe, but she admitted she'd been abrupt too, so that made two of them. She told him the fireworks were a perfect reflection of themselves. For people like them, survival was the most basic and fundamental right. Even if their paths were different, it all came down to that one thing, survival. Everyone just had to work hard in their own way to achieve it. He was momentarily speechless, swallowing hard at her unexpectedly deep motivational talk. They began to walk again, a comfortable silence settling between them as music seemed to drift on the air. The mood felt just right, and he was about to say something when his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. The caller ID showed Yehan's assistant. Is Wenyan with you? The voice on the other end asked. Yeah, Chengxian replied flippantly. We're at the beach watching fireworks on our honeymoon, he lied smoothly. So if it's not important, I'm hanging up. The assistant let out a heavy sigh. You're about to be finished, my friend. What do you mean? Chengxian asked, his brow furrowing. The assistant rattled off a list of his recent supposed transgressions. The bar, the fake flirts, the poor male conduct. Chengxian scoffed, confused. What are you talking about? You're crazy, he shot back. Just because you're destined to be single, don't drag me down with you. But then a photo popped up on his screen. It was an Instagram post of him with a blonde woman in a slinky, backless dress. The comments were a whirlwind of speculation and congratulations. What the hell is this? He thought, his blood running cold. He stared at the screen, utterly dumbfounded, his face a mask of shock. Wenyan's mother noticed his distress. Are you okay? Did something happen? He scrambled to recover, forcing a laugh and tossing his phone in the air. Look! I just tossed my phone to add some flair to the fireworks. Her skeptical expression told him she wasn't buying it for a second. It's been a long day, she said, her tone gentle but firm. You should get some rest. He tried to argue that he had work to do, but she was insistent. No, let's prioritize your health first. She guided him back to his room, forbidding him from looking at any screens for the rest of the night. Tomorrow we'll go deep diving, she said, tucking him into bed as if he were a child. Oh, okay, he mumbled, defeated. Good night. She walked to the door. Yeah, night, she replied, closing it behind her. The second the door clicked shut, Chengxian's entire demeanor changed. The playful, flustered boy was gone, replaced by a man with eyes as cold as ice. A suffocating murderous aura filled the room. Someone's trying to mess with me, he thought, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Do they take me for some harmless fool? The woman stirred her coffee with delicate, practiced ease, a serene smile playing on her lips as she looked at the man across the table. He'd probably misunderstood the situation, she said, her voice smooth as silk. But the man was persistent, his face eager. Misunderstood? No way! He leaned forward, practically begging, telling Miss Shen that if she could secure business with the Li family, the perks would be far more than just this little gift. She sighed delicately, turning her head with practiced reluctance. She was really not in a position to help, she explained, and besides, Chengxian didn't hold much power in the family anyway. The last thing she wanted was to put him in a tough spot. Her eyes widened in a sudden, feigned panic, as if she'd just revealed too much. That's not what she meant. She barely even knew Chengxian, and she certainly didn't know anything else about him. The man's greasy smile widened. He was completely taken in by her act. He totally understood. He soothed. No need to make any promises. He just wanted to be friends, that's all. With gentle push, he slid a large gift bag across the table toward her. She recoiled slightly, the picture of modesty. Oh, she couldn't possibly accept such a thing. But he insisted she take it, promising to keep in touch before making his exit. As he walked away, a smug thought crossed his mind. She was acting all coy when she was clearly only in it for the benefits. Shen Juer watched him go, her expression unreadable, a silent and calculating look in her eyes. Her gaze fell upon the orange bag sitting innocently on the table. Alone now, she settled back into her seat, her slender fingers pulling open the bag. Inside, her eyes were met with the glorious sight of stacked, crisp bills. A wicked smirk finally graced her lips. Her original plan had been simple: stir up a little buzz with some photos, meet a few executives, and land a couple of contracts to boost KPIs. But she never ever thought some fool would just hand her a bag full of cash outright. She fanned the bills, feeling their power. So this is what it felt like to climb the social ladder. The air up here was intoxicatingly comfortable. Her expression grew thoughtful again. Well, now that she'd taken the money, she couldn't just ghost him. It seemed she'd have to arrange another meeting with Fan Chengxian after all. A text message suddenly lit up her screen, an update on Li Chengxian's schedule. He was out diving today with a woman. Her eyes narrowed. A woman? Yes, the reply came, and they're pretty close. A flash of pure rage contorted her features. Figures. Of course, a rich, second-generation brat rat like him wouldn't be celibate. There were probably countless flashy women throwing themselves at his feet. Her fingers flew across the screen, her message curt and demanding. Send me the location. The address appeared instantly. Meanwhile, in a surreal of vibrant blue, fish danced among the coral reefs. Wenyan and Chengxian through the silent, breathtaking scenery, their scuba gear the only sound in the deep. Her eyes were wide with wonder, taking the beauty as they swam side by side through the underwater paradise. They broke the surface with a joyful splash, climbing back onto the deck of a pristine boat. Wenyan couldn't contain her glee. A towel wrapped at her head. Wow, that was amazing. She was having so much fun. Chengxian watched her, a warm, amused smile on his handsome face. She was excited as if it were very first time deep diving, he teased. It actually was, she admitted with a happy laugh. For over 20 years, her entire life had been a monotonous cycle of studying, training, work, and meetings, with no time for play. An assistant approached as Chengxian shook his head. That was terrible, he said. She was the heiress of the Zheng family, but she was basically their star employee, a total workhorse. The assistant handed her a tablet with the rough cuts from their underwater photo shoot, asking her to take a look. Chengxian chuckled, telling her to relax. She was reviewing them with the intensity of a quarterly report. She gave him a sidelong glance, all business. Not at all, she retorted coolly. She was the client, merely checking the supplier's samples. Such a workaholic. The photos looked fine, but she noticed they were all of her. She instructed the assistant to go back down and get standalone shots of the coral, like B-roll footage. The man looked perplexed. Just the coral, he asked, wondering if he'd have to charge more. Oh no, of course not, she assured him, and they'd get it done right away. Chengxian in, his voice low and teasing. She was a tourist, not a marine scientist. That's why they didn't understand her request for solo coral shots. She smiled mysteriously, a brilliant idea sparking in her mind. Well, she had her reasons, for example, and then, let's head back. An idea for a draft had just struck her, and she needed to jot it down immediately. Chengxian sighed dramatically. Ugh, the workhorse strikes again. Later, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in fiery oranges and soft pinks, they walked hand in hand along the shore. He gently reminded her that she still needed to eat dinner, no matter how busy she was. She brushed it off, saying it was just a draft and she could just order delivery. He stopped, turning to her with an adorable pout. She was going to ditch him on their honeymoon and eat takeout alone? Did that sound fair to him or to herself? She laughed, giving in. He had a point. Fine, they'd do it his way. But just as the romantic moment settled, a sharp voice cut through the air, calling his name. Chengxian. Standing there against the golden sunset was Shen Juer, looking perfectly poised in a simple blue dress. Chengxian's face twisted from loving contentment to pure shock and rage. She here? You? She began to speak, her voice laced with faux concern, wanting to talk about that photo. Before she could spin her web of lies, Chengxian moved with lightning speed, clapping firmly over her mouth. He turned to Wenyan with a strained smile, telling her to go wait at the restaurant. He would explain everything in just a minute. The second Wenyan was out of earshot, he spun Shen Juer around and shoved her away forcefully. You've got the nerve to bring up that photo? He seethed, his voice dripping with venom. He hadn't even come after her for her little stunt, and she dared to show up on her own. His handsome features were contorted in fury. She stumbled back, clutching her chest dramatically, her eyes wide with fabricated innocence. It's not like that. She insisted she expected things to blow up, that she just wanted to apologize for the trouble she'd caused. She looked utterly pathetic and harmless. She took a tentative step forward, her voice a soft, pleading whisper. Chengxian. His expression instantly turned colder than the Arctic. A suffocating, murderous awe enveloped them. He leaned in, his voice a low growl. Did she know what happened to the last person who made a fool of him? He made sure they were taken care of. Crystal clear. He crossed his arms, a predator cornering his prey. As for her, did she want him to take care of her too? From a distance, Wenyan observed them against the stunning sunset. She recognized the girl instantly, the one from the bar. Chengxian was into the delicate little daisy type, but she knew better. If a girl was bold enough to approach him like that, she was no innocent. Wenyan crossed her arms, a calculating smile on her face. Should she give him a heads up? Just then, her phone buzzed. It was her assistant, Zhen. Miss Zheng, we've got a situation on the beach. Can you come over? Oh, what's going on? Wenyan asked, her interest piqued. Explained she saw a man sneaking around with a camera, taking secret pictures, so she had security catch him. Wenyan arrived to see the culprit detained. Shizhen held up the camera, explaining he'd been tailing them and even had photos from the bar incident. Wenyan took the camera and flipped through the images, pausing on a beautifully framed shot of Chengxian. It's not bad, she mused aloud. The framing's solid, the vibe's nice, it tells a story. Shizhen was aghast. Are you praising him, Miss Zhang? Wenyan simply smiled. The guy's got skills, and she respected anyone who works hard. The photographer was unceremoniously thrown into a dark room. Security guards loomed over him, their voices harsh. Speak up! Who do you work for? Wenyan and Shizhen appeared at the doorway. A guard offered to handle the interrogation, assuring Miss Zhang she didn't need to dirty her hands. But Wenyan waved him off with a disarming smile. It's fine, she just wanted a word. You'll keep me safe, right? The guard melted. Don't worry. Wenyan approached the cowering man, her presence commanding the room. She gave him two choices, her voice calm but laced with unyielding authority. Tell her the truth now, and she'd pay him triple what his client offered, or keep his mouth shut and her lawyers would ensure he saw the inside of a prison cell for at least 15 years. The man's face went pale with terror. You can't do that. She let out a soft, condescending laugh. Had he ever heard of the Perpetual Group? Their lawyers' annual salaries could buy his entire life's work. Did he really think they were amateurs? Shizhen watched in awe. Her boss was terrifyingly cool. Wenyan leaned down, her voice a silken threat. She understood professional ethics. He's in her hands now, and she could guarantee his next 15 years would be a living hell. The photographer trembled uncontrollably. She smiled sweetly. It's your choice. I'll count down from 5. 5. He broke instantly. Wait. Okay, I'll talk. Don't lock me up! Back on the moonlit beach, Shenjuer was still clutching Chengxian's arm, her voice a desperate whine. You've misunderstood. We're classmates. I would never set you up. Inside, her mind was racing. Where was her photographer? He hadn't signaled. Chengxian had finally had enough. He violently shoved her away. Don't touch me. She hit the sand with a pained cry. But inwardly, she was cheering. It was an epic fall. He must have gotten the shot. Chengxian glared down at her, his patience gone. He didn't care how she found him, but his lawyer would be contacting her tomorrow. She was going to court. She scrambled, trying to call his bluff, claiming he had no proof. He scoffed. Did he need proof? A few lawyers could tie her up in court for years, wrecking her job, her social life, her entire world. He smiled, dark, chilling expression. She would be utterly defenseless. Her confidence finally shattered. She scrambled to her feet, deciding to retreat. Fine, I'll leave now. I'll never appear before you again. She turned, thinking she had to get out of there, photos or not. A cool voice stopped her cold. It's already over. Shenjuer froze, her blood turning to ice. She turned to see Wenyan approaching, flanked by her assistant, security, and the very photographer she had hired. Her eyes widened in utter shock and confusion. What's going on? Wenyan gestured to the disgraced photographer. See that? That's the professional ethics you were counting on. The moment things go south, he'll abandon you without a second thought. The photographer, desperate to save himself, turned on his former employer. Hey, Shenjuer, why are you pretending you don't know me? She feigned ignorance, her voice trembling. Who are you? How do you know my name? He screamed. Wenyan stepped between them. Watch your mouth, she warned him, before turning her sharp gaze on Shenjuer. She admired her boss lady vibe online, but what was this pathetic display? Shenjuer launched into her final, desperate performance, accusing Wenyan of harassment, insisting she and Chengxian were just classmates. She pointed an accusing finger, a picture of a wronged woman. I have every right to defend myself. She cried. A chibi version of the trio clapped sarcastically. Bravo, what a performance. Wenyan turned to Chengxian, an eyebrow raised. She majored in drama. Nope, he deadpanned, just business. Wenyan's smile was predatory. You act this well, you should be in showbiz. I can get you signed. Shenjuer's eyes narrowed with caution. What are you getting at? Shizhen held up the camera. We've saved everything, she said coldly. The chat records, the bank transfers, the photos. Shenjuer's face was a mask of horror. What are those? Fake evidence. Relax. Our lawyers have already filed charges. They'll work with the police and the banks to tear your lies to shreds. You. Shenjur stammered, completely trapped. Her sanity finally snapped. You're all driving me to my grave. I'll be back to haunt you, before turning and running pathetically into the ocean waves, disappearing into the night. The foolish woman waded into the cold, dark water, a desperate swirling in her mind. As soon as they stopped her, she would burst into tears, creating a dramatic scene pitiful that Chengxian would finally sorry for her, finally notice her existence. She pushed deeper, the icy washing around her thighs, the fabric of her dress clinging to her skin. But the silence from the shore was deafening. Why wasn't anyone calling for her? Why weren't they rushing to stop her reckless act? A knot of confusion tightened in her stomach. What the heck was going on? Her eyes darted to the shore, and her blood ran cold. They weren't even looking at her. They were just standing there, chatting amongst themselves. She was about to die here, and those wretched bastards didn't even care. On the beach, Wenyan's friend dramatically asking if the girl was finished with her little suicide act, or perhaps she needed a hand. Wenyan gently chided her, reminding her that they lived in a society with laws and killing was, in fact, illegal. Her friend quickly apologized, admitting she misspoke. She then called out to the desperate woman in the water, telling her not to worry, since security would eventually find her body and be sure to call the police. The actress's face contorted with rage, her scheme crumbling into humiliation. "You people are unbelievable," she shrieked, her voice cracking with fury. From the shore, Li Chengxian gave a curt, almost bored nod to his security team, telling them to go on and do what they needed to do. She saw them coming and panicked, screaming them to stay back, that they had framed her for everything and should just let her die here. But her pleas were useless as two imposing guards grabbed her by the arms, their grip like iron. They held her fast in the churning water, the farce finally at its end. Suddenly, a loud growl echoed from the shore. It was Wenyan's stomach. Her friend chimed in, equally hungry. "Let's go eat," Wenyan suggested, completely over the drama. In the water, the actress's own stomach let out a pathetic gurgle. To Wenyan's friend, merciless told her to just suck it up. Li Chengxian's voice was devoid of warmth as he gave his final order, bring her back and keep her locked up. His men began to drag the thrashing woman from the sea. She struggled futilely, her desperation pathetic against their strength. With a heavy thud, they threw her onto the wet sand at their feet like a discarded doll. The three of them, Chengxian, Wenyan, and her friend, looked down at the shivering mess before them. The actress immediately switched tactics, her eyes filling with crocodile tears as she looked up at the handsome man towering over her. "What exactly did I do wrong, Chengxian?" She whimpered, her voice trembling. "I just wanted your attention. Oh." Her face was a perfect mask of heartbroken innocence. But Wenyan's friend wasn't buying it for a second. "Cut the act," she snapped, her voice sharp with contempt. She accused the woman of stalking Chengxian, taking his pictures, and stirring up all this drama. "Don't you have any shame?" Li Chengxian slowly crouched down, his presence suffocating. His gaze was intense, analytical. "Why are you clinging to me?" he asked softly, his voice a low murmur against the sound of waves. "Do you truly like me?" His chiseled features were unreadable, making her heart pound in her chest. "Of course," she cried, her answer immediate and desperate. "Why else would I do all this?" He looked her straight in the eye, his expression turning impossibly cold. "But I'm not interested in you," he stated flatly. "If you truly liked me, you'd respect me, wish me well, and walk away." She bit her lip, claiming she just had to at least try. "Fine," he said, his tone shifting. "Setting your actions aside, I'll ask you one last question. And you should think carefully before you answer." Her breath hitched in her throat. "What is it?" He leaned in closer. The city lights in his dark eyes. "Do you want to be my mistress or my wife?" The question hung in the air, and for a moment, she was utterly stunned. Then her mind began to race with greedy calculations. A mistress? That was just a secret affair, so low profile. But being his wife, that was the jackpot. She'd become a part of the illustrious Li family. It was a gold digger's ultimate dream. Her eyes, once filled with fake tears, now shone with avarice. Which one should she choose? She couldn't seem too eager. She decided she'd just say she didn't care which one she was, that she just wanted to be with him. It was the perfect, selfless-sounding answer. She opened her mouth, ready to deliver her winning line. "Well, I don't care if I'm—" But before the words could escape, a guard shoved a cloth into her mouth. With a sharp oof, she was gagged, her eyes wide with shock and muffled protests. The guards hauled her to her feet and began dragging her away as Chengxian and Wenyan watched her pathetic retreat. Wenyan glanced at the man beside her, a curious look on her face. "Weren't you interested in hearing her answer?" He didn't even look back at the struggling woman. The second she hesitated, "I already knew," he said, his voice laced with disdain. "I'm done watching her little show." A faint, charming smile touched his lips as he turned his attention to Wenyan. "So what now?" she asked, his smile widened. "Didn't you already plan everything for me? It's all in your hands now." A wave of relief washed over Wenyan. "Oh, great. So it was all just a misunderstanding." She had been worried for nothing these past few days. Her friend, however, looked completely baffled. "You knew everything all along?" she asked, Wenyan pointing between her and Chengxian. Chengxian answered for her, a smug look on his face. "Yeah, way before." The friend turned back to Wenyan, incredulous. "You weren't planning to ask him about it?" Wenyan simplicked her husband, her expression calm and unbothered. Ask about what? Cheng Xian's eyes twinkled with mischief. He leaned in, his voice a playful whisper. We're on our honeymoon, and there might be someone I'm cheating with. You should be cracking the whip, shouldn't you? Wenyan let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. Don't bother testing me, I won't interfere with your private life. Her next words landed like a physical blow. This is just a contract marriage. I know my relax. With that, she turned away from him, her mind already on other things. Come on, let's go eat. All this drama, I'm starving. Cheng Xian froze. The playful light in his eyes vanished, replaced by something deep and wounded. Just a contract marriage? A heart-shattering thought echoed in the silence of his mind. Am I the only one who's taking it too seriously? He watched her back as she walked away, a chasm opening between them. Her friend called for her to slow down a bit as they walked hand in hand along the shoreline, leaving him standing alone on the cold sand. He took a deep breath, then another, forcing the ache in his chest down. Hey, Wenyan, wait up! His voice strained but determined. I'm the one who dragged you out to eat, remember? He quickly closed distance between them, falling in step beside her. His gaze was soft, almost pleading, as he looked at her profile. We've got plenty of time, he said quietly, so we can take it slow. And for a moment he wasn't talking about their walk to dinner at all.